Jay says that's right, it's just a kiss. He instigates. You guys, I can't do it. Okay. Jay, I honestly don't think I can do it. Now. I'm back. I didn't know if I would be back. I'm back. Hello, welcome to Gracie Talks. I'm going to be giving you my long-form recap of The Mortal Instruments City of Ashes, the second book in the series, written by Cassandra Clare. We are going to be in the trenches with this one. Let's go. Quick check-in. Hi. There was some feedback on the first video that I wanted to address. I started working on this project last May, in May of 2023. It is now May 2024. It's Saturday right now. I should be posting Tuesday or Wednesday. I had already filmed the first recap and the second recap prior to launching the YouTube, so that when I first launched, I could just focus on the other shorter videos that I was going to do. So I needed to come to you in real time and put this in real quick. Before I get into the feedback, real quick, want to say, worked on this for a year before I even launched the channel, right? I had not posted anything online in a really long time. My social media presence was basically non-existent. So I started a TikTok right around the time that I was going to launch this YouTube, so that I could use that to post videos and sort of like check back in online. The first comment I ever made on TikTok was on a video about a cat baker who wins a baking contest. And I commented on it like, wow, loved this, so happy for the cat, whatever. That comment is the most liked thing that I have put on the internet since starting this journey. I spent a year prepping for the launch of this channel. Do not let the cat comment be my most liked contribution to the internet. Don't let that be my legacy. I'm happy for the cat. I really am. It's not a real cat, but still, that's not my point. My point is, please like, share, comment, subscribe. People telling me sharing it really helps. I don't even know what you're supposed to share it on. Just share it, I guess. Please subscribe. Please help me justify the fact that I spent a year working on this. Please. Okay, now I'm gonna get into the feedback from the first video. I wanted to put an AI disclaimer in this video. There were comments on the first video that raised concerns about the use of AI in the video. I used AI to make all of the pictures for the wall. And I want to discuss this because it's really important to me that everybody knows that I 100% support creators and respect them. My main priority with this channel is making sure that it is a safe space for everybody and that everybody feels supported and respected. That's it. Because I'm contributing content to what exists online. I don't want any of this to be like, oh, she thinks she's a big deal. I have 200 subscribers, okay? I don't want this to be as if I'm pretending like I have a huge platform or something. I get it, okay? I still think that this is worth discussing and making sure that we get it right. So in this journey of me launching a channel and contributing to all of the content that already exists online, bye-bye. Number one priority is making sure that I'm putting something out there that ultimately is positive. Making sure that everybody feels supported and respected, that's it. That is the most important thing to me, truly. I want this to be a safe space for everyone. Secondary, we have our he's and our haws. So I want that to be known. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to briefly share my perspective with using AI for this, and then also explain what the links are in the bio in terms of resources and ways that we can celebrate creators. When I started this a year ago, I had a vision in my head for exactly what I wanted this to be, what I wanted the wall to look like, how I wanted the video to be cut and edited. There was a really specific vision that I had, and if you haven't noticed the way that my brain works, I am incredibly anal about things, and I want everything to be just so. Immediately for the pictures, what I was going to do, my first thought, is using actual images from the TV show or the movie. That way, there was facial recognition that people had. They see the video, it's my first video that I'm ever going to post, they don't know who I am, but they see Clary Frey from the TV show or from the movie. And because I would be able to take everything from the TV show or the movie, except for the side characters, I could make sure that all of the pictures were sort of in the same. I wanted them to visually look similar, all sort of be on theme. That's just, for me, I really wanted that. But I also wanted to really honor people who loved the books as much as I did. So that's when I thought about using AI, because I could put in the exact physical description and honor the source material in that way. I realized that if I could use AI to generate these photos to give me sort of something to build off of, then I could go in and make sure that every detail was correct. Trying to give Isabel the golden whip, making sure Jace has the gold flecks in his eyes. All of that I did in Photoshop after I generated the images, and I did not use AI within Photoshop. I did everything myself. It still ended up being a lot of work. I had so much fun doing it. And in my head, I thought that I was going the extra mile for people who really cared about all of those details. That way I would also have complete creative control over absolutely every part of the video. In terms of using AI, I used OpenAI specifically. OpenAI owns ChatGPT and DALL-E and other products, but those are the main ones. I used OpenAI specifically because they make a lot of considerations for creators. I am not saying that AI is all good or all bad. I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's feelings when it comes to AI. I absolutely guarantee that there is a large problem with the use of AI in general being used in a way where it is harming creators. I completely agree. I specifically used OpenAI because they make a lot of considerations for creators. They do not allow any prompts that ask for any images in any specific artist's style. You can't do any prompts and say in the style of this artist in a way where it would imitate that artist. They don't allow that. And they also have an opt-out form for creators who do not want their images being used to train the AI. That feeds into one of the concerns that we're about to talk about. And that was the only AI system that I ended up using in the video. And in the bio with that first recap, my business email is in it. And there was a note for any creators to send me their fan art if they would be okay with me spotlighting it. That was my way of still celebrating creators. The concerns raised on the last video is that the use of AI in general, in any form, is disrespectful to creators. I agree that AI is a very complicated issue right now. I agree that we need to make sure that we're supporting creators. So I wanted to open the discussion up. I don't want anybody to feel disrespected. I want everybody to feel supported. And I want the creators to know that I stand with them. So how do we do that? The second video was already filmed before I posted that first recap. So I used AI photos again in this recap. I make jokes about them. I'm talking about the photos. That's in this video. That is not me ignoring the feedback. It was already filmed. Going forward, we will figure out the best way to deal with this. And I'm using the royal we because I do mean we, okay? We can discuss it, we can figure it out. I want everybody to feel respected. The second concern is a little technical, so bear with me. I think it's important and I want to have this discussion. The second concern has to do with how AI learns what to produce for certain prompts. All of AI has to be trained to know what to spit out. So what happens is AI looks at pretty much every photo that it can look at. It'll say, okay, this is a picture of this is what the title of this picture is. If somebody asks for this, they want something that looks like this. That's how AI learns what to do. And so those images train the AI. When that happens, if you are someone who has made an image of something, that could end up being used by the AI. The AI will look at the photo that you made, know that it's supposed to be this, spit that out for the prompt. The picture that exists now is still made up of these pieces of art where the creators were not being credited. That is a very large problem with AI. OpenAI has an opt-out form that you can fill out. If you have created an image and you do not want it to be used to train the AI, meaning that the AI cannot use your photo for any reference for what the image that it's supposed to generate is, there is an opt-out form that you can fill out. That is in the bio for the last video. That will be in the bio for this one. That's not a perfect system. I understand that. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to fill out the form. It should be something where the AI is not going to use it unless it has permission. I'm so with you on that. In my head, for what I wanted with making something, I thought that if I used OpenAI and put the opt-out form, gave creators a chance to send me their stuff so that I could still spotlight it. My hope was that people would still feel respected in that. If you don't, we will figure something else out. Bear with me as I repeat myself. Number one priority is that everyone feels supported and respected. That's it. Because otherwise, what's the point, right? Not just of this, but like everything. Be kind, be respectful, be loving. That's what we're going to do. So we will figure this out. There are a couple of different options. One, we continue to discuss and people are comfortable with the creative process that I go through for the AI and all of the considerations that are still being made for creators. Or two, either y'all say, nope, don't like the AI, or as I am doing research, which I'm continuing to do, I go, you know what? I'm not feeling like this is ethical. I'm not feeling like this is respectful. And then we figure something else out. Recap, there's going to be an AI section in the bio that is going to have a disclaimer by me, that is going to have a link to the Dolly page where you can look at the considerations that they make for creators and what their rules are. There's going to be a link to that opt-out form. And then finally, the bio is going to have my business email. This is where I want you to send me fan art that you have done for the Mortal Instruments fandom so that I can spotlight it. Send it to that business email, and then I will spotlight it on the channel. I want to be so clear about this because I want us to be on the same page. I don't know that that is what I will end up using for the third video. Not because I don't want to, not because it's not amazing, but because I don't know what I'm gonna do for the third video yet, and I don't know if I can get everything to be in the same theme, because that's one of the beautiful things about fan art and what everybody makes is that everyone does it in their own style, and it's also different and it's also beautiful. And I don't know what I'm going to do for the third video yet, but regardless, this is our way of still celebrating all of the creators. Send it to that business email and I will post it on this channel. Have art be in the subject line so that I can easily find it, and then include whatever handle you want me to tag. Please only send me stuff if you are the creator. If anybody sends them in, what I'll do is I'll package them all together and I'll put them in a short and I'll put that on the channel. I'm gonna shoot you so straight. The only way that I will not post fan art that is sent to me is if one, it's inappropriate, or two, I actually ended up getting 500,000 emails or something, and there's just no way that I could physically do it all by myself. In which case we would figure something else out and we would still make sure that we celebrated creators. I'm not expecting that to happen. 200 subs. I'm just trying to be so straight up with everyone from the jump on what expectations are and what we're doing, because I want to be transparent with you. We're in this together. We're going to figure this out. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you to all of the creators. I celebrate you. I'm going to throw you back to the video now. I'm so excited. Okay. Love you. See you. Quick recap of the first book. Book one starts with Clary, 16 years old, main character, figuring out that her mother and father were shadow hunters and she's been hidden from the shadow hunter world the entire time and raised in the mundane world, the normal world. Shadow hunters are people that kill demons. Demons are bad and need to be sent back to their own dimensions. And then downworlders are humans with demonic diseases or demonic blood in them. They are not all bad. Downworlders are regular humans. They're treated as less than, but they shouldn't be. Claire links up with the shadow hunter crew in New York, which is the Lightwood family, basically Jace, Izzy, and Alec. We get introduced to the Clave and the Circle. The Clave is the body of adult shadow hunters. Their views are outdated at best and like downright bad at worst. However, they are still making sure that everybody acts right when it comes to the downworlders and then demons. So they sort of set the rules and the laws. And then you have the Circle. The Circle was started by Valentine. He's basically the big bad. And the Circle believed that all downworlders needed to be killed because they would have this demon, either blood or disease in them. So the Circle said we need to kill all downworlders. And the Clave, Shadowhunter group, said, not in my house. So they ended up beefing. There are 3 main mortal instruments: the mortal cup, which creates more shadow hunters, the mortal sword, and then the mortal mirror. Those are the 3 things that the angel Raziel, that's the main angel of shadow hunters, gave to the first shadow hunter. Valentine is trying to kill all of the downworlders, and he also has stolen the mortal cup, so he has the ability to make more shadow hunters. The Circle basically disbanded. It's done. It ended about 17 years ago. They were at the Accords, which is a treaty that you signed between the shadow hunters and the downworlders. The Circle tried to attack to kill everyone. They lost. Valentine went into hiding, pretended to be Michael Wayland, raising Jace Wayland at the Manor House. Robert, Maris, Hodge were all in the Circle, but they all snitched on Valentine to the Clave, so they were exiled to the New York Institute, which is where they all are now. Everybody thought that Valentine was dead in the first book. He is not. He is back. Hodge had a secret deal with Valentine that if Hodge gave the cup to Valentine, Valentine would break Hodge's curse, where he was cursed to stay in the New York Institute and never leave. Valentine stole Clary's mother because it turns out that they were married. Jocelyn left to make sure that Valentine tried to stop doing what he was doing. Valentine is actually Clary's father, and we find out that Valentine is actually Jace's father, allegedly. Allegedly. My nails aren't done. Listen, I have to give them a healing phase, okay? I'm not gonna hear anything about it. Jocelyn hid the mortal cup. Clary found the mortal cup. Hodge gives it up to Valentine. They go to stop Valentine. Valentine ends up fleeing, getting away with the mortal cup. So Valentine is in the wind now, although he is back. He has the mortal cup. Jocelyn is still asleep, and the rest of our crew is trying to sort of live in the aftermath of that. I can take you through the wall again. Am I regretting it? Black string is any interaction. Red string is romantic relationship, hooked up, dating, married. Valentine and Jocelyn obviously were married, divorced now. Robert and Maris married. I added a red string between Jace and Kaylee. This isn't new, but she was referred to as his ex-girlfriend in this book at the very end, so I just added that red string for continuity. It doesn't really mean anything material for this book, but we have to get it right. The blue string is blood relations, so again, Jocelyn and Valentine are Clary's parents, also Jace's parents, allegedly. The Lightwoods all have their blue string, the Lightwood family here. White bar is death. Shadowhunters are marked with this symbol, the Faith of the Angel rune. Werewolves are marked with the claw. Vampires are marked with the vampire teeth. Warlocks are marked with this magic star. Demons have the horns. Fairies have wings because I guess when I was thinking about it, my mind went, yeah, wings for the fairies. They don't have wings in this book. When I was making the icons before the first video, I just read Akatar. Maybe that's what it was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They don't have wings, but their symbol is wings. The Circle is for the Circle members. This wouldn't really be live. The Circle is technically disbanded. Like Robert and Maris have the Circle because they were in the Circle when it was formed. To our knowledge, they're not currently still working for Valentine, but for example, Hodge was. I'm gonna get into the recap. Please remember at the end of this, we are going to have an MVP, Most Valuable Player Award, as well as a Most Improved. Jocelyn is sitting with MVP right now. Simon is sitting with Most Improved. Will they retain it? I don't know. We'll see. I told myself before I did this video I was gonna get an iPad case so that I could stop being scared about dropping it, and yet here we are 3 months later. Cool. We open in a ridiculously nice penthouse with Valentine. He is with a young warlock named Elias. Elias is 16, has wings, dresses like Nemo boy, don't get attached. Valentine tricks this warlock because he's so young into summoning Agramon. Warlocks can summon demons and they summon them with a pentagram and then they use their warlock magic, whatever. The demon will stay trapped in the pentagram when they call them. So you can summon a demon, ask them questions, talk to them, like hang out, have a coffee, but then they go back to their own dimension and they're trapped in the pentagram. Agramon is able to break out of the pentagram. Valentine knows this. Agramon is described as a cloud with white eyes, like a black cloud that's rolling with white eyes. Agramon is the fear demon, not a fear demon, the fear demon. Agramon makes you feel such intense fear that you end up dying basically of a heart attack of being so afraid. Agramon breaks out of the pentagram, kills Elias. Elias is dead. Bye-bye now. Agramon is out of the pentagram, and we find out that Valentine has control over demons now. The fact that he has the Mortal Cup gives him power, and he has power over demons. We're not sure the extent of it yet, but Agramon is out of the pentagram. He's at Valentine's service, and he has to serve Valentine. I like that we're opening with the fact that we know that Valentine can summon demons now and has control over them, because it just sort of sets the bar right away. Part 1, here we go. City of Ashes picks up basically right where City of Bones left off. It's only been a couple of days since the last book. Alec, Izzy, and Jace are still at the Institute by themselves. After the battle with Valentine, the parents ended up getting looped in. They're on their way back. They haven't even made it back yet. Everyone in the main crew is struggling with the events of book 1. I should catch you up on the romantic relationships. I know that's why we're all here. Simon was in love with Clary. Clary has feelings for Jace. Jace also has feelings for Clary, but then they found out that they were brother and sister and backed off. Alec is secretly gay and in love with Jace. He cannot come out because of the clave. Izzy is a free spirit. We find out that she has a boo thing later on in this book. Clary is living in Luke's guest room now. Remember that her entire home is destroyed. Clary, Jace, and Simon, I think, are struggling the most. Alec and Izzy, remember, they do not know about Hodge's betrayal. So in terms of the last couple events being a lot, at the end of the day, they're shadow hunters. They're kind of like, wild 2 weeks. Jace, on the other hand, is really struggling. We found out that he's been having nightmares, nausea, not eating, just wanting to hunt and fill the pain with violence. So he's dragging Alec and Izzy around to just keep hunting demons. That's what he's trying to do. Could have gone for a mental health walk, chooses fighting demons instead. That would be the bone. Hi. Oh, that's not gonna work for me. Carpet's a great place for that, don't you think? He's struggling with the fact that Valentine is his father, questioning his entire life, basically. His entire existence wasn't real. What he was told, he was living a lie. He's emotionally destroyed over the Clary sister reveal. They did have a little makeout session. That's why their red string is there. Alec is off crutches now. Clary's having a tough time because the entire world is new to her. Also, the Jace brother reveal, Valentine being her father. Just processing everything has been a lot for her. Simon is struggling. Remember that he was taken by vampires. Everyone is basically just processing what happened last book, and they all have trauma. The first thing we see with Jace, Alec, and Izzy is Mayrus getting home, and she is very upset with them. Robert apparently is still back in Alicante handling business. I'm going to make some comments about that later. Max shows up here. Remember that Max is Alec and Izzy's little brother. We find out that Max obviously loves his family, had the best time in Alicante. He's like going on and on about it. And that he worships the ground that Jace walks on. Just like really looks up to him. Mayrus is mad at all 3 of the goons for just running around last book. They could have been killed. They broke clave laws. But she singles out Jace specifically and says, we need to talk one-on-one. Alec and Izzy are like, hey, we all did the same thing. We should all be punished the same. And she says, nope, Jace is the biggest stinker around. He's going to have to talk to me. We get context on how close Mayrus and Jace actually have been. They treated him like he was part of the family, which we knew, and that she's been a mother figure to him. He goes to talk to her one-on-one, and basically the entire conversation is the fact that she doesn't believe that Jace didn't know that he was Valentine's son, allegedly. Remember that Mayrus was part of the circle. She knew Valentine intimately, and she does not trust Valentine. She's been burned by Valentine before. She's worried that Jace is secretly working with Valentine and that he's a plant in the Institute. This whole thing is crushing to Jace. He's already not in a good place, and then her doubting him like this and accusing him of this, he just feels like he's losing family after family after family. Jace brings up a song that Mayrus would sing to Alec and Izzy when they were kids and scared of the dark, and how she never sang it to Jace. And Mayrus says that Jace was never afraid of the dark, so that's why she didn't sing it to him. She's calling him Jonathan this whole conversation because he would be Jonathan Christopher Morgenstern. He says, my name's not Jonathan, it's Jace. And I'm just pointing that out now because he says that line about 30,000 times in this book. He's really big on names, okay? His name is Jace, not Jonathan. Get it right. So on top of the fact that she doubts Jace right now and she thinks that Jace is working with Valentine, she now has this additional betrayal on top of it, because remember that Michael Wayland was super close with the Lightwoods. Valentine probably killed Michael Wayland and their actual godson, because their godson was supposed to be Jonathan Wayland and not Jonathan Christopher Morgenstern, so not Jace. Jace is denying the allegations. He says he had no idea that he was Valentine's son. He was told that his father was Michael Wayland. His dad went by Michael Wayland. They lived in the Wayland Manor house. She asks why he wouldn't have put it together, seeing a picture of Valentine and then a picture of Michael Wayland. We find out that all of the pictures of the circle members were destroyed. They think Valentine burned all the photos so nobody would know who was in the circle. Jace basically begs Mayrus to believe him, and she says that it's too impossible to believe. It does seem too impossible to believe, doesn't it? And that she can't do it. He tries to bring up that he didn't leave with Valentine. When Valentine took the cup and was going to portal back to Idris, Jace stayed. Jace thinks it's hypocritical because Mayrus actually was working for Valentine for a very long time in her life. She says the difference is that she rejected Valentine, and she asks Jace to reject Valentine and say that he hates him. I think rejecting Valentine, Jace would be able to do no problem. He can't say that he hates him. It's his dad, allegedly. Mayrus says that in Valentine's world, there were only 2 groups. It was either people in the circle who were weapons to him, or people not in the circle who were enemies. She says that Valentine tried to make everyone, including his wife, a weapon for the circle, and that she can't believe that he wouldn't have turned his own son into a weapon. And I wrote, That does sound like something Valentine would do, doesn't it? Mayer says that Jace is Valentine's arrow shot directly into the heart of the glaive, whether Jace knows it or not. So he could have been trained to do things even if he's not aware. It's just too dangerous for him to be there. We catch up with Clary and Simon now. They're hanging out at Simon's house. They're watching anime. Jocelyn is still in the hospital, and Luke is really tied up with that. Luke is basically at the hospital every day, sun up to sundown, and then sleeping at the house. Clary sees Simon struggling and feels like it's her fault that he's struggling because she dragged him into this world. Clary hasn't heard from Jace. The first book ended with Clary and Jace going to the hospital to speak to Jocelyn when she was in the coma because they didn't know if Jace's voice would help wake her up. She thought that her son had died. So having Jace be there, they were hoping would be some sort of trigger for her. Apparently, when Clary and Jace visited Jocelyn in the hospital, he kind of stood there giving nothing, and then they yelled at each other and he left. Luke was there and he had said that it was the first time that they actually acted like brother and sister. So Clary hasn't heard from him. She wanted to reach out, but she's waiting for him to reach out. Simon makes a joke about watching porn with Clary. They're channel surfing. Oh my God, does anybody still say that? Channel surfing? Am I a billion years old? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Dracula comes on TV and Simon seems affected by this. He's sweating and he asks if she remembers that night in the vampire lair. Clary's like, yeah, that was crazy. Simon asks Clary if he seems different to her. Clary notices that he seems pale, he's lost weight, he's more confident, also more aware of his own mortality. And I think I know what this means, but I put in my notes, what does this mean? Like aware of the weight of everything now? He grasps the severity of life, which is stupid because none of this means anything, by the way. We're on a floating rock in space hanging out. We're just chilling on this mortal plane. This is pointless, nothing has meaning. Clary says that he's still Simon, and he shoots his shot while sweating in a kitchen, and he kisses her. The book notes that she doesn't push him away, but she's also not really like actively a part of the kiss. He's kind of doing the work for both of them. And then they're interrupted by a phone call. Izzy is calling Clary to ask if she has seen Jace because Jace is missing. Clary and Simon end up wandering around looking for Jace. Simon's clearly not happy about it. We get a mention of Eric, Matt, and Kirk. Remember them from the first book? They're still around here somewhere. Luke calls Clary to tell her that he found Jace, and I'll tell you what he's been up to in a second, because I have thoughts. Luke asks Clary to come talk to Jace because Luke can't get through to him. Simon is peeved by all of this. He's supposed to be the de facto main man in Clary's life, now that Jace was disqualified from being a love interest due to them being related. And I wrote, as if that would stop Jace, and I can't believe I was right about that. But Clary is really worried about Jace. She says, we have to go. She asks Simon to come with her. Simon was like, I was kind of thinking you and I could go to dinner. Clary says, it's my brother, I gotta go. So Simon and Clary go to the Hunter's Moon, which is a werewolf bar, to talk to Jace. Now, why was Jace there? I'll tell you. We're gonna put the red string up for Clary and Simon before we hop over to the Hunter's Moon. Snaps for Simon for shooting his shot. At the Hunter's Moon, we meet some new characters. We meet Maya Roberts. She's up here. Yes, her photo size does match the rest of the primary characters. She ends up being a big player. I'm gonna take you through her character intro. She is curvy. The book seems obsessed with this fact. She is a werewolf. She's jaded. I wouldn't say she's a warm, fuzzy type. She's gonna be one of the secondary main characters, so get on board with her, I guess. Her backstory, she grew up biracial in a conservative suburb, kind of hated everything about her life there. Her older brother, actually tormented her. Not, comes into your room to knock something over and then leaves. Tormented her as in, broke her arm, switched her shampoo out for bleach. I would have sued. Her parents didn't believe her, and Maya thinks that it's because Daniel, who was her older brother, was beautiful and charming, so now she hates beautiful men. We find out later in the book that she hates Jace and likes Simon, so do the math on that. She has trauma around Daniel. When she sees Jace in a second, who's about to come in, she has to remind herself in her head that it's not Daniel. Daniel was killed in a hit and run, and she was grateful for it, and then ended up thinking that God was going to punish her for being relieved. And I wrote, baby, we're on a floating rock in space. Live your truth. Later on in high school, she met Jordan Kyle, who was a boyfriend who became abusive, so she broke up with him, except, oopsie, Jordan's a werewolf who attacks her. Not only does he turn her, but the bite was vicious, and she had 24 stitches on her throat, still a giant scar on her throat. He bit her and had said, you'll always be mine. I spent an hour putting the scar on this photo, and I don't even think you can see it. Maya had been walking home from a party alone. Hey, you there. Always call an Uber, okay? Don't walk home from parties alone. I am not victim blaming. Maya didn't deserve to be turned into a werewolf, and neither do you. So call an Uber. Jordan and his family ended up moving, so she lost contact with him. She moved to Manhattan and joined Luke's werewolf pack. Remember that he took over the New York pack in the first book so that he would be able to help fight Valentine. She's 17 now. I think she looks a lot younger than that in the photo. I did my best, you know the drill. Maya likes Luke. She thinks that he's trustworthy and not too handsome, so she didn't hate him on sight, and I wrote, get wrecked, Luke. Her friend is Bat. This is Bat Velasquez. He is also a werewolf, also part of Luke's pack. He's a side character for now. He and Maya used to date. He left her for someone else, but apparently they're chill now. He is 6'6", and he has a scar on his face from the silver powder burning him. That's what that is. That's a scar. I worked really hard on that. Note here that there are overnighters who are werewolves that sleep at the old police station, the werewolf lair. Bat has his own apartment and a job, kind of lives in the real world, and that he was a great boyfriend to Maya. Until he dumped you for someone else. He was a really, really great partner. Everything about it was great, up until he left me for someone else. Okay, I'm not trying to yuck somebody else's yum. Whatever. They're friends. Note here that Maya's brother Daniel and her ex-boyfriend Jordan Kyle are not on the wall because they're not physically in this book. We're just adding the people that show up here, okay? And even that was like, did I need to do that much? Present tense now. Remember that Jace had gone to the Hunter's Moon, so we get the beginning of that now. He walks in. He's fresh off of the incinerating conversation with Mayrus. Bat and Maya are there. Remember the Shadowhunter dynamics with Downworlders? It's very tense. The Downworlders basically think that Shadowhunters are Nepo babies. They were just born into a position of power and that they think that they're better than Downworlders. It says that the only thing the werewolves could hate more than Shadowhunters is vampires. The werewolves and vampires have a big rivalry. I'm assuming it started between Jacob and Edward fighting over Bella. So timeline, the Accords were just signed a week ago. That's what was happening in the first book, which is why all the Shadowhunters were gone. It's a chance to capitalize on goodwill between the groups. So it's important that the Shadowhunters really step up and show the Downworlders that they're there to help. We're all in this together. So Jace picks a fight with everyone in the bar and basically beats up everyone there. That's my MMC and he did nothing wrong. He came here to pick a fight. Like, that's really all that he wanted. So he had started by trying to antagonize Bat, who does take the bait and start swinging. But then Freaky Pete, his name is Freaky Pete. He's the bartender at the Hunter's Moon. He's a side character, doesn't really matter. Throughout this entire altercation, he's trying to keep the werewolves level-headed. He knows that you don't want to be on the bad side of Shadowhunters. Jace won't let up, though. Bat ends up taking a walk around the block to calm down, and he finds a dead werewolf kid in the alley. It was a 15-year-old kid named Joseph. His throat was cut, and they see a shadow kneeling over the body, but the shadow ran away. The werewolves assumed that this was a vampire, especially because of the throat wound and somebody kneeling over. They assumed that they were trying to suck the blood. Bat asks Jace what he's going to do about it. Jace is a shadow hunter. He's there to protect Downworlders, and it's difficult to defend what Jace does next. He says that he doesn't care about the dead kid. He says that they all look the same to him as well. Talking about werewolves? The book notes that he uses a derogatory term for werewolves. What would that term be? I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. Is there a way you can write it? Can somebody explain this to me? So he uses this derogatory term after saying that the clave's not going to clean up your messes just because some kid decided to paint himself all over the alley. Oh my God. This is when the big fight breaks out, which is correct. It's the whole bar versus Jace, but Jace is cleaning up. He's taking everyone on easily. He's having the time of his life. Later on, people were like, it was crazy how many werewolves he took down. He's not actually killing any of them. He's just fighting. Just a reminder of the fact that Jace is actually really good at what he does. Anyway, Luke shows up, shuts everything down. Bat had pulled a knife on Jace, so Jace is really injured. Everyone's shocked that Luke and Jace know each other. It's kind of a flex for Jace, I think. Luke smooths things over as best as he can, says that Jace is 17, he doesn't speak for the clave, and that there's nothing he could have done anyway because the kid was already dead. He reminds the werewolves that Shadowhunters are the allies, and that Shadowhunters are welcome at the Hunter's Moon. Political as always. Luke had found out about the Jace-Mayrus fight, so he knows that Jace was just trying to pick a fight to be an idiot. Clary and Simon meet up with Luke at the Hunter's Moon, who gives him the rundown. Clary thinks to herself that the bar smells like wet dog, but she doesn't say that out loud, and I wrote, we're learning. Good job. Clary feels things, seeing Jace in person. It's the first time they've seen each other since the hospital fight. Jace is beat up. He asks that Simon wait outside. Simon does. Jace tells Clary and Luke that Mayrus threw him out. He explains that Mayrus thinks that Jace was working with Valentine the whole time. Luke is angry for Jace. He says, yeah, that's not right. Mayrus just needs time to process this, though, and you guys are going to work it out. Luke says that Mayrus cared for Jace, and she's worried that Jace is going to hurt her like Valentine hurt her, and Luke tells Jace that he has to reassure her. I wrote, not his job. Not his job. The child doesn't have to parent the parent. The parent has to parent, and the child has to child. Okay? Do you understand? Jace doesn't want to talk it out with Mayrus. He's really hurt about what happened. Clary tells Jace that adults mess up too, and that he needs to be a man. Bo Burnham, get in here. We get this quote. I don't want to be a man, Jace said. I want to be an angst-ridden teenager who can't confront his own inner demons and takes it out verbally on other people instead. And I wrote, it's possible I formed my entire personality after this character and mistakes were made. Clary tells Jace to think about the Lightwoods and to fight for his family. They're trying to convince him to go back to the Institute, talk to Mayrus, straighten things out. We see Jace several times in this book happy when he sees concern for him from others. He's happy that Izzy had called Clary and that she was freaking out. He's happy that Clary's there now because this boy just needs to feel unconditional love, and don't we all? Jace is 17. He's not a legal adult yet. If the Lightwoods refused to raise him, he would be sent to an orphanage in Idris, or Idris would have to find him another guardian. He wants to go be a part of the mundane world, but he has no life skills. He can't get a job. Jace tells him that Mayrus had asked him to say that he hated Valentine and that he couldn't do it, and we see that he's scared of Luke's response here. He's worried that Luke would judge him over this, but Luke says that that's completely fair and that he loved Valentine too. Jace is relieved by this, and Clary realizes that Jace came here to get to Luke because Luke would understand. We find out that exactly what Mayrus had said was that Jace should find somewhere else to stay for a little while, so not a full eviction. Luke offers for Jace to stay with him, which is where Clary is living, and it's a good option, but Clary and Jace are both staring at each other like, that's not a good idea. Luke says Jace can stay with him, but they're gonna have to talk to Mayrus first, and Jace wants Clary and Luke to go with him to talk to Maris, so they all go. I wrote, he's getting better at asking for help. Started a bar fight and was a dick, but then allows emotional support. This is progress. Luke initially does not want to go to the Institute. He's never been to the New York Institute, and it's been 17 years since he was a part of the Shadowhunter world. Also, Maris probably hates him. Remember that they were all in the Circle together. Luke and Jocelyn started working against the Circle and ultimately ended up being responsible for the fact that the Circle lost at the uprising, but he does agree to go because that's daddy. Simon was waiting outside in the hallway. We get his perspective that it makes him sick seeing Clary with Jace, knowing that she was so into him. Simon says that finding out Jace was her brother was like being marched in front of a firing squad and then being saved at the last minute. I told you. Maya runs into Simon outside. She was there to tell Luke that Max is there checking out the kid in the alley. Maya tells Simon that Jace is a dick, and Simon's like, yeah, I'm not here for him. His sister Clary is my best friend. Simon asks Maya about the bite in her transition. So skipping ahead a little bit, it's clear here that Simon thinks that he's a vampire. He had bit Raphael at the vampire lair, so he would have had vampire blood in him. That's what he's concerned about. A warlock took care of all of the injured werewolves, and I wrote, thanks Jace, helping the economy. He's creating jobs. And Maya says that Simon's humanity shines out of him, and that she knew he wasn't a Shadowhunter or a Downworlder because he's just so human. Maya says it's sweet that Jace, even as dickish as he is, has a soft spot for his sister and wants her there. And Simon says, yeah, I love it. It's adorable. Luke, Clary, and Simon go to mediate this Maris and Jace conversation. Clary had asked Simon to sit this one out because it's a very personal thing. Note that Jace doesn't even have his stele. I think he was being a little bit stubborn. He left everything behind. He didn't want to take anything from the Lightwoods. He was like, just doing it on my own. I'm including this part for the lore. They don't need keys to get into the Institute because Jace asks for the angel's blessing, but the door swings open before he's even finished. And Luke says that the angel knows what your mission is. You don't even have to ask. The Institute allows all Nephilim who don't mean harm against the inhabitants inside to come in. Church is still host of the Institute. He's still here guiding people around. Maris is in the library with the projection of Raphael. So Raphael is not physically in the Institute. Remember that no demons or anybody with a demonic disease or with demonic blood could come in the Institute because it's hallowed ground. So Maris is speaking to this projection of Raphael in the library. She asks if the vampires are behind the recent killings. So the killings we have so far, we have the werewolf kid named Joseph. He was killed, not drained of blood, but there was a shadow that looked like it was attempting to do that before it ran away. And then they had found Elias's body. So they find a dead warlock kid who has been drained of blood, and then a dead werewolf kid who was potentially about to be drained of blood. Raphael says it's not the vampires, and there's nothing that the Shadowhunters can do until they were to get evidence. This is the first meeting between Maris and Clary. She notes that Clary looks like Valentine. She seems concerned for Jace's injuries. So it opens with her being antagonistic towards Jace and adversarial, and I think as the reader, you're like, I don't know about this one, but then we do see genuine concern for Jace here. Maris doesn't recognize Luke. So remember, they all would have been in the Circle together. He was Valentine's parabatai. He ended up turning against the Circle, and they fought against each other in the uprising. Like actually like a battle of like life or death. They have fought against each other. She sees him walking in. She says, hey, sorry, strange man. It's not safe for any mundanes to be in here. And he says, no, I'm the person who used to be in a murder cult with you and then helped overthrow said cult. They discuss that Luke is the pack leader now. He's back in business, back in the shadow world. Luke and Raphael set up a time to talk now as leaders of the vampire clan and the werewolf clan. Maris is weirded out to see Luke too. She said that she thought Luke was dead, and Luke says, no, you hoped I was dead. The goal of this talk is that Luke asks Maris to let Jace have a trial to prove his innocence, that he wasn't working with Valentine, and Luke is going to vouch for Jace. Luke confirms the story of everything that happened at Renwick's and how Jace was helping them fight against Valentine. Maris says your word doesn't mean much, because remember that the Clave has bad ideals. Like they would care about a Downworlder's account of events. Luke says that he's still a Shadowhunter and he'll be tried by the sword, which sounds scary. So he's talking about the soul sword, one of the mortal instruments, and it compels Shadowhunters to tell the truth. Maris doesn't think the sword will work on him. I don't know if that's true or not because he was a Shadowhunter in the past. You can't change the fact that you would have angel blood in you. But Luke says he'll be tried by silver if that's what it takes. He's saying that he'll testify for Jace in this trial, even if they have to use silver. I think he's talking about like actually being tortured to make sure that they believe his story. Maris doesn't really want to do any of this. They end up going back and forth. She's being certifiably rude and demeaning, and he's pointing out her trust issues from Valentine and projecting them onto Jace. This context was fascinating to me. Maris has so many trust issues because she believed in Valentine. She really believed in the Circle and what it stood for. That's a problem because it stood for killing a whole bunch of people. She believed that he would lay down his life for the Circle and expected that of them. And she said that she nearly did lay her life down because she was so brainwashed by his charm. She said the day of the uprising, Valentine had said that it would be nothing. A few unarmed ambassadors, which would be the Downrollers that were there to sign the accords. Maris was so confident she left Alec at home. She had asked Jocelyn to watch Alec while she was away, but Jocelyn said no. And now Maris knows that it was because Luke and Jocelyn knew that all of the Downrollers were going to show up and attack the Circle members. So Jocelyn's like, no, I'm not watching your kid, and knows in her head that Maris could die in the uprising. Luke and Jocelyn knew that the Downrollers were going to come fully prepared for a full battle. They didn't warn anybody else. Luke says, we tried to warn you about Valentine a lot. You guys didn't want to listen to us. Mayra says there were 50 Circle members against 500 Downworlders, and they didn't think that it was going to be dangerous, but they ended up losing a lot of Circle members, and she almost died. Luke points out that Mayris was fine to kill people when she thought they were going to be 50 Circle members against 5 Downworlders. Well done. Mayris skips over that. She says if it's not my logic, it's not logic. She's going on about how bad the slaughter was of the Circle members, and they were looking to Valentine to lead them and help them, but then he left. They thought that he was dead, and then the clave surrounded the hall. The Circle members were ready to give their lives there, but then Mayris remembered Alec at home and surrendered herself to the clave. So she was going to die for the cause. The only reason she didn't was because she had Alec at home. Luke tells her that was the right thing to do. She yells at Luke. She calls him a werewolf. Clary tells Mayris to check herself, leave it at the door. It's Mayris' fault for believing Valentine in the first place. Mayris says she knows. She's like, I understand that now. When the Circle members were captured by the clave after the uprising, the clave used the sword on them, which meant that they would have to tell the truth, but the sword couldn't make you speak. So everyone just refused to speak. Luke asks what finally made them break and tell the truth. Mayris says that the clave had told them that Valentine had left that day and that he was burned to death in the manor fire, which means that he had gone back home and left them. So he had abandoned them at the uprising. At that point, the Circle started talking to each other and realizing that they had been played. Valentine had told all of them that they were his closest member, the one he trusted the most, and had pulled all of them aside privately and was like, I don't know about everyone else, but like, you're the one. You're my most trusted advisor. Mayris is sensitive about the fact that Valentine used their loyalty and affection to get what he wanted, just like he did when he sent Jace to live with them. She believes that Valentine's been planning this the whole time. He's back, he has the cup, she can't afford to trust Jace, and she apologizes. Mayris is like, but look at you guys, why can't he go live with his sister? That's perfect. Yeah, why can't he go live with his sister? You guys want to explain this? Her reasoning is she doesn't want Jace involved in Shadowhunter business. Luke's not involved with the clave anymore, and she knows that Jocelyn dogged Valentine in the end, so Mayris trusts that Clary and Jocelyn aren't secretly in on it with Valentine, and Clary wasn't raised by Valentine like Jace was. Clary would be sort of like separated from this. Jace going to live with Luke and Clary kind of like fixes everything. Clary's like, me, sister? Live with me, sister? She says that Izzy is Jace's sister, Alec and Max are his brothers, family is more than blood, like how she doesn't see Valentine as her father, she sees Luke as her father, and if the Lightwoods are Jace's family, he should stay with them. Clary asks if Jace can be tried by the sword, which Jace is like, why didn't I think of this? Let's do it. Let's end this. But Luke and Mayris seem wary about this. We find out that only certain people can wield the sword. It has to be a silent brother or the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is a clave person who heads up investigations and ensures compliance with the Covenant. The Inquisitor could put Jace in jail and strip him of his runes. Turns out the Inquisitor is already on her way. That's right, women in power. Women belong in the Shadowhunter justice system because after everything that happened in the first book, the Forsaken Army, portals, fake deaths, Hodge's betrayal, the Lightwoods are all under investigation now, and that's why she was trying to send Jace away before the Inquisitor got there. So Mayris was trying to get Jace out of there before the Inquisitor showed up. So again, I think in terms of loving mother actions, I'm going to give her another point. The Inquisitor is the one who investigated all of the Circle members after the uprising. She was the one who cursed Hodge to stay at the Institute and exiled the Lightwoods. She obviously does not like the Lightwoods, not a huge fan of them, but Mayris says that she hates Valentine. Like she really, really has a thing against Valentine. And I wrote, sounds like she's on the right side of that one. I think Maris's point is that if the Inquisitor thinks that Jace is connected to Valentine, he could be in big trouble. Jace points out that if he leaves, the Inquisitor will just think that the Lightwoods work to hide him and that they would be punished. And Mayris is like, obviously, but like, you gotta get out of here. Now Clary doesn't want Jace facing the sword. Says the Inquisitor sounds really awful and scary. Why? Because she did her job? If Jace were to be found guilty in this investigation of working with Valentine, he would be in hot, hot water. But if Jace leaves now, he would never be able to return. He wouldn't be a Shadowhunter anymore. He would basically have nothing. If he wants to stay in the clave, he's going to have to cooperate with the Inquisitor. And Luke tells Jace that he has what the Circle members didn't have when they were being investigated, which is the truth, because he's actually innocent. Mayris tells Jace that it's his call, and he says, yeah, I'm going to stay. I'm going to work with the Inquisitor. Back at Luke's house, Luke, Clary, and Simon are having dinner. They chat about Maya because Simon had just met her. We find out that she helps Luke out at the bookstore with Luke being at the hospital so much. He pays her in books in return for her time. They're talking about the beef with Luke and the Lightwoods. Luke says that Mayris is more herself than ever and explains that they probably don't want him dead out of hatred, but that it is messy with him alive and leading the New York pack. The Lightwoods leading the Institute on behalf of Shadowhunters and Luke leading the Werewolf pack. They would be people in positions who should have good relations to further the relations between Shadowhunters and Downworlders, but they have all of this shady history. This is just a fun part. There's a joke here about Mayris thinking that maybe Luke is a wild card, and he says, yeah, I'm a werewolf, but I'm not actually a wild card. Luke says men his age buy cars and sleep with supermodels, and he just turns into a werewolf. The bar is so low, it's in hell. Luke talks about being back at the Institute and how he could feel the power of the runes. He's been trying to forget them all this time, but you can never really forget. The runes become a part of you, part of your being. It's in your blood. Clary brings up that she wants to get some marks, some runes, and Simon is shocked. He's like, I thought you wanted to leave the Shadowhunter world behind. And Clary says, yeah, of course I do, but I want to be protected just in case. I don't buy this. I don't think she wants to leave the shadow world. Simon accuses Clary of just wanting to stay in the shadow world to be close to Jace. Explain this to me. Look at the string. Make it make sense. Are you dating or are you not? So Clary and Simon are doing whatever it is that they're doing, attempting to date as if they're not dead on arrival, but the whole time he's openly talking about her wanting Jace. What are we doing here? Like, yeah, Simon shot his shot, but at what cost? To us. Luke tells Clary that she would have to go through training before getting marks, which is her call if she wants to do it or not. But either way, she needs a stele, and he has Jocelyn's old stele. So she had given it to Luke for him to watch so that Clary wouldn't find it at the house. I'm surprised that Jocelyn would even part with it. Luke gives it to Clary. He says it's an old model, about 20 years out of date, but it's reliable. So are these actually like wands? Is there technology? They have new models of it, but it's magic. Going back to the Institute, Jace having a nightmare where Valentine is using a stele and breaking the bones in his hand. He wakes up from that dream. Alec and Jace have a catch-up now. The vibes are off here. It's weird. Alec and Izzy got caught up on Hodge's betrayal from Mayrus. Jace had never told them. And Alec's mad that Jace never told him about that. Then Jace teases Alec about where Alec's been spending all of his time. And I think he teases him about a hickey. It's not super clear. I'm pretty sure that's what's happened. Alec tells Jace that he needs to be on guard with the Inquisitor coming. He's like, don't do shady things. Don't make it look like you've been keeping secrets about Valentine. Jace asks Alec if Alec thinks that Jace was lying about knowing Valentine was his real father, and Alec firmly says no, and it doesn't matter who Jace's dad is, that Jace is still Jace, and Alec and Izzy are still Team Jace all the way. He tells Jace to think before he speaks and to remember that the Lightwoods are not his enemy. Jace walks off by himself. He's mad at this. We get this dynamic in this book where Alec wants Jace to play by the Clave rules, and I think Jace takes it as Alec not trusting him, but Alec would lay down his life for Jace, so it's kind of tragic. They would both lay down their lives for each other, though, because they're parabatai. Jace meets the Inquisitor in the library. From the jump, this woman is serving bitchy. This is the Inquisitor. She's giving orders. She tells Jace to shut up. Calls him Jonathan Morgenstern. He says he's Jace Wayland again. She says that he can't claim the Wayland name because he's a Morgenstern, so he's a liar just like his dad was, and Lucifer, who they were named after. The Inquisitor says Lucifer's fate was being cast into hell for rebelling against God, and if Jace defies the Inquisitor, then Jace will envy Lucifer's fate. What a line. So yeah, she comes out of the gate pretty hot. The Inquisitor is Imogen Herondale. Herondale, you say? If you don't know who that is, you're either very fortunate or very unfortunate, depending on what you're into. Mayrus tells the Inquisitor that Jace has agreed to trial by sword, and you can find out then if he's telling the truth or not. The Inquisitor's like, by the way, Mayrus, you're on the shit list too. She says that they're lucky that their records have been clean in terms of them running the New York Institute. There's been very little demon accidents. Everything's been okay, which is good because the Clave still doubts if Robert and Mayrus were working with Valentine, especially because it looks like they brought in Valentine's son now. Mayrus is not scared by this. She said that the Clave was there when they took in Jace, thinking that he was Michael Wayland's son, so everybody was fooled. Jace is advocating for himself. He's saying that he would never hurt the Lightwoods. He's a good shadow hunter. But Inquisitor keeps saying you're just like Valentine. You're evil and horrible. Jace can't stop being sarcastic to cover his pain. Same. This is gonna get rough. He says, oop, you caught me. Jace says that Valentine had trained him to be evil from a young age. He's being sarcastic. And that we're just lucky Valentine faked his death before he taught Jace how to R-word and pillage. And I wrote, Jace, have you considered shutting the fuck up? Does seem like Mayrus is trying to defend Jace, which Jace is surprised by. But then the Inquisitor says that she's sending Jace to the prisons of the Silent City. Remember, this is the City of Bones. They're waiting for his trial by sword, and she wants him to cool off his temper. Mayrus is horrified, and this is where we get context on the Silent City prisons. The cells were reserved for the worst of criminals. Vampires gone rogue, warlocks who broke the Covenant law, shadow hunters who spilled each other's blood. Jace was none. Jace realizes that he's screwed at this point and finally shuts up. We leave Jace in this precarious situation, and we catch back up with Luke, Clary, and Simon at Luke's house. I do not like this next part. Maya shows up now, and Luke introduces Clary to Maya. And Maya hates Jace, so I think this could have gone not as bad if she didn't open with this, but Clary still fails the supporting women test. She's super rude to Maya. Is this another like not supporting women thing or just general distrust in the public? I'll take the second one, but I cannot abide by the first. Luke says he wanted to introduce them because Maya's working at the shop, so she'll be in and out. She has a key. Maya says that she's going to keep an eye out for everything, and Clary is really bitchy about this. Simon tries to bring the vibes back up. He says he's happy to know that someone will be around to keep an eye on his girlfriend. What? We never talked about this. We haven't even gotten there yet. I'm so excited already. There are so many times in this book where I had to flip back to previous parts to be like, did I miss something here? Did they discuss this? Luke clocks it. Clary clocks it, but doesn't say anything. Clary apologizes for snapping at Maya. Luke says that he thought that it would be good for Clary to have a friend in Maya, but Clary says she has Simon. Claire Bear. If you tell me that all of your friends are guys just because they're easier to get along with and they're low drama, I'm going to throw this book at my wall. Luke says, you know what? That's on me. I didn't realize you weren't in the mood to meet someone. Why? Because it was an attractive girl about her age? Stop. Luke and Clary do have a little girl chat, little tete-a-tete about the girlfriend comment. He's like, are you his girlfriend? She says, I guess. But then we see all the things that she's struggling with right now. She says, I'm somebody's girlfriend, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter. All of this is new, and she still doesn't know what she is. And I wrote, okay, you get a pass on the stinker antics you participated in tonight. Simon's going to stay at Luke's because it's so late. Clary tells Simon he doesn't have to sleep on the couch. Simon's like, oh, don't worry about it. I love the couch. I'm fine to sleep on the couch. She's like, no, you don't have to sleep on the couch. Simon says, well, where else would I sleep, you silly goose? Clary notes in her head that Jace would have played it cool, but Simon didn't even try. And then it says that he kisses her clumsily on the mouth and she pulls him into her room. I did not enjoy reading this. There's no judgment. I'm sex positive. Do whatever you want with whoever you want, whenever you want to, as long as it's consensual. But this feels fast, doesn't it? I mean, I guess they've known each other for 16 years, but it seems fast in terms of he kissed her once in a kitchen and now it's like, get in here, big boy. I guess I should give my thoughts on Clary and Simon. It is not that I do not like Clary and Simon together. I love their friendship. It's a very sweet friendship. The fact that he's here now when it's so clear that she would rather be with Jace feels like there's nothing to root for. We know the entire time in her thoughts that she would rather be with Jace. He seems to know that too, so the whole thing just sort of seems sad. Overall, going through the series, I'm glad that they still did this and that they had their time to be together. They tried doing the next level and now they know that they're better off as friends. Yeah, I'm not really rooting for it because there's nothing to root for. It's so clear this is not going to be anything. All right, we're zooming out again. Jace is in Spooky Boy prison. It is pitch black down there. He's cuffed to the wall, and then something not chill happens. He has crazy anxiety, like an out-of-body experience. He doesn't know why, but he just feels dread and fear and panic, and there are all of these screams and horrible noises. There's a line in the book that he thinks this panic was unworthy of him. I would love to have the confidence of a straight white male. Something is clearly going on in the prison. Brother Jeremiah shows up outside of his cell. He's holding a torch so Jace can see him, and it's good to see him. Brother Jeremiah, familiar face. He's dead, but I know. Turns out the screams were the silent brothers who hadn't made a noise in half a century. Remember, their mouths are basically sewn shut. They don't speak out loud. They speak through their mind into your mind. Brother Jeremiah died mid-scream. So he's outside of the cell. The torch is there. You can see it. Where everything had kind of been closed, it's now like ripped open. He's dead. Jace breaks one of the bones in his wrist to get more mobility in the cuff to be able to reach the torch, and he gets it. Oh my God. We found out that Agramon is here. The fear demon, that's the dread and fear that Jace felt. Jace doesn't know what Agramon is, but we as the reader do. Agramon comes in, remember he moves like a cloud. Agramon lunges at Jace, the torch goes out that he had just got, and then the next sentence is Clary macking on Simon. Justice for Jace. There's stuff in here that's important to the plot, so we're gonna have to talk about the makeout session. Clary says that kissing Simon is pleasant, chill, she could do it forever and not be bothered. And isn't that what we're all shooting for? Simon says that he loves her, and she responds by teasing him about whether or not he wants to have sex. Not the response I would be going for if I just told someone that I loved them. Clary goes to change into her pajamas and says that she can't keep making out seriously with her socks on. That part I'll allow. Clary sees herself in the mirror and she's thinking, is this what it's supposed to feel like? It's her first extended makeout session and it was fine, but it says that kissing Jace had been like, and I quote, opening a vein of something unknown inside her body, something hotter, sweeter, and bitterer than blood. Excellent writing. Thank you, Cassie Clare. Then she tells herself to stop thinking about Jace and thinks to herself that her body remembers making out with Jace. I'm sorry, we have to talk about it. Books are steamier than I thought that they were. I mean, this is still going to be a Fade to Black series. Is steamier than I remembered it being. She comes out of the bathroom and Simon fell asleep on the bed. What does he not understand about the fact that you snooze, you lose with this woman? He needs to not fall asleep around Clary. Book 1, he was hanging out with Clary, he fell asleep. She went to go have a midnight picnic with Jace and ended up making out with him. Stop sleeping. Sleep is not meant for you if you want to be with Clary. Clary gets a text from Izzy that the Inquisitor threw Jace in jail, so she leaves. Yeah. Simon fell asleep. She's gonna run after Jace now. Not her fault. You do have to go in that situation. Back at the literal prison where Jace is trying to figure out how to fight a panic attack with his fists like an American. Sorry. That's obviously a joke. Mental health is serious. Take care of yourselves. Jace had passed out. He wakes up and Daddy Dearest is there. Jace is in the cell. Valentine's outside with the witchlight. Remember last time that they saw each other, Valentine was trying to kill Luke, almost killed Clary, and destroyed the portal and ran away with the cup. Oh, and also implied that Jace was a little bitch boy because Jace couldn't bring himself to kill his own father. So Jace asks if Valentine's there to kill him, and Valentine's like, me? Kill you? I would never. Valentine says he would never hurt Clary or Jace. Don't worry, he says, your sister. We gotta keep it creepy. Valentine understands that. He's telling Jace that this is why Jace shouldn't trust the Lightwoods or the Clave, because Valentine never would have done this to Jace, locking him up. What is Valentine doing there? Well, Valentine Valentine killed all of the Silent Brothers and stole the Soul Sword. Remember, he has the Mortal Cup already. He has stolen the Mortal Sword. If he were to get the Mortal Mirror, he would have all 3 Mortal Instruments. Reminder that as far as we know, nobody knows where the Mortal Mirror is. It's been lost to time. The Soul Sword is also called the Myartok. This is the sword that the angel drove Adam and Eve out of the garden with. Valentine is obviously after the sword for his own purposes. Him stealing it is gonna make Jace look like he's working with Valentine, because there goes the sword for Jace's trial. And maybe I've read too many Dark Enemies to Lovers, but I was genuinely impressed by Valentine here. He killed all of the Silent Brothers. It's not a good thing to do, but like, I mean, scale-wise, ambitious-wise, success rate-wise, he did good. Valentine wants a chance to explain everything to Jace to give him the full truth. He says that he hasn't really had a chance yet, and then someone's coming, so Valentine has to leave, but he says that they're not done. Clary goes to the Institute to meet up with Alec and Izzy to discuss Jace being in prison. Another thing to add to the lore, she got into the Institute by calling on the angel, and it worked. I really love seeing her come into her own in the Shadow World. Clary's panicking about Jace being in prison. Alec and Izzy are kind of resigned, says that there's nothing they can do, it's only for the night, and they checked that there wasn't anybody else down there with him, so there aren't any other dangerous criminals. We just gotta wait it out. Alec and Izzy want Clary to talk sense into Jace to get him to start cooperating with the Inquisitor and stop being so antagonistic. They know Clary is the only one that can get through to him. Let me do a silly little chuckle. Alec is still jealous of Clary and Jace's connection. Clary meets Max. They connect over comic books. The Institute gets a distress call, but Robert and Maris, so I guess Robert is back. He still has not made a physical appearance in this book. Robert and Maris were called out to a murder of a fairy child drained of blood. Got a werewolf child, not drained of blood, warlock child drained of blood, and a fairy child drained of blood. So that's starting to look real suspicious. So Robert and Maris are handling that, but the Institute is getting a distress call, which our gang answers because they're at the Institute. The distress call was from Silent Brothers saying that they've been attacked, which has never happened before. Alec, Izzy, and Clary are the only ones there, so they're gonna go check it out. Alec still doesn't want her here, not in a mean way. Remember that everyone kind of made nice at the end of the first book. Clary and Izzy decided to be friends, and then Clary and Alec decided to be friends. So he's not trying to be mean, but he's like, you're zero help to us. You have no training, and you're a liability. But she's the only one of them that's actually been to the Silent City because she went for book 1, so she knows how to get inside. And Izzy points out that she needs to start learning how to do this stuff anyway, so she's gonna come along. Izzy gives Clary 2 marks, 2 runes, and they have to lock Max in Izzy's room so he won't try to come with. It's cute. Clary, Izzy, and Alec get to the Silent City. The statue that Brother Jeremiah had used a rune on that then like opened up to the stairs for them to go down. Clary doesn't know what the rune is to draw on it, so Alec spills his blood in the cup that the statue is holding, and it opens the door. Down here inside the Silent City, it is a bad scene. There's blood everywhere. The Silent Brothers are decorating the walls now. They are the decor. That feels graphic. Everything that is inside of a body is now outside. It's bad. It's just death and destruction everywhere. Izzy says that she thought the Silent Brothers were indestructible. Turns out not as much as you'd think. Huh? Rumors of my indestructibility have been greatly exaggerated. They see a Silent Brother impaled on the spike. Alex says that he's seen worse and that Jace is his priority. He does really well here. He stays collected, composed, keeps them on goal. He's gunning for most improved, I can tell. Clary runs down to the cells. It says that she can sense that he's near. Is this sibling stuff or lover stuff? She draws a rune to open the door to the cell, but it's not a normal rune. It ends up blowing the door off the hinges, and it unlocks everything in the cell, including Jace's cuffs. Jace is in and out of consciousness. The fear demon killed everyone, including the Silent Brothers, with the fear, so for Jace to even be alive right now is huge, and he's not doing well. He sees them and he thinks that he might be dead and that he's hallucinating. He hit his head when he had passed out. Clary's holding him. She's freaking out, and he says, worth it, and holds her hand. Don't be weird. It's fine. Clary jerks her hand back when Izzy and Alec come in, but then is like, I don't have to do that. I wasn't actually doing anything wrong. I can hold hands for my brother. I'm allowed to care about him if he's injured. She does that a lot in this book. She's like, okay, how would a normal non-pervert act in this situation? And then she tries to emulate that. Clary and Alec are both fussing over Jace. They both go to heal his wrist. They both go to help him stand. Clary ends up backing off and letting Alec take care of Jace. Jace can't stand up by himself. They get back up to the ground level in the garden out front, and there are 20 to 30 shadow hunters there, all in battle gear, ready to see what the attack was. Maris is at the front with the Inquisitor. It's Clary's first time meeting the ray of sunshine that is the Inquisitor. This group of shadow hunters all found out about the attack on the Silent City. They all went there to check it out, and then Maris sees her delinquent kid standing out front. She's like, of course you guys are here. Also, again, where is Robert? Was he supposed to be here? He makes so few physical appearances. We get an introduction to Malik. Malik is in this group of shadow hunters in New York. Here he is. He kind of pops up here and there. Doesn't really matter. Clary notes that the group, which is the largest adult group of shadow hunters she's ever seen, varied in age, race, overall appearance, and that they also emanated a sense of power. So I think we're supposed to be getting the impression that this is diverse. There is a silver hair woman that is staring at Clary intensely. This silver hair woman also will pop in and out. We don't know her name. And there's a weird vibe, and she's staring stares at Clary a lot. Now we're going to let that simmer, and we're going to pick that up all the way at the end. Our goons explain that they got the distress call at the Institute. They fill the adults in on everything. The Silent brothers are all dead, and they don't know what did it. Again, we know that it's Agramon. Jace wouldn't even know that it's Agramon. He doesn't know what Valentine had with him. The Shadowhunters go down to clear the Silent City and see what's up, see if there's anybody still alive. Ooh, I hope you're wearing galoshes. Maris, Inquisitor, and the kids stay out front in the garden to debrief. The Inquisitor and Maris are trying to figure out who would kill the Silent brothers, and the Inquisitor immediately knows that it was Valentine. Jace tells them what happened. He tells them that Valentine took the mortal sword and killed the Silent brothers. The Inquisitor says that he probably had demon help. She seems really smart. She's getting all of this right. Inquisitor points out that Valentine has used demons before, and with the protection of the cup, he could summon very dangerous creatures. Why would the cup be protection? We know that he had power from having the mortal cup. Is it just because it's like a Shadowhunter tool and it radiates power in and of itself? And then with the sword, it's even more so? Is it just because they're really powerful tools? I don't feel like it's explained. The Inquisitor says that Valentine could summon something more dangerous than Raveners or pathetic Forsaken, which is what attacked Clary and almost killed her at the beginning of the first book. And Clary realizes that the Inquisitor is dragging her. Clary's like, why the drive-by? Inquisitor and Maris ask Jace what Valentine's plan is. Jace says that he doesn't know, and the Inquisitor doesn't believe him. Jace quotes Dante's Inferno to the Inquisitor. Cassie Clare loves her literary references. Poetry, biblical, loves them. The Inquisitor says that Jace isn't in hell yet, referencing this Dante's Inferno quote, but that if he keeps lying to the Clave, he'll wish he was. She's pretty good. I know when she shows up, it's gonna be a good scene. Inquisitor is pointing out how suspicious it looks that the Soul Sword was taken the night before Jace was supposed to be tried by the Soul Sword to swear his innocence by it. Yeah, it's a bad look. Jace says that Valentine definitely didn't do it for him, and that Jace doubts that Valentine even knew about the trial. He's like, you're really overestimating how much Valentine gives a shit about me. Clary says that maybe Valentine took it just because it's a mortal instrument, so it has to be important and powerful, but the Inquisitor says that the cup has immediate use. The sword is used in trials, so what would he have to gain by stealing it? But again, I think he's getting power just from having them. Jace is still about to pass out. He's having trouble standing up. The Inquisitor thinks that he's playing them and just buying time out of the cells. The healing rune that they drew on him isn't working because it was a greater demon. That happens a lot. It's like, we're going to use the runes. Won't work. It was a greater demon. Alex suggests that Magnus heal Jace. Maris goes, hi, sorry, why are you hanging out with Magnus? She says that Magnus has a bad reputation. Turns out Magnus is already there in the garden. It looks like Alec has been texting him. We'll check back on that later. Magnus walks right on up to the group. He strikes a deal with the Inquisitor and Maris. Magnus is going to keep Jace at his apartment, make sure that he doesn't leave, and heal him. And then when he's healed enough, they'll hold a trial without the sword. So just an interrogation, I guess. Magnus has a contract for them to sign that he'll watch over Jace, make sure Jace doesn't disappear into the night. Magnus has no interest in crossing the Clave, so this is beneficial to both parties. The Clave is going to pay Magnus for his service. Inquisitor still thinks that the kids were trying to break Jace out of the Silent City and help him escape, but really they were just getting him out of the bloodshed. They know that he has to work with the Inquisitor. They're begging him to work with the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor does a drive-by of Izzy now and asks Izzy if she thinks she can fool the Inquisitor as easy as she fools her parents. I think this is a reference to Izzy running around with Downworlders behind her parents' back because we know that she parties with them. The Inquisitor doesn't want Alec to feel left out. She also kind of does a drive-by of him. She refers to Magnus as Alex Warlock in front of the group, and Alex says, he's not my Warlock. What are you talking about? This is the first of many hints that there is something going on between Alec and Magnus with how much they're hanging out. Remember, Jace was teasing Alec at the beginning of the book, and he has a hickey. He has not come out to his family yet. Izzy knows. I'm sure Jace knows that Alec is gay, but Alec hasn't told Jace that, and Alec certainly hasn't told Jace that Alec loves Jace. But basically, everybody knows that Alec and Magnus are up to something, except for the parents. The point of this, I think, is that the Inquisitor is just here to blow up everybody's spot. Part 2. We get a Clary dream sequence here. She's sleeping at her room in Luke's house. She's a kid at Coney Island. She sees Jocelyn on the pier in a creepy white dress. Again, always creepy white dress. Jocelyn says, have you come to help me? There's so much to do in so little time. This is very on brand for Jocelyn. Truly is so much to do, very little time. Jocelyn says she's not gone. She's just sleeping. She's in a coma right now in real life. Back in the dream, Jocelyn draws a mark on Clary that she's never seen before, but it immediately soothes her. Jocelyn says that it will protect Clary, and then the sea comes up like a wave and is about to wipe out everything, and then she wakes up. Clary has the rune on her arm in real life when she wakes up, and she doesn't seem surprised by this. What I'm about to say is fairly obvious, but I like the main character not knowing the rules of the world, so we discover everything with her, which is a pretty common trope, but also the idea she's gonna show up and be like, I got my first dream rune, and they're like, what are you talking about? That's not a thing. She's like, yeah, my dream rune. I got my first one. I did my first desk pop. Clary meets up with Simon, fills him in. Luke had freaked out that Clary was at the site of the massacre. I love protective Luke in this book. Clary and Simon are going to go to Magnus's place to check in on Jace. Simon is digging for information here. He's like, did you ask to see Jace? Did Jace ask to see you? Clary says, he didn't have to ask me. He's my brother. We're going to go. Clary and Simon meet Alec outside of Magnus's apartment, and Alex seems to have his own key to Magnus's apartment. Picking up the signs. The party at Magnus's where Rat Simon was born was a week ago. Rat Simon. I miss Rat Simon. That was about a week ago. Magnus welcomes Alec with "my darling." Clary just gets Clary, and he calls Simon Rat Boy. Magnus says that Jace keeps compulsively cleaning. He and Magnus are kind of driving each other crazy. The vibes here are that Magnus and Alec have this sort of teasing relationship. Jace is full sulking. Simon isn't happy to be there and threatened by Jace still, so everyone is kind of snipping at each other. Clary sets them straight, says we need to talk. We need to figure out next steps. Magnus conjures up a round table for their round table discussion. Sorry, red table. And gets them all coffees, and we get the explanation that he doesn't create things out of nothing. Everything comes from somewhere. He made the table appear from a store, and the coffee is from a stand in the city. Clary's gonna drop cash in the tip jar the next time that she passes it. That's good karma. Way to go. They get caught up in what's going on. Jace is explaining the demon with Valentine was unlike anything he's ever seen before. They're trying to figure out why Valentine would take the soul sword. Alec keeps comforting Jace during this, like touching him, leaning on him, and Magnus clears his throat, and then Alec stops. And Simon is smiling. So again, it sort of seems like everyone's up to this, but until it's confirmed, I can't put the red string up. I'm sorry, I'm bound to the rules. The law is hard, but it is the law. They're also trying to figure out the Downworlder murders. What's going on with all of the dead kids? Raphael is saying it isn't the vampires, and Jace believes him. Magnus thinks that the murders were Valentine and that he needed their blood for something because he's killed a fairy, a warlock, and a werewolf. They've all been kids, and he's draining blood. We get a real answer here about this. They end up putting some of the pieces together. Well, Magnus does. Magnus explains that Valentine is trying to do the ritual of infernal conversion. The soul sword is so powerful because its power was drawn from the angel himself, as opposed to all of the weapons the shadow hunters now have that simply draw power from calling on the angel to bless them. The sword had the angel's direct power. Every magical object has an alliance. The soul sword alliance would be to the angel, but Valentine probably wants to make it an object of demonic power instead of angelic power, which would still be very powerful, but now it's a demon tool instead of an angel tool. He could call demons to him and force them to do his bidding, and he could get a demon army. Forsaken armies are still book one. We're talking about demon armies now. He could call the demons to Idris. Remember that demons can still come in even though the wards keep most of them back, but they don't know how many demons there actually are. They could be infinite. If they all came through at once, it's game over. You're done. The world's over. To perform the ritual of conversion, you heat the sword up and then you cool it 4 times in the blood of each Downworlder child. It has to be a child. You need a warlock, a werewolf, a fairy, a vampire. We're gonna put this in chart form. Valentine would have 2 more to go because he wasn't actually able to drain the blood from the werewolf child. The sword would still give him power even if it's not converted yet, and he could be calling demons already. We as the reader know that he's called Agramon. He's already calling demons. The shadow hunters wouldn't know about it if he's got all the demons with him. They would only know about more demons coming through if they were running around causing ruckus, so they don't know. He could have already called a bunch of demons. They don't know. Clary burns her hand from the coffee here. Simon kisses it. I don't think Jace has been made aware of their new relationship. I wouldn't sweat it that much, but I think he assumes here in this scene, he sort of realizes that Simon has swooped in now, and apparently they're boyfriend-girlfriend. Whatever. Jace gets mad about this. He and Simon sort of start bickering over this. They're not openly discussing the fact that they're fighting because they both want to bang Clary, but it's clearly about that. Alec calls Mayrus to tell her about the ritual of infernal conversion, but it sounds like Mayrus has been pushed out of the clave dealings and the Inquisitor has kind of taken over. So now it's also a rough situation because they won't be able to influence anything that the New York Institute is doing. Izzy calls Alec. Why isn't Izzy here? Izzy calls Alec to say that the Seelie Queen has requested an audience with them. You guys, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. This is just the beginning. Magnus is like, there's no way the Seelie Queen would request your presence. He seems really surprised by this, so we know that it's a big deal. The Seelie Queen is queen of the Seelie Court. She's queen of the fairies. Jay says no. Alec and Izzy are pushing for it. Apparently Izzy knows a knight in court, and they can tell the fairies the soul sword ritual theory. If they can get the fairies to believe them, then they could have their help in fighting Valentine. They know that it's not a good idea to ignore the fairies and get on their bad side, and also if they can get the fairies on board, the clave would probably listen to them as well. Jay's explaining that the fairies see shadow hunters as almost no better than humans. Fairies can use magic, so shadow hunters are like flops to them. They refer to shadow hunters as mortals because fairies live for such a long time. Jace explains that the fairies are offspring of demons and angels. We knew this. I gave a really long explanation of all of this. I'm not doing it again. Watch the first video. They have the beauty of angels and the viciousness of demons. Same. Jay says with vampires or werewolves, they could attack you. That's bad, right? But with fairies, they could use magic on you and make you do anything that they wanted. They live for hundreds of years and they're very clever. They can't lie, but they're very sneaky with how they use the truth. Jay says, and I quote, they'll find out whatever... I already can't do this! Jay says they'll find out whatever it is you want most in the world and give it to you, with a sting in the tail of the gift that will make you regret you ever wanted it in the first place. He sighed. They're not really about helping people. More about harm disguised as help. The whole group wants to go to figure this out. Jace is saying no. Simon says, like, I give a shit. Also, you can't come with us, so you shouldn't get an opinion. Remember that Jace is stuck at Magnus's, basically on house arrest. He freaks out here. He stands up, knocks his chair back, and says that nobody's taking Clary to the Seelie Court without him, and that this conversation is over. I'm allowed to like it. Back off. Let me live. Alex says that he's gonna take care of Clary. They're going. It's done. Izzy probably already RSVP'd yes. Jace says that he will physically restrain Alec if he has to, but that this isn't happening. Magnus brings up that he has excellent weaseling skills, deals, and that he snuck it into the contract that Magnus can let Jace go for short periods of time if another Shadowhunter takes his place as collateral. The Clave does not know that this was in the contract. So Alec could stay back at Magnus's and Jace could go. Alec says it's more important for Jace to go because Jace is Valentine's son, and Jace and Clary, Valentine's famous kids, allegedly, are probably who the Queen really wants to see anyway. Alec says that Izzy will meet them in the park by Turtle Pond. She knows the secret entrance to the court and she'll be waiting. Oh boy. Okay, Jace and Izzy have a hug here. Clary's taking notes. I'm not joking, by the way. She's taking mental notes on how a sister should act towards her brother by watching Izzy. Izzy starts leading them to the secret entrance. The boys are being pissy towards each other, and Izzy says that all of them need to stick together or they'll die. Don't eat or drink anything when you're down there. If a mortal eats or drinks anything from the court, they belong to the court. You'll be stuck there forever. Izzy tells Clary she needs to use her natural feminine superiority and scolds her for the way that she lets the boys act because they're clearly fighting over her. And that's where you want to be, I think, in a love triangle with someone and their sibling. You ready for this next bit? They go through the pond, the moon moves over them, they flip upside down, and then they're in the court, but they're soaking wet. Does that make sense? What about that don't you get? Basically, the pond is the secret entrance to the Seelie court, and now they're in the Seelie court. They're underground, but they did have to go through the pond to get there, so they're all soaking wet. Jace helps Clary warm up. They're waiting in this dirt hallway for someone to come. Izzy seems to know a lot about the fairy court. She tells them that the court knows everything that happens within their lands, and then we meet Meliorn. Meliorn and Izzy have been banging, that's why they have this red string. He's the downroller that she's been sneaking around with, although I think we're led to assume that there's been a lot. I'm not shaming her, live your life, but she is currently banging Meliorn. He's this super impressive fairy warrior. They've been banging in secret because the Clave wouldn't like it. It's a Shadowhunter and a Downworlder. The Lightwoods don't know that Alec is gay and don't know that Alec is having a tryst with a Downworlder. They wouldn't want either kid being with a Downworlder, and both of their kids are with Downworlders. That's what happens. Strict parents raise sneaky kids. Meliorn's character in truth, he is a fairy who can get it, who we only see be super cold towards Izzy. He's very serious, seems very loyal to the Queen. Also, we're led to believe that his dick is bigger than 7 inches. I'll start adding this metric to all the character intros, don't worry. Izzy's trying to climb Meliorn like a tree, but he's like, baby, I'm working. Meliorn is going to take them to the Queen, says Simon can't come. Jace vouches for Simon here and says that Simon has fought in battles with them. He has to come with them. It seems to be a moment of respect between the two of them. Clary debriefs with Jace quickly about the Meliorn Izzy reveal while they're walking. Jace's take is just being worried about Izzy. He says that fairies will hook up with mortals, but they always leave, and when they do, the human is always worse off. Izzy says nothing less than 7 inches is her motto, which is interesting because my motto is like, you can do it. You can get out of bed today. You can put pants on. But Izzy's is good too. She says she's talking about heel height, but Meliorn is not interested in flirting, and Izzy's kind of getting dogged in front of her friends and family. They get to the court. It's bright sunshine. It feels like you're outside. There's music playing. There's fairies dancing. If you get sucked into the dancing, it's like a trance. So Clary and Simon are at risk. The Shadowhunters would be protected walking through this. Izzy puts a scarf on Simon's eyes and leads him through. Clary almost gets sucked in, but Jace draws a rune on her that lets her see how dangerous they actually do look. Clary asks Meliorn if that was a test if they would get sucked in, and Meliorn says that humans would get swayed, but that Nephilim should be protected from the trance. Izzy brings up that there are ways that humans can join the fairy revels, the parties. If they give you a token, a leaf, or a flower to hold onto and you keep it all night, you'll be fine. Or if you go with a fairy, you'll be fine. Meliorn has taken them to the Queen's chambers. The Queen has come from the court in the north to look into the fairy child's death. Meliorn says that if there is to be a war, she wants to be the one declaring it. The Seelie Queen. Oh boy. I love the Seelie Queen. This is her picture. She's right here. Again, she doesn't have wings, but she has the fairy wing symbol. None of the fairies have wings. She has pointy ears. She's got her crown. Her description is that she is as bright and hard to look at as a burning star. She is cunning. She's a messy bitch. She lives for the drama. She's trying to take care of herself and her people. She's not going to help anyone for free. She wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire without getting something out of the transaction. She is out for herself, and I say long live the Queen. So we got the Queen, we got all the members of the court, and then we have Clary, Jace, Simon, and Izzy standing before them. Jace is charming the pants off of everybody here. Remember, the goal is to tell the fairies about Valentine's plan for the ritual on the sword so that the fairies know not to attack vampires or anybody else. Valentine is the bad guy. Let's keep the focus there. Let's fight him. They're going to tell them that he's summoning a demon army and that we need to start getting ready. We got to band together, and then hopefully the Clave will also buy this and get involved. They don't want the Downworlders getting distracted and fighting each other. They're trying to get everybody to help them fight Valentine. The Queen says that Jace is as charming as Valentine. A lot of people compare them during this book now that the father reveal has come out. The Queen offers them food and to sit. Remember that they can't eat or drink anything. They sit down to be polite, but they say that they don't need anything to eat or drink. They're all given drinks and everybody puts it down and doesn't touch it. Clary is playing with hers. She touches a leaf that was in the drink and she's sort of staring at it. She's getting pulled in again. She's like, yummy, yummy, but it tastes good. Dumb. Jace gets her to knock it off. The Queen basically doesn't care about anything that our goons have to say. She says that vampires killed the fairy. Jace runs her through everything. The Silent Brother massacre, Valentine having the sword, killing the Downworlder children for the ritual, these making a demon army. The Queen says that dead shadow hunters don't mean anything to her. talking about the Silent Brothers, that the demons are the Shadowhunters' purview in terms of Valentine summoning demons, and then asks if Valentine needs more fairy blood for the ritual because he already killed a fairy child. And Jace says no, he needs a werewolf and a vampire next. And she's like, cool, then we're done. We're not on the chopping block anymore. We're not at risk. I don't care. She is cold. Izzy says, don't you want revenge for the fairy child though, if you know that it was Valentine? And the queen says that Valentine is an old enemy and they have older enemies. They're fine to wait and watch. They live for a very long time. The queen starts getting kind of sassy here, doesn't like the clave, doesn't want to help Shadowhunters. Jace says, yep, not a Shadowhunter issue. This affects everyone. Valentine wants to kill the Downworlders, and if he takes out Shadowhunters, he's coming for you next. And then Jace asks her to remember that it was a Shadowhunter who warned them. He's all but begging the fairies to help them fight Valentine. Everybody gets silent at this. This was the rousing plea moment, you know? During this conversation, Clary gets bit by a sprite and she licks at the bite. The queen is now saying she's surprised Jace isn't being loyal to his own father. She thought mortals had familial affection. He has familial affection. Don't worry, he does. There's a line about love making people liars. This is about whether or not Clary and Jace love Valentine. Clary is a firm no. Jace is still, it's complicated, but the queen asks if they would betray their father for the clave, and they both say yes, Jace included. The queen says, who would have thought that Valentine's little experiments would turn on him? And our group has no idea what this means. What do you mean experiments? The queen tells Jace to ask Valentine what blood runs in his veins, in Jace's veins. Is it not Valentine's blood in his veins? Jace says, I wasn't planning on talking to him, but if you want me to, I'll ask him. And then I'm going to give you the quote for this. The queen says, I think you are a liar, but what a charming one. Charming enough that I will swear you this. Ask your father that question, and I will promise you what aid is in my power should you strike against Valentine. I had to do the exact quote on that because we know that the fairies can't lie. The way that they word things is very important. That's sort of how they get you. So that was the promise that she made to them. Jace thanks her for her generosity, still being super polite, and he goes to leave. Nobody ate or drank anything. We're all good. They all stand up. And this is when things start to go poorly. Queen says, oops, Clary has to stay because she ate from our table. Clary says, I absolutely did not. The queen says, yeah, you did, because you licked your fingers clean. She had touched the leaf in the drink, so juice got on her fingers, and then when the sprite bit her, she had licked it off, so she technically tasted of the drink. The queen had the sprite nick her finger where the juice was to get her to consume it. I don't judge Clary for this at all. This was very sneaky. The queen messed with Clary, which means that Jace is now mean Jace. He's not flirting with the queen trying to charm her anymore. He asks what the queen wants. The queen says she's curious. She doesn't get to interact with a lot of young shadow hunters. Fairies and shadow hunters both have angel blood. And Jace says, yeah, we both have a bit of heaven, but unlike fairies, we don't have hell. Shadowhunters have angel blood, fairies have angel blood and demon blood. The queen says that the Shadowhunters are mortal. They age, they die. If that's not hell, what is? I love the queen. Clary says that if the queen wants to study a Shadowhunter, that she has the wrong girl. Clary's been a Shadowhunter for like 2 minutes and she knows nothing. The queen says, you're Clarissa Morgenstern. I got the right person. Clary Fairchild, Clarissa Fairchild, mother Jocelyn Fairchild. Her father is actually Valentine Morgenstern. Clarissa Morgenstern would be her full name. The queen tells Clary that because of the changes her father worked in her, she's not like other Shadowhunters. She's not like the other girls. Don't you get it? The queen says that Clary's gifts are different. Clary is shocked by the implication that she has gifts. The queen says that Clary's gift is the gift of words that cannot be spoken, and Clary's brother's gift is the angel's own gift. The wording on that is important. The queen says that Valentine made sure of it when Clary's brother was a child and before Clary was even born. I will be addressing this fully when we get the reveal of the gifts because I have very strong feelings about this, but no spoilers. Jace tells the queen that he knows that fairies can't lie, but they can be lied to, and so somebody must have lied to the queen. She's mistaken. There's nothing special about him or Clary. The queen asks if they really don't know. There's a lot happening here that will get explained later. Jace is trying to make the queen let Clary go. There's an invisible force that's keeping her in the room when she tries to leave. The queen says that Clary can be saved by a kiss. Oh my god. Before we even get to where you know that we're going, we have to talk about the discussion that the group has when they're trying to figure out who has to kiss who. Izzy offers to kiss Meliorn. They're already banging. The queen says no, it's not a kiss with anyone in court, so they know that it has to be a kiss among their group. And Simon says, fine, I'll kiss Clary. There's your kiss. In Clary's POV here, inside of her head, she says that even if she was comfortable kissing Simon, which she's not, that she definitely wouldn't feel comfortable kissing him in this setting. So that's where I go back to the fact that it's like, are you boyfriend, girlfriend? You just said on record that you're not even fully comfortable kissing him, even just by yourselves. And so you certainly don't want to do it here. What? You don't even want to kiss him. What's going on? What's going on? Queen says, no, Simon and Clary kiss isn't going to do it. So it's Clary, Simon, Izzy, Jace. Okay? Someone's got to kiss someone. Izzy says that she'll kiss Simon because it's no big deal and she's done it before. We didn't get this reveal in the first book. I'm assuming it's when Simon and Izzy were running around. Remember when Clary first brought Simon sort of into the fold? At one point in that, Simon and Izzy did kiss, which means I got to update the wall. I love this. Good for Simon. I didn't even know about that. Would have just added to his award in the first book. No spoilers about who anybody ends up with. On a theoretical level, I love Simon and Izzy together. So they kissed, they're chill now, it's fine. Important to note, Jace makes a crack about how he's not gonna kiss Simon. 2 people out of this foursome have to kiss. Jace says he's not kissing Simon, and Simon says that he defo would kiss Jace if the alternative was being stuck down there forever, which I think means that Simon is healthier than Jace mentally. So who's gonna kiss who in this group? The queen says that the kiss will free the girl is the kiss that she most desires. Only that and nothing more. Everyone is upset about this because she already said that it's not Clary and Simon, and it's the kiss that Clary most desires, so we know that Clary has to be one person in that. Okay. We need to remember that the sibling relationship between Clary and Jace is alleged. We were given this information by a lying liar who lies, so just remember that. And then if an assumed siblings to lovers trope freaks you out, skip ahead. I don't know. How long do you think it's going to take me to cover this? The rest of my life? Skip ahead a little bit. I'll give you a second. All right, my little freaks, let's get into it. The queen already said that Simon wasn't the answer, which means that either this book is about to get way better and Clary and Izzy have a secret, or Clary and Jace are gonna kiss. This is obviously a giant bomb because now Clary has been outed in front of everyone and her current boyfriend slash non-boyfriend. I'm so sick of that relationship. She's been outed by everyone that Jace is the one that she desires the most. Like, get fucked, Simon. This is so brutal. Jace asks why the queen is doing this, and the queen says, I thought I was helping you out. Simon says this is ridiculous. They're brother and sister. That can't happen. The queen says that desire is not always lessened by disgust, and desire can't be given to those most deserving of it. The queen's words control the magic, so it has to be the kiss that she desires the most. If it's not, then a kiss between Clary and Jace won't free Clary. Clary's gonna find out who she desires most now. Simon is very anti-Clary and Jace macking. Izzy and Jace are like, hey, this is so not a big deal. Lips to lips, in and out. We're brother and sister. It's life or death. It's no big deal. Clary isn't piping up on a lot. Her brain's not even turned on at this point. Izzy says, come on, we gotta get Clary out of here. Simon says that Izzy would never kiss Alec to get out of here, and Izzy says, of course I would, if it meant that we can all escape and go home, and it's not a big deal, it's just a kiss. I think this part is in here to make it less ooky, having somebody else co-sign on it and be like, it's not weird, but it just sort of adds more talk of siblings making out, so I don't know. Jay says that's right, it's just a kiss. He instigates, you guys, I can't do it. Okay. Jay, I honestly don't think I can do it. Now. Hello. As you can see, I was struggling a little bit getting through this the first time, so I am from the future right now. I realized as I was editing this that I was not abiding by local laws and governances when I did this the first time, so I'm going to redo it. What I mean by that is that the FDA passed a law, reference number 0910AG27. This law says that when drug advertisements are broadcast, the scary side effects have to be verbally presented, and they have to be done so in a manner that is clear, conspicuous, and neutral. This is why when you see drug advertisements today, you will see the craziest things on screen while the voice sort of like very quickly goes through all of these really scary things. Crazy things like people pretending to have fun participating in group sports or performing crazy acrobatics. They are meant to distract you from the horrors that are being spoken. One more quick note for you. I do not support what's happening. This is obviously very bad. This is obviously sick. This is not okay. I do not support this. I do not condone this. I smile and I laugh when I'm uncomfortable. Yes, it gets me into trouble. With that being said, Jace instigates the kiss. He says you can close your eyes and think of England if you like. I'm actually not sure what that's about. The plan should have been closed lips, in and out. Unfortunately, they both get a little bit caught up. It seems like Clary more so than Jace. They start full-on macking in the court in front of Simon. Jace breaks off the kiss. It says that Clary felt like a limb had been torn from her at the loss of contact, and that Jace looks like when the portal had shattered and he was separated from his home. That's excellent writing. Clary is free to go now, which is a good thing and also a bad thing. Good thing because you can go home. Bad thing because it is now confirmed by magic, just magic in general, has now exposed the fact that the kiss you desire the most was Jace. She's free to go. She says that they should leave before it's too late, and Simon says it's already too late. That it is, Rat Boy. Meliorn was silent and standoffish the whole time. He walks them back without saying anything, and then when the group gets back to the park through the pond entrance, he just immediately leaves. Izzy says it's over with Meliorn now. They're all still soaking wet. Clary's trying to figure out how to get back to Brooklyn. It's going to take a while. Izzy says they should go to the Institute because no one's there. Everyone's at the Bone City looking for clues. Izzy wants Jace to at least go to the Institute and change clothes before going back to Magnus's, and there's a line about how the Institute is still his home, so she's still trying to draw him in. I really love the Lightwood sibling relationship between all of them. Clary says that she'll just call a cab back with Simon. She wants to talk to him one-on-one and smooth things over, and Jace points out that Simon's gone. Clary looks around and hadn't even realized that Simon had left. Oh my god. This was sadistic. Sick and twisted. Sick and twisted! Cassie Clare really asked a lot of us with this. She asked us to have patience, and she asked us to have strength that we didn't know that we had. It was tough reading this because you're trained to want these two people together, and you fall in love with them and the idea of them being together, and then you get them being together, but the whole thing is tainted. It was a mind fuck. It was a mind fuck. It was tough. We were fighting for our lives. This was brutal. I mean, God gives the toughest battles to her strongest soldiers. Okay, don't kiss your brother. Clary, Jason, Izzy get back to the Institute. Max is there asleep, but otherwise nobody else is there. Remember, they're all out conducting Clave business. Izzy goes to take a shower. There's a line about how go with the flow she is, like how nothing really gets to her. Jace wants a shower, and Clary says she'll just wait for him. She doesn't have any clothes to change into. Reminder that they're just here to get out of the wet clothes, and then Clary's got to go back to her house. Jace has to go back to Magnus's because Alec is collateral for Jace right now, and Jace is supposed to be on house arrest with Magnus. Jace tells Clary that she should shower. He'll get her a t-shirt. She says no, but then he says come on, and he has something to show her anyway. They're just not talking about the kiss either. The whole setup gave them the guise of we're doing what we have to do to escape the court. It just had to be done. It doesn't mean anything. Jace gives her a t-shirt and goes to shower. Clary goes to call Simon, goes to voicemail. Jace is back in the doorway and asks what she's doing, and she lies and says nothing. Why not just tell him that you're calling Simon? It says she snaps her phone closed. You didn't tell me we were dealing with flip phones. It's 2007. Why wouldn't we be? I absolutely should have put that together. I love the aesthetic of her having a flip phone. Jace knows that she's lying and asks if she's calling Simon. He knows that she feels guilty that Simon ran off, but Jace says don't bother calling him because Simon's definitely going to be avoiding her. Jace says that he had seen the look on Simon's face before he left. Clary tells Jace that it's his fault and that he shouldn't have kissed her like that. Don't act like you weren't horny for England, Clary. Here we go, they're talking about the kiss. Clary says that Jace isn't the one she desires most. She says, wires got mixed somewhere, the queen was wrong, but fairies can't lie, and Jace says the queen wasn't wrong. The queen saw how they looked at each other, and she played them. Clary is shutting down any accusations of wanting to bone him. It's out already. You could pretend before, and you should. You can't pretend anymore. How are you gonna walk that back? It was magic. You shared true love's kiss and confirmed that he was the one you desired most. And then instead of dead fish lips, which was an option, that was an option, to just, instead of doing that, you guys licked and rubbed all over each other, okay? The cat's out of the bag. I think she's being way too mean to Jace about this. Like, yes, shut it down, for sure, shut it down. But she blames him for everything. Jace asks why she's so weird about this, trying not to look at him, and Clary says, why do you think? And now we can have a real conversation about it. That's basically her admitting she can't look at him because she does feel for him. I'm gonna struggle so much doing this recap. Oh. Jace asks if Clary feels this way now that she's pseudo-admitted that she has feelings for him. He says, if you do feel that way, then what are you doing with Simon? Why are you pushing me away? Clary says it's because of the obvious reason. We're related. Jace accuses her of using Simon as a distraction. He says that she loves Simon platonically and not romantically, which I think we all know. And he says that she's just being messy, basically. He says that she's lying to Jace and she's lying to herself. Clary finally breaks here and admits, oh, this is so rough. Clary finally admits that she loves Simon like a brother and doesn't love Jace like a brother and wishes that Simon was her brother and not Jace. The types of love are mixed up. Jace comes up to her, grabs her face. He says that he's never felt this way about anyone. He didn't think it was possible. He thought that to love is to destroy. He thought that part of his heart was broken forever. Jace says if they both feel the same way, they could keep it a secret. Clary says there's no way that that would work because people would find out. What? They think they're related. I'm going to get into Jace in a second. I'm going to deal with Clary right now. She's dating Simon. They're saying that they're boyfriend-girlfriend. Jace pitches a relationship. And the first thing is not, no, because we're brother-sister. Or, no, I'm dating Simon. Her first thing is, people would find out. That's the main reason that they can't be together. Like, that should tell you something. Not that you should do it, but you need to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling. Think about that. Someone comes up to you, hey, do you want to commit elder fraud? People would find out. It's the only reason I can't do it. What? Clary says that it would be sickening to everybody that they care about. This shuts Jace down. He gets offended that she thinks what they feel for each other is sickening. He says, I'm sorry I said anything. I won't kiss you again. Now we got to deal with Jace. I was screaming. I was crying. I was just short of actually throwing up reading this. I did not remember Jace actually pitching a relationship when they believed themselves to be related or when they believed that it was possible for them to be related. Again, alleged. The whole thing is allegedly. In my head, when they thought that they were related, I knew some funny business. I knew some funny business happened, but I thought that the funny business was happening because everywhere else they were restraining themselves, holding themselves back. And then they would have these moments where it would sort of like come out. But for the most part, they were both avoiding each other because I remember some of the stuff that happens in the next book. I feel like they put up walls a little bit. No spoilers. I completely blacked out in my mind, just wiped it out of memory that he had pitched a relationship with them seriously. No spoilers, but that's not the last we're going to hear this from him. I could not believe that. Around this part, I started really wondering wondering why I chose this series to do any videos on, and also especially like the first videos I'm ever gonna do. Why did I do this? Jace goes to shower here. She falls asleep on the bed. The dream is that she's walking on water, but it's like a mirror. Fire rains down, and a point of fire becomes Jace in burning gold with white wings. And then there's another dark-haired boy, I know who this is, with black wings with blood on them. Clary wakes up. Jace is in a chair by the bed, appropriate amount of space. Thank you. They're kind of normal here. She asks why he didn't wake her up, and he says that he knew that she could use the rest, and then he teases her about drooling. They're just compartmentalizing the shit out of the situation. Simon hasn't responded to Clary. It's now 3 a.m. Clary changes into Jace's shirt, and she sees that he still has the portal shard. That's what Jace had wanted to come get at the Institute. He wants to see Valentine or see what Valentine's up to. Magnus thinks that Valentine is not in New York. Jace had given Magnus the Morgenstern ring, W ring that turned out to be the M ring, don't get me started, that Jace had from Valentine. He had given the ring to Magnus for Magnus to sense Valentine's location, and Magnus hasn't sensed Valentine in the city. Jace has to get back to Magnus's to trade Jace back for Alec. As they're leaving to go back, someone rings the doorbell. Clary thinks that it's Simon, and I guess in a way it is. Clary, Jace, Izzy open the door. Raphael is holding a seemingly lifeless body. It is Simon. The integrity of my wall demands that I can only put confirmed kills on there, so we're gonna wait. Clary goes into shock. She's torn up. She's devastated. Simon's throat is torn. His wrists are torn up. Jace is trying to help Clary not look. Izzy threatens Raphael and asks what he did. I love it when we can see the group stick up for Simon, because as much as Clary is an outsider, Simon gets it a lot worse because he doesn't have angel blood or anything. So I do love seeing the group stick up for him. Raphael lays Simon down on the ground in front of the Institute and says that Simon isn't dead, but he is dying. He'll be dead in 10 minutes. He can't hear or see anything. Jace has been physically holding Clary up this whole time and trying to break through the shock. He's telling her that Simon's not dead. Raphael brings up the oath that the vampires had tried to get Jace to make in the first book, where he would promise to never harm Raphael, but he never actually made the oath. And Izzy says that she didn't even start the oath. They both go to fight him, but he speaks up. He tells them what happened. Simon had broken into the vampire lair at the hotel, which meant that he was fair game. So the vampires attacked him and were going to drain all of his blood. They were feeding on him, but Raphael stopped them, kept Simon alive, and brought him to the Institute because he knew Simon belonged to their group and he doesn't want a war with the Nephilim. It's so tragic. Simon was worried that he was becoming a vampire. He thought that he was, and he wanted to reverse it, so he had broken in. Remember in the last book, Simon had bit Raphael as a rat, which meant that he had consumed Raphael's blood, and vampires pass on their powers through their blood. Clary remembers the vampire movie freaking him out. She remembers all the signs now. Raphael says that the blood would have faded over time if Simon hadn't done anything, but now since he's going to die with the blood in his system, he's going to rise again as a vampire. If he hadn't died, he wouldn't have turned. Raphael says that Simon belongs to him now. Clary notes that Izzy and Jace are handling all the talking and figuring this out because Clary can't even speak right now. We love supportive friends. Izzy asks if there's any way to reverse him turning, and Raphael says that you could cut off his head and burn his heart in fire, and then he wouldn't turn. He's also not coming back at all in that case. Jace asks Clary what Simon would want. Would he want this life for himself? Would he be okay with being a vampire? Clary gets worried because of this question that Jace or Izzy is going to kill Simon to stop him from turning into a vampire, so she starts guarding Simon's body, and she freaks out and tells him to stay away. Jace seems genuinely shocked. He's like, oh, hold up. You didn't think I was going to murder your friend, right? Tell me that's not what you were just thinking. Simon is dying here. He's going to turn into a vampire, which means I'm not going to put the white bar up. Simon has his dying breath as Clary says, I love you to him, and then he dies. Clary refuses to let go of him. Raphael says that they gotta bury him now. That's how vampires are made. They're drained, blooded, and buried. I think that means you have a vampire's blood in your system, you're drained of your blood, and then you're buried and reborn. When he digs his way out of the grave, that's when he's born as a vampire. Raphael says some don't make it out if no one's there to help dig them out. Some stay trapped like rats under the earth. Rat Boy Part 2. If you leave Simon like he is and don't bury him, he's just in between. He's not dead, but he's never gonna wake up. Raphael says that the sooner you bury him, the higher his chances are that he'll make it out of the grave as a vampire and successfully turn. Clary says that they can bury him, but it has to be in a Jewish cemetery and that she needs to be there when he wakes up. And Raphael warns her that it's gonna be rough. I didn't think they could bury him in a Jewish cemetery because as of right now, he's not a vampire, but when he wakes up, he'll be a vampire, which means that wouldn't he not be allowed to be on hallowed ground? And a Jewish cemetery is a religious cemetery. Wouldn't that be hallowed ground? Clary, Jace, Izzy, Raphael, and undead Simon are in the cemetery. Alec is still at Magnus's place standing in for Jace. Clary asked Raphael if Simon suffered, and he said no. The blood death, which is what being drained would be, is pleasant. It's basically like falling asleep. The bite actually drugs you. People basically get high having their blood sucked by a vampire, and there's actually a plot line that revolves around this in the show that I hate with a burning passion. Jace takes Clary to go sit somewhere else so that she doesn't watch Izzy and Raphael burying the body. The book notes that Izzy's guarding Simon's body with her whip. I love seeing them be a big family together. It's an awful situation, though. Clary notes in her mind that because Simon's not that big, the grave wouldn't even have to be that big or deep, so they could probably get it done quickly. Get wrecked, Simon. Clary says that it's her fault, and Jay says, no, it's not, and then Clary goes, you're right, it's our fault. Ma'am. Clary's looking at Jace and notes that he looks nothing like her, Jocelyn, or Valentine for that matter. This was a port in the storm for the Clay shippers out there. Clary says Simon would still be alive if they hadn't kissed in the fairy court, and Jace reminds her that they were forced to do it. They didn't do it for fun. They weren't doing it to hurt him. He calls her his sister. He keeps throwing up that wall and also pointing out that Simon shouldn't be pissed because they're related, allegedly. Clary tells him to stop calling her sister, and we find out that he's repeating the word over and over again so that the word loses its meaning. He used to do that as a kid. And Clary says it doesn't matter how many times you say it, it'll still be true. And Jay says, yeah, it'll still be true no matter how many times you refuse to say it as well. Alec and Magnus show up, they're bickering. Jace had asked Alec to come and bring blood, which he did. He got the blood from a butcher shop. It's animal blood. The vampires are called fledglings when they're not yet born or newly born. This is just for context, like who knows who in the Downworlder world. Raphael did recognize Magnus. They knew of each other. Alec seems nervous. Magnus goes to touch his shoulder to give him comfort, and Alec moves away. It's extra cold at a rising, which is the vampire rebirth, because the fledgling takes strength and energy from all living things around it. Izzy holds on to Clary and she seems spooked. Remember that she never is. She's always go with the flow. And she says here that maybe they should have let Simon go. I think just because the whole thing is getting very spooky now. Clary accuses Izzy of thinking that everyone who isn't just like her, a shadow hunter, is better off dead, and Izzy refutes that. Clary attended the school Jace attended for lashing out at everyone like a cornered animal when she feels bad feelings. The ground shakes, it's rippling. Simon's hand comes up. Raphael said it's better if he gets up by himself, so he does make it out by himself, but then Clary runs over. He tackles her and starts trying to feed on her. He's like a wild animal. Raphael restrains him. Clary thinks that Simon doesn't recognize her, and Raphael says, no, he knows who you are, he just doesn't care. He needs blood. He's absolutely feral. And he's actually feral. I'm using that correctly. Raphael feeds Simon blood. It says that Simon has been a vegetarian since he was 10. Did we know this? He wouldn't drink milk unless it was organic, and he fainted at the sight of needles. I don't think we knew that. Simon goes crazy over this blood. It's graphic. There's screaming and blood everywhere. Raphael says that it won't be as messy the next time, and everyone's kind of grossed out. Clary runs away to throw up, lays down in the dirt in the cemetery, and thinks that maybe the dead ones aren't unlucky after all. Oh, baby girl. We jump forward to Clary at the hospital with Jocelyn. Jocelyn is still in the coma. Quick summary of where we're at with everything. Raphael is taking care of Simon now. He's training him, and he's going to belong to Raphael's clan now. The Shadowhunters are still trying to figure out a way to stop Valentine from completing the ritual and summoning a demon army, and they're still trying to convince the Clave that this is what's happening. Clary and Jace acted out a siblings to lovers kink, and Clary is blaming Jace and herself for what happened to Simon. And then right now, Clary's in with Jocelyn, Luke is in the cafeteria. Clary's speaking to Jocelyn. The nurses had told her that it's possible that Jocelyn could still hear her, and Clary really needs to talk to her mom. She tells Jocelyn everything. She tells her about finding the Shadowhunter world. She tells her everything in book 1, including the Jace kiss and Simon being in his vampire era because of the kiss. Luke basically heard everything. So they're driving home and he tells her that what happened to Simon was not her fault. Luke says that Simon would have felt a compulsion to go back to the hotel because he would have been a Darkling. Shadow and Bone Crew? Are you here? A Darkling in this book means half turned. He had vampire blood in him, but he hadn't died. So he would have been a Darkling. He would have felt a pull to go back to the hotel. If I'm Clary, I think that I would feel relieved of my guilt at that point. Like, oh, he was gonna be drawn to go there anyway. Clary won't let herself off the hook though. She says that it's her fault that he had Raphael's blood in his system because she had brought him to the party. Luke says that there's no way that she could have known, and also that she didn't put him in any danger that she wasn't putting herself in. They all went to the party together and they were supposed to be safe. Luke tells her to stop torturing herself. He says, and I quote, "In all the years I've known him, there's always been exactly one place Simon wanted to be, and he always fought like hell to make sure he got there and stayed there." And it was wherever Clary was. Luke gives a pep talk that all TV dads should take notes from, and says that Simon made his own decisions. Clary had told him the truth. She can't apologize for what she is. And he says again, and I quote, "Everyone has choices to make. No one has the right to take those choices away from us, not even out of love." Okay, Daddy Luke. Clary says, this is another quote. I'm sorry, it's important. Please stick with me, and then this is the last quote for a while, okay? But that's just it, Clary said. When you love someone, you don't have a choice. She thought of the way her heart had contracted when Isabel had called to tell her Jace was missing. She'd left the house without a moment's thought or hesitation. Love takes your choices away. I had forgotten that this quote was from this book. Because when I tell you that I have always remember this, love takes your choices away, because you would just do anything for that person and you don't have a choice when you're in love, that has lived in my brain and stuck with me my entire life. And I think that in my head, I thought that I had gotten it from like a poem somewhere along the way. I have thought about it often in relationships and in times of turmoil, and it was from this book. And when I found that out, I was like, of course it is. Of course it is, because there's not one part of my personality that wasn't shaped by this book. Oh my God. Back to Clary and Luke in the car. We find out that Clary's ignoring Jace. He had called a ton. After the night that Simon had turned into a vampire, he had called her a lot, but she was punishing herself by not talking to him. To lean on him now and have his comfort when she feels like her feelings for him are what killed Simon is her way of punishing herself. Luke says that she should check in. Luke knows about the Soul Sword ritual because he and Magnus kept up, and I'm sure they tried to tell the New York Institute in terms of Mayors and the Inquisitor, but remember that the Inquisitor is taking over, and I don't think she would listen to them. Magnus and Luke have caught up about the Soul Sword ritual, and Jace is still with Magnus, so we know peripherally that Jace is okay in hanging at Magnus, but she hasn't talked to him one-on-one. Luke wants Clary to call Jace for Jace's emotional health. Clary says that she's not going to call because she needs to focus on Simon now. I think this is very human. It's the wrong call. It's very human. Luke tells her that Simon is going to get through this. Luke was turned into a downworlder too, so Simon has him to lean on if he needs it. Clary says it's a little different because for Simon, he wasn't a part of this world, so it's not like he could even tell his family, oh yeah, I'm a vampire now, whereas Luke was raised in the world where these creatures existed. For Simon, it's a little bit more of a reach. He can't tell anybody that he's a vampire. Luke had grabbed a How to Come Out to Your Parents pamphlet from the hospital for Clary to give to Simon, which Clary thinks is ridiculous, but Luke says it's good coaching on telling your parents hard news that they might not be open to. I think he has a point, actually. Clary and Luke get to Luke's house, and Simon is on the porch. Luke stays in the truck to give them a second to talk. She's talked to Simon on the phone a few times, but hasn't seen him since they brought him to Luke's house after his rising night. They call it his rising night going forward, or the rebirth. It's when he officially became a vampire. They took him to Luke's house after that to get him cleaned up, and they sent him back home because he still has to keep up appearances with his family. She wanted Simon to go to the Institute, but it's impossible because he's unholy now. He can't step from the Institute or a synagogue ever again. Reminder that Clary still has the random rune from the Jocelyn dream. Just checking back in on that. What does it mean? Jace had tried to comfort her the night of Simon's rising, but she won't touch him, and she plans to never touch him again. Simon is different now. He moves gracefully, his eyes gleam, and he doesn't need the glasses anymore. Update the wall. We have Simon without glasses now. It's gonna take some getting used to. The new picture is freaking me out. He has his little vampire icon now. He's good to go. Before you scream about plot holes from the fact that Luke has glasses and he's also a downworlder, Luke has perfect vision in wolf form, but in human form, he still needs glasses. Simon is a vampire all of the time. He does not need glasses. I know everybody was gonna be asking about that. Simon can't go into the sunlight now. It'll burn him. Clary tells Simon that he needs to tell his mom. She doesn't want him to deal with this alone. She knows that his family loves him. He's trying to hide it from his family. He's been pretending that he has the flu, but he can't go to a doctor with his mom because he doesn't have a heartbeat. Simon says that he thinks about blood all the time. It seems to me pretty soon to have him interacting with humans that have tasty blood if he's just been turned. I don't know if my head is still thinking Twilight rules, but this feels really soon for him to be around people. Claire reminds Simon of Luke, tells him that he can still live a normal life. Simon asks how their relationship will work if he's a vampire. What relationship? What are you? He says they can't do normal things together, and Clary says to think of it like a handicap. He just needs to work his life around it. I would say she's missing the extra step here of it's not a handicap, it's a strength. She's trying to support Simon however she can, and she feels really guilty. Clary has the pamphlet still for how to come out to your parents, and Simon sees it. He clarifies that he's not gay or bi. This was a bad day for the Simon and Jace shippers. I think the fandom collectively agreed that Simon being straight is not actually canon. Simon says his mom already thinks he's gay because he doesn't like sports and hasn't had a serious girlfriend. Do better, Elaine. Harmful stereotypes. We'll meet her later. He's thinking about telling his sister and his mom, but he doesn't want to. Clary says that he'll go with him to try to help them understand, and Simon seems really surprised and touched by this. That's pretty bare minimum, I think. She's giving you the bare minimum. I'm not dragging Clary. You know that I love all of these characters. Then things pop off again. Maya was walking in front of the house. Remember that she's watching the bookstore for Luke. A creature knocks her down, attacks her, and then Luke runs over it with his truck. The creature was a Drevok demon. They're blind. They track by smell. They get Maya inside to take care of her. She's really injured, and Simon is trying to not lose it at the sight of her blood. I feel like he shouldn't be here. Clary asks if Valentine was trying to get the werewolf blood because he was interrupted at the last werewolf murder, but Luke says no because the Drevok demon doesn't suck blood. They're mostly just spies and messengers, and Maya probably just got in its way. Reminder that Valentine still needs the blood of a werewolf child and a vampire child. Drevok demons don't have teeth. They have poisonous spines in their mouth, and some broke off and are in Maya's arm. Luke says that she'll die if they don't work fast. Oh. Maya tells him to get the things out. He pulls out a knife to just carve him out, but she doesn't want other people watching. That's fair. Simon and Clary go to the kitchen to call the Institute and tell them what happened, and that the Institute needs to send someone. They can't send a silent brother on account of all of them are dead, so they need someone with medical training or warlock. Simon and Clary are awkward right now. Remember that they haven't discussed the kiss in the Sealy court. We get Simon's POV here when he's alone with Clary that he's haunted by the kiss. There's a line about how Simon is scared to break her when he touches her, but Jace was like very aggressive with her. Read the cursed kiss in the Sealy court. Simon doesn't voice this in his head. We get him saying that he thinks he'll never be whole again if he loses his relationship with Clary. That's not true, bud. Clary gives her new phone to Simon. It says that it's pink metallic, and they said earlier that it folds. Please tell me this is a pink Motorola Razr, because you were that girl if you had a Motorola Razr in 2007. She gives her phone to Simon and tells Simon to call Jace because Clary doesn't want to talk to him, but they need to fill the institute in on what happened. I think it's not super cool to put Simon in the middle of this. Feels like you're asking a lot of Simon in that situation. Jace answers and thinks that it's Clary calling, and so Simon is able to hear how Jace talks to Clary. He hears the sincerity and all the emotions in his voice, and Simon hears it for the first time because that's not how he speaks to Simon. It says that Jace sounds heartbroken. He asks why Clary is avoiding him, and then Simon says, she is avoiding you, it's me, fills him in on everything, and then Jace, Magnus, and Alec are gonna come to Luke's. Clary was told to get Shadowhunter help, and she just automatically called Jace, like without thinking about it. Her mind was just on autopilot because she probably should have called Izzy, who was actually at the Institute, or anybody at the Institute. Jace isn't even at the Institute. He's at Magnus's. But Shadowhunter help is coming. Clary starts to break a little bit here, just like break down. It's just thing after thing, and Maya's screaming in the background from what Luke's doing. Simon leaves in a huff. Simon goes to check on Maya, and he's trying to ignore the blood. Why are they alone? Luke has gone outside to move the truck from the front lawn where he had run over the demon. Maya senses here, for the first time, that Simon is a vampire. I guess because she was so out of it earlier, she didn't, but she can tell now, and she freaks out. She slaps him so hard that he bleeds and calls him a monster. Simon is confused and says, I was turned just like you were, but she's about to attack him. Simon is fighting the urge to drink her blood. Clary comes in, throws a dagger, and pins Maya to the sofa through her shirt, not her body. Maya says the demonic disease is what makes them hate each other. The demons who made vampires and the demons who made werewolves were at war, and it's in their blood to hate each other. Simon will start hating Luke and Maya. There's nothing he can do to help it. It's just another thing that Simon is hearing about that he has to deal with. They're all in the trenches. Clary calls her a bigot and tells her that the Downworlders need to work together, and she is unleashing on Maya, sticking up for Simon. Says that she's lucky Simon's not a bigot who took the bait and fought her, or else she would have turned Maya into the clay for attacking a vampire, but she's not going to. Jace, Magnus, and Alec get here now. The Jace-Clary dynamic is bad. It's been bad ever since he proposed the relationship, and she said it would be disgusting to people, and he took it personally. So he's pulled back. He's calling her Clarissa. He's teasing her. He's talking down to her. Maya's fading again because of her injury. Magnus calls Simon a vampire and tells him to get out of the way. And I wrote, okay, can we stop labeling people now? Can't we in this post-James Franco world be all things at once? That's Riverdale. Magnus is healing Maya. Luke never came back, so Alec is going to watch the house, and Jace is going to go check on Luke. Where is he? Clary wants to go with him. He says that he will physically knock her down to stop her from going because there could be more demons out there. She tells him to stop calling her Clarissa, so then he calls her Clary, but it gets her so hot and bothered that she's like, okay, never mind. Simon is in the room. She tells Jace that Luke is her uncle, not Jace's. I guess she was raised as Luke as her uncle through Jocelyn, like, oh, this is Uncle Luke. But then he actually would be her uncle on Valentine's side because he would be Valentine's parabatai, which is like a super strong bond. So he kind of would be her actual uncle in a way. Jace says that any uncle of hers is an uncle of his. If you think about it, I'd rather not. I think Jace wants to be close to Luke. He wants that paternal care, so he does view Luke in a familial way. Jace says he doesn't have time to mark her. She doesn't have any angel weapons. So she throws the dagger into a wall by Jace to prove a point. Property damage is a joke to her, I guess. Clary asks for one of Jace's seraph blades, and Simon jumps in and says that they're wasting time flirting. Simon and Clary are still supposedly dating here. Okay, whatever. They never broke up, and they both confirmed the girlfriend status. Whatever, man. Jace, Clary, and Simon are all gonna go together. Jace gives Clary a seraph blade. It's named Nakir. All the seraph blades have names. They find Luke by the riverbank. Remember that he's right on the riverfront in Williamsburg. That's money, honey. He's down, and there are 2 Rom demons over him, which are worse than Drevok demons. Jace starts killing the demons, and I gotta give you some more lore here. When you call the seraph blade's name, the sword comes out of the holster or handle or whatever and lights up. The Rom demons are scaly with tentacles for hands that have blood red suckers on them, and each sucker has a cluster of tiny needle-sharp teeth. That's so gross. The demon knocks her down, and she gets the seraph blade and calls its name. It's her first time holding an angel blade, so it becomes the full sword. I'm just taking you through it because it's the first time. And then the demon backs up like it's scared and runs away and goes into the water, which is weird because why would it be scared of her? Jace and Simon are still bickering, but normal bickering now. We have to track the hostility level in this as we go through. They seem more normal here. Jace and Simon carry Luke back to the house. Maya's healing up in Luke's bed, and Magnus is working on Luke on the couch. Magnus putting in work. Magnus says the Rom poison is a little more complicated than Drevok poison, but he can handle it and Luke will be fine. The group is sort of sitting back now as Magnus is healing Luke. Everybody is out of danger for now. We have Maya healing up in Luke's room. We have Luke that Magnus is healing. And then we have Jace, Alec, Clary, Simon. Jace and Alec are catching up on the events. Clary is looking at Simon and she's noticing how the vampirism made him more attractive. It smoothed everything out, added color and luster. She knows that it would be good for vampires to lure and prey, so it's probably an evolutionary thing, but apparently he got better looking. Magnus gets Luke past the worst of what's going on, and Simon holds Clary's hand because they're both emotional. They've been on rocky ground, so this is nice. Magnus is drained from using the magic. He looks drained and bluish. He asks why they keep calling him when less powerful warlocks would do these jobs at a lower price. Remember that Magnus is incredibly powerful. school, and all of this is basically below his pay grade. Clary didn't know that Magnus was charging them. She's like, what do you mean? Kids don't smoke. Magnus lights a cigarette and is like, well, I'm not doing this for free, so yes, I am charging you. He asks them if he's the only warlock that they know. I'm including this because of what comes next. Jace says, no, you're not the only warlock we know, but you are the only warlock that's dating one of our friends. Remember, whatever Alec and Magnus are doing, Alec is keeping it a secret. His parents do not know that he's gay. The Clave does not know that he's gay. We were told that they would kick him out for being gay, but then add to it him being with a downworlder. So Alec pipes up and says, we're not dating. And then Jace employs the middle school tactic of, how did you know who I was talking about? I never said it was you. Alec says that he's not dating Magnus, and then Magnus gets pissed off here and asks if Alec is just that friendly with everybody. So this is our official confirmation. They have been hooking up. Obviously, I'm gonna give them the red string. Alec becomes frantic in the aftermath of this. Magnus is pissed at him, but sits the next few plays out. Alec is still insisting that it's not true, and Jace says that he doesn't understand why Alec would hide it when Jace wouldn't care if Alec had just told him. I'm gonna break this down for you. Jace thinks that Alec was worried to tell Jace that he was gay. Jace wants Alec to know that it's fine that he's gay, and that he wouldn't have made a big deal out of it. He wouldn't love Alec any less. He doesn't voice this to Alec, but his point is, I wouldn't care if you had just told me, why didn't you tell me? And I think he's probably hurt by this. He does not know that Alec is in love with Jace, so he doesn't know that there's that extra layer to it that would increase Alec's sensitivity around it. This results in Jace asking Magnus to help explain to Alec that Jace doesn't care. Jace is referring to Alec being gay. And Magnus says, no, I think it's pretty clear that you don't care. Magnus is referring to the fact that Alec loves Jace and Jace does not return the feelings. Jace is trying to figure out what Alec is so upset about and what Magnus is insinuating, and then Clary tells Jace to leave it alone because she's trying to help Alec out. Luke wakes up at this moment. He doesn't have memory of the attack. It's kind of hazy. He asks what everyone is shouting about, and all five answer in unison, nothing. So in terms of Clary, Simon, Alec, Magnus, and Jace, we found something that does unite all of them, and it's their inability to discuss their fucking feelings. Everyone's doing a slumber party. Maya's sleeping in Luke's room, Luke's taking the couch, Clary's gonna sleep in her room, she goes to her room to get blankets for Luke, and Jace corners her in the closet, it's just them two, about her avoiding him. It's tense, but they're eye fucking each other, and they agree that they don't hate each other. She's actually surprised that he doesn't hate her. I think she's aware of how much she's been pushing him away. He says that he's trying to hate her. He wants to. It would be easier. He thinks he hates her sometimes, and then he sees her. He stops talking and says that he can't tell her how he feels when she's icing him out. He's like, why am I gonna tell you what I'm feeling if you won't tell me what you're feeling? She did tell you how she felt, though. You both did. What's the confusion? He's miserable with the fact that she's avoiding him. It's hard to watch. Clary's getting heated and says that it's not easy for her either, and then Simon interrupts them, sees them having a heated conversation, sees that there are tears in her eyes, and he apologizes for interrupting, and he leaves. Yes. Give Simon dignity. That's not a Clary and Jace moment for me. That's a Simon moment. Clary is so mean to Jace now and asks Jace why he ruins everything. Just the way that she kept lashing out at him, I hated it. Clary runs after Simon, telling him that he should just stay at the house. She says, you can stay here tonight, you can stay here tomorrow to avoid your mom. But Simon says, no, I'd like to leave the House of Horrors. And then tells her the worst thing he can imagine is not trusting someone he loves. And Clary is like, is that me? She says, wait, you don't trust me? And I'm gonna give you another quote. It says, I used to think I could, he said, but I get the feeling you'd rather pine over someone you can never possibly be with than try being with someone you can. There was no point pretending. Just give me time, she said. I just need some time to get over it. Simon asks if she's finally going to admit it, and she says, yes, you're right, and apologizes, and he says to not apologize because at least it's the truth, and he leaves. This was so good for Simon. My only real issue with this is that I think that it was misguided for him to be like, I know you'd rather be with him, but you can't be with him, so do you want to make it work with me? That was never gonna work. It's a bad foundation. He deserves better than that. She deserves better than that. It was ill thought out. I can't get used to him without the glasses. As bad as that entire relationship was, it would have been so much worse if she had been the one to end it. So him being the one to end it, even if it was because of her feelings and her actions, that stabilized the power imbalance between them a little bit, I think. It puts them a little bit more on equal footing. So I think that that was good going forward. I counted this as a breakup when I was going through it. Apparently, it's not an official breakup. We'll get into it when that comes up. Simon was going to be okay with knowing that she wanted Jace but couldn't have him, and he was okay to be the best friend she could have. And that takes such strength to stick around for. And it also takes a lot of strength to walk away when you realize that you'll never be loved back the way that you want to be loved. Simon has left, Alec has left, Maya's there, Luke's there. Magnus is going to stay to monitor Luke and Maya, which means that Jace has to stay with Magnus. Also, touching on the Magnus and Alec thing. Alec was hiding the relationship because he's still in love with Jace, which Magnus knows, but he didn't spill the secret even with Jace asking explicitly what was going on because he cared about Alec and it was what Alec wanted. I think that was nice of Magnus as well. I mean, it wouldn't have been his secret to tell, but Magnus is kind of, See, the power dynamics are so imbalanced. The Simon Clary had the upper hand. The Magnus you would think would have the upper hand with the power dynamic between them because he's immortal. I'm about to address it. But Alec kind of has the upper hand because Magnus is really into Alec and Alec is keeping him hidden, and also Magnus can tell Alec's feelings for Jace, so Alec sort of has the upper hand there. Everything's imbalanced right now. So now I'm going to address the immortal being with a 17-year-old. This is something that happens a lot in these books and in this genre. What's the quickest way for me to do this? Okay. Would I be okay in real life with the 500-year-old being with a 17-year-old being, with a child? No. But this isn't real. This is a book. It's gross and awful and it's bad. And if I were to read this book now, I don't know that I would ship it the same way that I did when I read it for the first time, because I'm older now, that I would be like, no. But it's kind of like Vampire Diaries. I feel like we all agreed the whole Elena thing with Stefan and Damon was bad, but it's still a lot of people's comfort show. It's one of my comfort shows. So I also ship this. This feels problematic. I would never tell a 17-year-old that this is okay, but can I ship the characters? Yes, because this is not real. They are not real. These are not real people. This is a book. Jace sneaks around when everybody's sleeping. Magnus is tired from using his energy with all of the magic. Jace has Raphael bring him a demon motorcycle. We find out that the vampires are still being blamed for all of the murders, the werewolf kid, the fairy, the warlock. But Raphael brings up that drinking warlock blood has effects on those who drink it, as evidence for the fact that it wouldn't have been a vampire who drained Elias's blood, the warlock's blood. And Raphael can't even talk to Mayrus about this because the Inquisitor is running everything now, and it's a bad situation. Raphael calls Jace a friend. I think Raphael wants to be friends with Jace, but his point is that Jace and Raphael are both on the outs with the Shadowhunters group now, so they're sort of on the same team, and Jace says that that's not what's happening, and that he's not a friend, that he didn't tell the Clave about Simon, which would have put Raphael and the vampires in even hotter water because he needed something from Raphael. So Jace says this is just transactional. Raphael says that he was expecting Jace to be less arrogant now that he's on the outs with the Clave, but he's the same, and Jace takes the bike. Jace says they're not even yet about Simon, but that this is a start, and then Jace flies the bike to a ship on the East River. We're about to get into it. He has snuck out. In terms of doing things to not look guilty, already a bad start. This ship that he flies to, it says that it's bigger than a yacht, smaller than a naval vessel, it's all black, and Jace wonders where Valentine had gotten it. This was a jump scare upon reading. Jace is going to meet Valentine. We didn't know that. We find out that Valentine had taught Jace how to sail and how to handle the water. The ship seems deserted. No one's there. He's walking around. He's enjoying being out on the water again, but then he goes into a stairwell and feels like everything's wrong. He sees Clary, and it says that terror grips him worse than any fear he's ever felt for himself. She holds her hands out and they're covered in blood. There's blood all over her white dress. Make it a creepy white dress every time. She falls, he catches her, and she's dying in his arms. But then she opens her eyes and it's not Clary's eyes. They're white and blinding, and he passes out. We know that this is Agramon. Agramon has the white, blinding diamond eyes, also the dread and the fear. Jace wakes up on the deck of the ship with Valentine leaning over him, asking him how he feels. Valentine is wearing a suit. He watched RuPaul's Masterclass. Jace had tortured Valentine's location out of the Rom demon when they were fighting the demons who had attacked Luke. Jace knew that Valentine had summoned the Rom demons and probably all of the other demons running around because he has the cup and the soul sword, which gives him power. Valentine tells Jace to let him know when he's coming next time so that Jace doesn't have to deal with Valentine's guards. He's referring to the demons. Jace asks what was in the stairwell if it wasn't Clary. Why would you give up that information that you saw Clary? You know that it was a demon and not actually Clary, so you just gave him information. Jace didn't think that he was giving him information. He thought that he was supposed to see Clary. He thought whatever the demon was doing, that Valentine had made it look like Clary, or that was just how it worked. So Valentine says, you saw Clary? And then Jace says, yeah, what was I supposed to see? Valentine is reading everything, and Jace starts to get nervous because he's like, uh-oh. He doesn't want Valentine putting the pieces together about the way that he feels about Clary. Yeah. Valentine explains that Agramon takes the form of whatever scares you the most and then kills you when it's fed on your fear. Most people die before the demon is done feeding on its fear, so Valentine congratulates Jace for holding out as long as he did. Of course he did. Also, zoom out. His greatest fear was Clary dying. This was a great canon event for Clay shippers. Valentine tells Jace about Elias and the whole scheme there, so this is good information for Jace to have. They knew that Valentine had killed all of these children, but he didn't know how. Jace brings up the ritual of infernal conversion, and we find out that Valentine had sent the Drevok demons to spy on Luke's, and when Valentine found out that there was a werewolf child there, Maya, then he sent the Rom demons to drain her blood and kill her. Jace knows that he could have gotten werewolf child blood anywhere. I mean, not like at the supermarket, but you know what I mean? There were other options, but he wanted to take someone important to Luke. Valentine basically confirms that he is doing the ritual. ritual. That is his plan. Valentine starts talking to Jace about Paradise Lost. I also read Paradise Lost because of this book. Jace references it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. We found out that Valentine made Jace read it like 10 or 15 times growing up. Valentine quotes non serviam, I will not serve, which was from Lucifer's banner. There's a dynamic here where we see Jace being kind of desperate for Valentine's affections because it's still his father. So Valentine goes to help Jace up. He goes to draw a healing rune on him. Jace is acting like he doesn't want that. So he's not really accepting the help, but he hesitates every time, or he'll start letting Valentine help him. I think Valentine starts thinking that he could win Jace over. And Jace himself isn't sure how deep the connection to Valentine is on his side. Valentine says that after he saw Jace in the Silent City when he was in the prisons, that he thought Jace's hatred of him was too strong and that Valentine had almost given up on Jace. I think Valentine truly wants Jace, Clary, and Jocelyn to choose to be with him, to join up with him and to do it willingly. Jace tells Valentine the Seelie Queen told Jace to ask Valentine what blood runs in his veins. Valentine seems surprised. He gets it together quickly, but this whole thing caught him off guard. He seems surprised that Jace spoke with the Queen and by the question. Valentine says Jace can tell the Queen the blood of the angel runs in his veins. Angel blood runs in all Shadowhunters' veins. It's not really an answer to the question, but it's not a lie, and Jace just had to ask him the question. Jace is kind of disappointed by this answer because there's no real new information here. Jace admits that he's also here because he needed to talk to someone. He's really struggling with everything. He says that he's just caused trouble for the Lightwoods. He thinks that Luke hates him now. Remember that Luke was helping him out at the beginning. I think Luke would still help him out, but Jace doesn't know about that. Jace saved his life in the first book, but Jace knows that he's been really petulant towards everyone, so he says, I think even Luke is against me now. The Inquisitor wants Jace dead. Jace knows that he hurt Alec, but he doesn't even know what he did there to hurt Alec. Valentine asks him about Clary, and Jace says that she's not happy with him either. Why is that? Jace says that he doesn't trust Valentine, but he is ready to hear Valentine's side now. Jace's inside thoughts, the question that he's not asking, we find out that he's still wondering, why did you leave me a second time? Why did you tell me I wasn't your son anymore, then come back for me? We do get Valentine's plan fully fleshed out here. I don't think there's a ton of new information. He wants to destroy the Clave and build a new one. He wants to free Idris from the degenerate races, the Downworlders, and rid the earth of the demons forever. Jace points out that Valentine is using demons like servants and employees. Valentine says that he's still anti-demon, he's a Shadowhunter through and through, and he's a true patriot, more so than others, for being willing to go up against the government for what he believes for his people's sake. Valentine asks Jace if he's a Shadowhunter forever. This is important because Jace had been questioning this. He had been wondering if he would change his blood, if it would mean that he could be with Clary, but he knows that he could never give up what he is. He's a Shadowhunter, and he tells Valentine, yes, I'm a Shadowhunter forever too. Valentine tells Jace that this is a war, asks him what side he's going to be on. Jace wants to know why they can't be on the same side. It's supposed to be Shadowhunters versus demons. Valentine says that if the Clave keeps doing what they've been doing, the demons will attack, and with the Clave distracted with all the Downworlder business, the demons will win and there will be nothing left. Valentine believes that the Shadowhunters were chosen by the angel. They're the closest thing to gods in this world, and that they must save the world regardless of the cost. Jace asks Valentine how he could justify working with demons. Valentine says that he doesn't have time to use the cup to make Shadowhunters, and Valentine has the sword and can summon an obedient army of demons, so he's going to attack the Clave with the demons to take over, and then command the demons to destroy themselves, and they'll have to obey. That's the new information that we got out of this, because we knew that he was doing the demon army. We know he's trying to do the ritual. Jace says that Valentine can't kill every Shadowhunter who opposes him because that's murder. I don't think that's going to stop him. I don't think he's too bothered by that. Valentine also says that he won't have to kill every Shadowhunter, that when the Clave realizes that they're screwed, they'll surrender. And Valentine says that he already has support within the Clave. We don't know who he has on his side, but he's saying, I already have people that are ready. He says the need that they have to survive is going to trump the hatred that they have towards him, so he won't even have to kill all of them. Valentine shows Jace the mortal sword now. He wants Jace to hold it. Jace is kind of hesitating. He's like, I don't know what brand of crazy this is going to bring me. Valentine pushes it into his hand. He holds onto it. Jace feels the power in the sword. He gets the breath knocked out of him, and then he can see beyond the mortal world where all of these demons are waiting on the other side. He can see hordes of demons in the sky, on the ship, in the water. He throws up over the side of the ship. Jace drops the sword and it all goes away. He tells Jace that what Jace just saw was Valentine's army waiting on the other side of the wards to be called. He's there on the ship with the sword because the wards are thin there on the water. If Valentine had this army, he would absolutely destroy the world. The stakes are there. The stakes are high. The stakes are juicy. So Valentine has shown Jace his army, which basically there's no way anybody could beat him. And then he asks Jace if he still thinks the Clave won't surrender. And Jace says not all of them will. He says the Lightwoods won't. Valentine asks Jace to convince them to surrender. Valentine tells Jace that if he stands with Valentine, no harm will come to his friends. Jace tells Valentine that he can't hurt them. Jace also thinks to himself that he's already hurt them enough. It seems like they're striking a deal here. Valentine says that he understands that Jace doesn't want to lose these people, and Jace realizes that Valentine actually does understand. Valentine knows Jace thinks that it's his fault that all these bad things have happened, and Valentine says that it is his fault, not on purpose, but because Jace is like Valentine. They poison and destroy everything they love because they were meant for a higher purpose. If they get distracted by the world, then they get punished. Jace says that it's not fair that the people they love are the ones that are punished, and Valentine says that it's fate, and fate isn't fair. Valentine says that Jace is in a current that is stronger than he is, and if he struggles, Jace and the people he cares about about will drown, but if he swims with it, he'll survive. He's telling Jace that he has no other option but to join up with him. It's how things were always supposed to be, and it's the only way that he can save his family, because otherwise Valentine is going to kill them with the army. Jace asks about Clary specifically. Remember that the wording of these things, these promises, are really important. So Jace asks about Clary specifically. Valentine says that if Jace joins him, no harm will come to Clary, and that he'll go to the ends of the earth to protect her. He says that he'll bring her to Idris where nothing can happen to her. He promises Jace. So that's the other side of the deal, is we're going to be a family together and we'll all be safe in Idris. Jace starts naming everyone to get them all involved, and Valentine says, yes, deal. Luke was included in that, the Lightwoods, everyone. And then Jace tells Valentine that he's made his decision, and the chapter ends. We're led to believe that he gives a yes here. Be serious. I don't know what to tell you. Hi, this is a hard cut. It's time for part 3. I'm going to get to it in a second. I needed to explain real quick. I shot all of this in one sitting. Once again, the microphone did not record the last part of this video. So would it really be a video that I was making if I didn't have to re-record massive chunks of it? When I realized that the audio wasn't recording, I fixed the microphone. So I actually have the moment where I had figured out that I would need to re-record everything on camera, and I'm going to put it in right here just as a little tasty treat for making it this far. Is this really not doing audio? I'm pretty sure the last 2 hours did not record. I've been filming for 6 hours. This is a Friday night, by the way. That's a heavy blow. That's a heavy blow to face. I have to stop. I'm not doing well. We got a new microphone. I'm not about to get got again. We also have new lighting. So if there are glares behind me that I can't tell, I think Jace and Simon were getting it a little bit. I'm doing my best, but new lighting, new microphone. See what we feel. Yeah, we are on part 3. Jace just snuck off to have the conversation with Valentine. Valentine offered that Jace join him, and we were left on a cliffhanger with what Jace was going to do about it. Part 3 is the next morning. We are at Luke's house still. Reminder, we have Clary, Luke, Magnus, and Maya. Magnus was there because he was going to watch over Luke and Maya, who have been injured. Luke and Maya are both doing a lot better now. Clary is there, and then Jace had snuck out. We get this line of Clary and Maya. You know I have to point it out. It says, honestly, Clary thought it was hardly fair for a werewolf to be curvy and pretty. She ought to be big in her suit, possibly with hair coming out of her ears. And this, Clary added silently, is exactly why I don't have any female friends and spend all my time with Simon. I've got to get a grip. I don't even know. I want to give you points for that. It doesn't even feel right because you're still doing it. Fix it. They're filling Luke in on what happened the night before because his memory is bad. And Maya says, yeah, my memory is bad too. I almost attacked Simon. What are you talking about? I don't remember anything. She's lying. She does. She bursts into tears when Clary reminds her that she tried to kill Simon. Later, Maya and Clary are one-on-one. Maya apologizes for last night with Simon and says that she was delirious. Maya says that werewolves and vampires are destined to hate each other, but Maya knows that she doesn't have to speed the process along and that she regrets it. Clary tells Maya to tell it to Simon, and she tells her that Simon is pretty forgiving. Maya asks if Clary and Simon are going out. Remember that Simon had called Clary his girlfriend. Maya's not sure what she's stepped into. She doesn't know if it's an on-off thing. Clary says sort of. She says they were friends first and it's a long story. She's not super giving Maya the go-ahead, which I guess makes sense because I think Clary still thinks that she's dating Simon. Maya says that Clary's lucky even if Simon is a vampire now. Jace gets brought up because the girls decide that they should continue smashing the Bechdel test until it begs for mercy. Maya says that Jace reminds her of an old boyfriend, is all cocky, oozing sex appeal, and then is like, oh, well, I guess you wouldn't really know anything about that. He's your brother. Sorry. And Clary's like, yeah. Clary asks who the old boyfriend was that reminded Maya of Jace. She said that it was the one who turned her into a werewolf. Jace reminds her of her abusive ex. Jace comes in with Alec now. Maya says that she doesn't want to cry in front of shadow hunters, and Jace tells her to go cry in another room then, and she does. If you can hear the heat in the background, I apologize for that. I live in a building that will not let me turn the heat off in the winter because the pipes will freeze. Magnus is mad that Jace left the house. Clary thought that Jace had to stay where Magnus was, as in the magic would keep him there. Magnus says that normally yes, but his magic was depleted after everything last night. He had told Jace to swear not to leave the house and thought that the super special Shadowhunter vows would work, but Jace didn't swear on the angel. I feel like Magnus should have known that. He's been around for a while. Magnus asks if Jace was with Alec all night because Jace and Alec had walked in together. He's digging, and Jace says that he went for a walk, lies, and when he got back, Alec was on the porch. Alec brought donuts. Luke and the group is trying to figure out why the Rom demons ran away from Jace, Clary, and Simon last night. Jace was the only real threat to them, and they would know that. Luke, Clary, Jace, Magnus, and Alec are all discussing. Maya is still crying in another room. Clary shows them the mark on her inner arm, the dream rune. She hadn't shown people yet, and she says that she thinks that's what scared off the demons. Everyone goes quiet and is shocked because they don't recognize it, and Clary says that it doesn't come from the Grey Book. Jace is upset and asks Clary what she's playing at. Every time I hear what are you playing at, it makes me think of Harry Potter. Clary reminds them that the Seelie Queen said Valentine had done things to her and Jace, that they were experiments. The Queen said Clary's gift was a gift of words that cannot be spoken, and Jace's was the angel's own gift. Clary thinks that her gift is runes, because they're drawn and not spoken. Yeah, I think we knew that. Clary reminds them of the rune that she drew to open Jace's cell when he was in the Silent City, that it didn't just open the door, it unlocked everything inside of the cell, including Jace's shackles that were on his wrist, and that it had blown the door off of its hinges. Clary thinks the Queen meant that Clary can draw runes that are more powerful than ordinary runes and maybe even create new ones. We've seen her create new runes before. This shouldn't be a shock. Jace doesn't buy this. He says there's no way, but the others are more objective and realize that this could be possible. Luke wants Clary to try to draw new runes to see if it's real. Clary says she can't just do it on command. She needs a word to think of, and then she can focus on that and try to create one. Jace brings up that there's not a rune for fearless. They have runes for bravery, but not to take away fear. He's faced Agramon twice in this book, so I think it's top of mind for him. Clary hears this voice in her head as she goes to write on the paper that says, "Who are you to think you can speak the language of heaven?" Then the pencil in her hand moves. It's not her consciously moving it. And she thinks in her head to that voice, "Who am I? I'm Jocelyn Frey's daughter." This was sweet. She draws a new rune and everyone seems surprised, but they don't really know if it works or not. Jace wants to use it on someone and see if it works, which Luke doesn't seem super down with. He doesn't think that they should be playing around with things this powerful. Jace says that they can try it on him, but everyone else points out that with the way that he acts, they wouldn't know if it works or not because he already acts like he doesn't care about anything. They can't try it on Luke now that he's a downworlder because it wouldn't take effect. Alex says he'll do it because he could use some fearlessness. Jace draws it on Alec. Jace is really doubtful of Clary here. He's really being a stinker. He puts it on Alec. Alec says that he doesn't feel any different, and then they start trying to find a fear of his that would activate the rune. It is at this moment that Izzy, Maris, the Inquisitor, and Robert come in. This is Robert's first appearance. Hi, come get your children. The gang knows they're about to be in big trouble. They've been up to shit, and Jace is supposed to be on lockdown. Everyone kind of steps back, but Alex steps right on up, putting himself in between the newcomers and everyone else. Alex starts coming out to his parents here. He starts telling his parents that he's seeing someone. He's fearless, baby. Maris and Robert are like, cool, good for you, not the time. They obviously don't know where he's going with this. But then he tells them that he's seeing a downworlder, and he starts to say a warlock, but then Magnus uses magic and stops Alec. He passes out and comes to and doesn't remember anything. It is because of this that Luke, Jace, Alec, Magnus, and Clary now know that Clary can create runes. When Alec comes to, he doesn't know what he said. Magnus helps him sweep it under the rug. Maris and Robert are mad that the kids were fighting demons. The Inquisitor tells Magnus that Magnus failed in watching Jace and tells everyone that Jace went to see Valentine last night. Everyone is surprised by this. No one else had this information. The Inquisitor now knows that Valentine is on a ship in the East River, which is why Magnus hasn't been able to track him because of all the water. The Inquisitor knows everything here. She's fully outing Jace. She knows that Jace used a demon cycle from the vampires, flew it to the boat. The Inquisitor also knew about the portal shard that Jace had, and she collects it from Jace, tells everyone that he still has the portal shard that will show him the Wayland country house in the background, and then the Inquisitor destroys it. She smashes it on the ground. She does this to show them that she had put a tracker in the shard. That's how she knew where Jace had gone. However, in doing that, she did destroy the one last piece of Jace's home that he had, so not super cool. She was waiting for Jace to show everybody that he is working with Valentine. We don't know if he is or not. We know that he hasn't been up to this point, but it is looking very suspicious. The Inquisitor says that Jace broke the law, but also his friends did because they freed him from the Silent City and then they took him out of Magnus's care. Again, she's not getting everything right, but it does look very bad. Robert defends Izzy and Alec and says that they're just children and that they were trying to help out their family. And the Inquisitor asks if Robert and Maris were just kids when they plotted against the Clave and were working with Valentine. She says something about her son Stephen, and then Luke asks if this is about Stephen after all. Luke seems to feel bad for her and whatever happened to Stephen. Inquisitor says that it's not about Stephen, it's about the law, but she's yelling, so it's fully about Stephen. It's not about the nail. The Inquisitor is going to take Jace back to Idris tomorrow. She won't say any more since she doesn't trust anybody here and says that they don't have the right to know. Clary steps up here. She doesn't have the same fear of the Clave that the Lightwoods do, or probably respect for the Clave that the Lightwoods do. That's just because she wasn't brought up in this. Everyone else is sort of raised in the fact that you don't mess with them, right? Jace tries to stop Clary from speaking up. I think he's trying to make sure that she doesn't get into trouble. Luke says that if Jace went to his father, knowing what kind of father Valentine was, then it's because everybody failed Jace, not because Jace failed them. So if Jace went to Valentine for help, it's because he felt like he had nowhere else to go. I actually teared up reading this. Alex says that the Inquisitor is right. Jace lied to them and there's no excuse. Izzy, Jace, and Clary are shocked that Alec would turn against them. Izzy leaves, upset. Magnus leaves and says that he doesn't want to see any of them ever again. Kind of fair, based on how he's been treated. The Inquisitor binds Jace's hands with a rune that's like fire around his wrists. Clary is concerned about Jace being hurt, but he says, "I'm fine, little sister." You guys, we're so close. We're actually not super close, but every step we take forward is a step that we get closer. The Inquisitor says that Clary was lucky that she grew up with Jocelyn and not Valentine like Jace, so she escaped being tainted by Valentine, but that the Inquisitor is going to keep an eye on Clary. The Inquisitor tells Jace to get going, says she'll stab him if he makes a move to run. Then the Lightwoods leave with Alec, and Clary and Luke are alone in the living room. Clary and Luke are discussing now. When the Inquisitor and Jace get to Idris, they'll have a trial before the Clave. They'll probably find him guilty. And for punishment, because he's young, maybe they'll just strip him of his runes and not curse him. Best case scenario. Stripping him of his runes means that he wouldn't be a shadow hunter anymore. He'll be a mundane. Clary says that actually would kill Jace, that he would rather die than not be a shadow hunter, and he was just thinking that on the ship. She knows him so well. Luke knows that the Clave will punish Jace to make a statement, since they can't get their hands on Valentine. Clary is Valentine's daughter, but not a part of this world like Jace, so they're not going to go after her, but he still tells her to lay low for a while. I think that's smart. Luke says that the war could be about to start now that the Clave knows where Valentine is. Clary says the Clave is welcome to kill Valentine, she just wants Jace back. Luke says it's unlikely that they'll ever get Jace back because Jace did do what the Inquisitor accused him of. He snuck out to see Valentine. Luke blames Jace for going because it was stupid, but also he doesn't blame him. He says that the Lightwoods turned their backs on Jace, and he's a kid who still needs parents, so of course he went looking for Valentine. Clary had thought that Jace was going to start looking up to Luke for that parental guidance, and then it says that Luke gets really sad and says, "Me too." This one also made me emotional. Maya heard all of the noise happening, so she wants to get out of there. She left a note in Luke's room and jumps out the window. She's sad that no one knows that she's escaping, so no one stops her. She feels like everyone had treated her like an afterthought. No one paid her any attention except for Simon. She wanted to trust Simon, and Simon had made her feel like she could, and so she's going to go find him and apologize. She's walking down an alley outside. She feels like something's wrong. Women be intuiting. She gets really scared. We know that this is Agramon. She does not. She sees Daniel, her dead brother. He's not on the wall because this is actually Agramon, not Daniel making a physical appearance. Don't come for the integrity of the wall. So she sees Daniel. He's taunting her, threatening her, referencing all of the abuse that he had put her through growing up. Valentine now shows up as well and tells Agramon to stop because the fear was actually about to kill her, and he needs her alive because he's going to drain her blood. He has found his werewolf child. Valentine is going to use Maya's blood for the ritual. Maya heard Agramon call Valentine by his name, so she knows that she's dealing with Valentine. She sasses him and says, "Screw you." He's trying to figure out how old she is. He's trying to make sure that she's under the age of 18, which would count as a child. She puts up a fight, but he slashes her face, and then she tells him that she's 17. The Inquisitor takes Jace to the training room back at the Institute. Jace asks the Inquisitor about Steven, and she loses it, so confirmed again, we know what her button is. She puts these daggers in the ground around him and draws a rune. It traps him in a cage. It will electrically shock you if you touch the cage. It's called a Malachi configuration. His wrists are injured. He doesn't have food or water, and he noticed when he was walking through the Institute how rough he looks. He's been up all night. He hasn't been taking care of himself. He's basically being tortured. This shows you again sort of the dark side of the Clave. The Inquisitor had said that she was taking Jace to Idris, but she's actually going to trade him to Valentine for the mortal instruments. She said it's simpler than a trial and he'll be banned from the Clave, but he must have expected that he was going to be banned anyway. Jace says that Valentine would never trade him for the instruments, that he would let Jace die. The Inquisitor says that the love a parent has for a child is all powerful, and no father, not even Valentine, would sacrifice his son for anything, even the mortal instruments. And Jace says, no, he would. He tells her that Valentine believes in what he's doing. He doesn't see himself as the villain. He thinks he's doing God's work, the angel's work. He will never stop. And he tells her that Valentine is using the sword and the cup to summon demons and control them, and that if she wastes her time trying to do this trade, they'll have no chance against fighting Valentine's army. The Inquisitor still thinks that he's lying. So he did lay everything out for her and tell her what's actually going on, but she's not buying it. The Inquisitor says that she doesn't even want to return Jace to Valentine because Valentine doesn't even deserve that. And we get this quote: "What does he deserve? To hold the dead body of his child in his arms, to see his dead son and know that there's nothing he can do. No spell, no incantation, no bargain with hell that will bring him back." She broke off. He should know. We are clearly projecting. Luke finds Maya's note that she had left in Luke's room. It said, "Sorry about everything, gone to make amends. Thanks for all you've done." Clary goes to call Simon. Simon says that he hasn't seen anyone, but while they're on the phone, he thinks that someone's trying to break in. He can't leave the house because it's daylight, so he barricades himself in his room, and Clary and Luke are on their way. Remember, he can't be out in the sun. The call cuts off between Luke and Clary and Simon. What happened is that Yossarian had come into Simon's room. This is the Lewis family cat, named Yossarian. I don't believe that we have been introduced to him. That is Yossarian. The only character note that the book gave me on Yossarian is that he is mischievous, and tell me that that's not a mischievous cat. Look at that guy. His character intro would be that he's not helpful in home invasions, because what happened is that when Yossarian came in, he lunged at something, Simon dropped the phone, that's why the call went out. So it's possible that Yossarian wants Simon to be kidnapped. We'll keep watching for signs on that. Clary and Luke get back on the phone with Simon, just in time for Valentine to roll up and kidnap Simon. He has now found his vampire kid. He has all 4 downworlders now, provided, as far as we know, Simon and Maya are still alive, but he does have them now to drain their blood. So he's got everything that he needs to perform the ritual. Valentine had picked up the phone when he kidnapped Simon. He's on the phone with Luke and Clary now. Valentine scolds Clary for being friends with a vampire, says that the Shadowhunter girl of a good family shouldn't hang out with questionable company, and he tells her that he's expecting to have a say in her choice of friends from now on, and then hangs up. Absolute asshat. Back at the Institute, Jace has decided that he doesn't give a fuck about anything anymore. He's in pain, he's locked up, he's done. He's basically given up. Alex shows up here. The Lightwoods were not aware that Jace is basically being tortured. The Malachi configuration is something that you wouldn't use, so Alec is upset about that. Jace is mad at Alec for agreeing with the Inquisitor back at Luke's house. Alec is trying to figure out why Jace went to Valentine for help. I think Alec is hurt that Jace went to lean on Valentine instead of him or anybody else in their family. Jace tells Alec that Valentine told him that if Jace supported Valentine against the Clave, everyone would be safe. He asks Alec if Alec had the chance to save everyone he loved, would he do it? Alec assumes Jace said no to Valentine without even questioning it. And it's true, Jace did say no, so we have that confirmed. This is a sweet scene. I think Jace genuinely wanted to know if he had made the right choice because he could have protected everyone, even though he knows that Valentine is very bad. Alec also assumes that Jace told the Inquisitor about Valentine's plans, but she didn't listen. But they're all caught up now, and Alec says that they gotta break Jace out. Jace is shocked. He says, "What about your whole the law's the law speech at Luke's house?" Alec said he was just trying to make the Inquisitor think that she could trust him. Alec is offended that Jace even had to clarify that, and he says that he's with Jace always. They know that this is personal to the Inquisitor and that it's not really about Jace. So now we have a side quest. Jace tells Alec to ask Luke about Steven to find out what this old beef is, but Alec's being watched, so he's going to text Clary and get her to ask Luke. Alec asks if there's anything else Jace wants him to tell Clary, and Jace says that he has nothing to say to her. That's fair. Alec leaves to try to use Izzy's phone to text Clary. I think his phone is downstairs on the counter somewhere, but the Inquisitor is walking around. So he goes to use Izzy's phone, but Izzy won't let him in. She won't speak to him because she thought that he was on the Inquisitor's side, and Jace is happy that Izzy took up for him so hard. Alec had gone back to Jace to pass this along, and then also to bring some food. They're trying to figure out how to get it inside the Malachi configuration. Alec rolls a coin with an unlocking rune through the wall. So he sort of slowly rolls it through, and it does work. So they can pass objects through, just not people, I guess. That gets Jace's cuffs off. Jace is surrounded by these walls all around him from this configuration, but there's no roof to it. It's crazy high. They say it's about 30 feet, but Alec knows that Jace can do it. He says that he's seen Jace jump crazy distances before. This is 30 feet in the air though. Jace hears Clary's voice encouraging him, and he remembers that Clary can do impossible things, so maybe he can do impossible things too. And I wrote, is it that he can fly? We kept seeing him with wings in the dreams. The Queen says that he has the Angel's own gift, and he loves flying on those demon cycles, so he can fly, right? I mean, maybe the answer is actually just that he can leap very far. I've read these books before. I remember a lot of the big stuff. A lot of this stuff I'm not super sure on, but this is what I was talking about when the Queen was talking about their gifts. Alec had rolled an apple through the Malachi configuration as well to try to give Jace food. So Jace throws the apple at the wall to see what would happen if you throw something instead of just rolling it, and the apple bursts into flames. Alec at this point says, "Hey, hang on a second. Maybe we don't try this leap." Jace recites what Mayors had said at the very beginning. He says, "I am Valentine's arrow, whether he knows it or not," and then he jumps, and it's a fade to black scene. He did that with style. I'm going to do a check-in in a second so that we know where all of the pieces are, but just remember that we're in the trenches right now. Clary and Luke get to Simon's house. Simon is gone. Clary finds Simon's phone on the floor. Valentine had left a text on there that says, "Now I have them all." He did not need to do that. We knew. He did not need to be that dramatic. Writing a text, leaving it on the phone. The text wasn't even to anyone. It was just an open text on Simon's phone that would have said that so that they could find it. Whatever. Clary and Luke piece together that Valentine has Simon and Maya now. Clary asks if teenagers even count as children, but Luke says that in Shadowhunter world, you're an adult at 18, and anything before that is a child. Don't think about that too hard in terms of Magnus and Alec. Clary assumes here that Jace must have done something to piss Valentine off when he went to visit Valentine. She knows him so well because he did. He rejected Valentine's offer, right? They know that Valentine is retaliating by going specifically for Simon and Maya. We're jumping around a little bit here. I tried to get into some of it, but we're back at the Institute. Jace and Alec go to Izzy's room, so Jace did get out of the configuration. Izzy patches Jace up. He's not doing his best right now. They give him a healing rune, but he has rune burn on his wrist that won't heal with a normal healing rune, so then they just give him normal bandages. I like this lore, that the runes don't just fix everything. Jace flirts with Izzy, says that there's something in this for her when he takes his shirt off for her to heal him, and Alec watches him shirtless through the door and thinks about how perfect he looks. The hormones in that trio are something that I don't want to be anywhere near. Max helps him out by going to get the phone from the kitchen so that they can text for help, and he says that it's because the Inquisitor doesn't pay any attention to him. Jace fills Izzy in on the Inquisitor's plan. She's outraged that the Clave would trade Jace or a Shadowhunter in general to Valentine. Izzy calls the Inquisitor a hideous bitch. Izzy, You can be mad at her for being evil. You cannot shame her appearance. We don't do that. The Inquisitor has the Institute locked up. There are guards everywhere. Jace holds up one of Izzy's bras and is teasing her. Why are we doing this? This is so Damon Salvatore coded. If you were a Jace girl, are you a Damon girl now? Because I don't think if you were a Simon girl that you're a Stefan girl. I don't think that's a 1-to-1 ratio. I also don't feel like the Jace girl to Damon girl pipeline is a straight line, but I do feel like if you were a Jace girl, you were a Damon girl. What's the research on this? The reason Jace is going through Izzy's things is because he's searching for weapons in her room. They're trying to figure out how to all escape, but then Jace says that he's going alone. Max comes back with the phone now. They talk to Clary and find out that Valentine has taken Simon and Maya for the ritual. So everyone knows everything now. We know what we're up against. Jace tells Clary to come to the Institute and wait for him outside. Jace tells Alec to call Magnus and meet Jace, Clary, and Luke at the waterfront. Jace wants Magnus, Luke, and himself, Jace, to get on Valentine's ship, and for Alec and Izzy to stay at the Institute to convince the Inquisitor to send backup Shadowhunters to help fight after Valentine refuses the Inquisitor's deal, which they know that he's going to do. Jace leaps out the window. He pretty much just leaps for the rest of this book. On Valentine's ship in the East River, Simon and Maya wake up. Remember that she was on her way to apologize to him before she was taken? Maya apologizes to Simon now officially and explains that she's terrified of vampires. There was a werewolf group she used to hang out with when she first moved to New York. It was Bat, who we know, Steve, and Greg. A vampire ripped Greg in half. All of his insides fell out, and they started eating him. So it's fair that she's afraid of vampires. Maya explains that when she first met him, he was so human and reminded Maya of herself before she was turned. Simon tells her that they're both still human in all the ways that count, but she still doesn't think so. They are trapped. They're just waiting for Clary and Luke to come with backup. Maya tells Simon that there are demons everywhere following Valentine's command. Simon knows about the ritual, so he knows what's probably going to happen to them, but he doesn't tell Maya. He doesn't want to freak her out. Simon gives Maya his jacket. Simon keeps watch while Maya sleeps. He's thirsty and he needs blood. Maya thanks Simon for keeping watch and says that she's glad he's here with her. Maya asks if Simon can reach her, and they hold out hands and their fingertips touch, and Maya smiles. Simon needs a bounce back. Let's go. Valentine comes in. This is Simon's first time seeing Valentine. Simon is prepping to stop Valentine from hurting Maya. He says that he can see why Clary hates him. Valentine blows silver powder into Maya's face. He blows it like a kiss because this man is good at villainy. The silver burns werewolves. Are we keeping up? Maya is bleeding and crying. Simon yells at Valentine. Valentine holds the mortal sword up, and the sight of it stings Simon's eyes. He says that whoever dies by the sword will see the gates of heaven, so he's doing Simon a favor, and he asks Simon for any last words. It says that Simon knew what he was supposed to say. He would say it in Hebrew, but the English is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." But he can't speak the words because he can't say God's name, and so he just says Clary's name. Oh my God. I also cried at this. That is 2 dying breaths that Simon has had that revolved around Clary. Valentine looks mad that a vampire's last words were his daughter, and then Valentine cuts Simon's throat with the sword. It's a fade to black here. What that means is that we technically don't have a confirmed kill. I don't know how one would survive that, but it's not a confirmed kill. Things are bad. Outside of the Institute, Clary and Luke are waiting in the truck a block away from the Institute because it's on high guard. They see Jace on the roof of the Institute. It's hundreds of feet high. Jace goes right to the edge. Clary starts getting worried that Jace is going to jump off the roof of the Institute hundreds of feet high up without this leaping ability. She's worried he's about to jump on purpose, where he knows that he wouldn't make it. She jumps out of the truck, is sprinting towards him. She's screaming for him to stop. So all of the guards are now alerted to what's going on. But then he makes the leap. He makes a jump. He's totally fine. He's good at leaping. Jace grabs her hand and they run into Luke's truck. They get into the truck. Malik and the silver-haired woman, we still don't know who she is, are behind them as the truck is driving away. Malik goes to throw a knife at the truck's tire. The silver-haired woman stops him, and then the truck gets away. So she helped them. We know that. We'll check back in with her later. We have Clary, Jace, Luke, in the truck. They're piecing together their respective powers. She can make runes, he can leap/fly maybe, and that Valentine probably did experiment on them, and Luke says that it's not the time to talk about that. It seems like he knows something, like it was too suspicious how he said that. Jace tells Luke that he wants to get on Valentine's ship, where Valentine would have brought Maya and Simon for the ritual, and that he's gonna go and stop him. Luke doesn't want to do this. He's worried about Jace, says it's too dangerous. Jace deserves people who are worried about him. Jace is saying that they don't have time to be worried. When Valentine completes the ritual, then Valentine will have an army of demons and be unstoppable. I feel like we should do a quick check-in here. I've been putting the chart up as we go through, but just bear with me for anybody who was lost. There are 3 main mortal instruments. Those are instruments given by the Angel Raziel to the first Shadowhunters. There's the Mortal Cup, which creates more Shadowhunters. There's the Mortal Sword, which forces Shadowhunters to tell the truth. And then there's the Mortal Mirror. Don't know what it does. Also, nobody knows where it is. It's been lost to time. All 3 of these instruments, regardless of what their official role is, they're very powerful angel tools, which means that they're very powerful against demons. There's a lot of power in the tools. Valentine has 2 of them. He has the cup and he has the sword. The cup he can use to create more shadow hunters, which is part of his plan long term. He does want to do that. He just doesn't have time right now to make a shadow hunter army. So in the short term, he needs to be able to control the demons. He can control them to a certain degree because the sword wields a lot of power, but he would have ultimate power if he were able to convert it to a demonic instrument instead of an angelic instrument. The ritual of infernal conversion would turn the mortal sword from an angel tool to a demon tool, but he needs the blood of all 4 downworlders. The book opened with him getting the warlock's blood, Elias's blood, he got a fairy's blood off screen, and now he has Simon and Maya. He's going to drain them of their blood, he's going to kill them, he's going to turn this sword to a demon instrument instead of an angel instrument, and then he would basically be unstoppable with the demons that he has. He's already pretty close to unstoppable with the demons that are already following him, but my understanding is that this would just give him more power with the demons, but I think we're already supposed to believe that with the demons that he has, there's no way that the Clave could win. At least not with the amount of New York shadow hunters that they have. Maybe the Clave would stand a chance against him with what he has right now if they had all of these shadow hunters here, which is why it was a big deal that the Clave believed Jace and the rest of the goons and send backups, but of course now it's too late. So maybe that was it. Maybe if he had converted the sword, then nobody would have been able to stop him, but right now, maybe all of the shadow hunters working together would have had a chance without it being fully converted, but there's still no shot beating him with just the New York shadow hunters and the demons that he has right now. If you have a friend that has never read this book, I want you to just play them that 1 minute of video and see what their reaction is. Hopping back in, so Jace is saying they don't have time to be worried about anything. If Valentine does complete this ritual, it's even worse for everyone. Jace tells them that Alec and Izzy are going to tell the Inquisitor about Maya and Simon, but Jace isn't expecting the Inquisitor to try and save 2 downworlders, the Clave continuing to suck. Clary, Jace, and Luke don't know how to get onto Valentine's ship, but Izzy texts them an address to meet Magnus at. Magnus, he does so much. Magnus will get them onto the ship, and also Magnus will need to get them through the protection wards that Valentine has up. Valentine let Jace through the wards last time because he allowed him to go through. He's not going to let anybody get through this time. Luke wants to go on the ship and have Jace and Clary stay with Magnus, so Jace tells him that Valentine's using a fear demon, and that the demon is what killed the warlock, the werewolf child, the fae child, and the silent brothers that were literally scared to death. Jace says that it has to be him who goes. He's been up against the fear demon. He already lives like he's fearless because I think that he doesn't care about anything anymore. He kind of feels like he has nothing left to lose. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have Clary, and he's gone up against this demon twice now and survived, so he says, I have to be the one to go. Jay says that no one can face a fear demon. It gets inside your head and destroys your mind. Luke knows that this is Agramon. This is the first time that our group actually can put a name to this demon that's been stalking them the entire book. Luke says that now he really doesn't want them going. Agramon is a greater demon. Luke says that it would take the entire city's worth of shadow hunters to stop him. Jay says that Clary can put the fearless rune on him and he can take it out. I believe that Jace can do this. Clary doesn't want Jace's life to be in her hands or the hands of her rune power. She doesn't want the liability. And I get it. I don't like being the one to pick the restaurant in case my friends don't like it. Clary's scared that she'll mess it up, and Jace says that she won't. We're back to them being on the same page, same team. He's believing in her. He's supporting her. It's a good day to ship them. Not in their current state. They're waiting for Magnus. Jace is kneeling by the water. He says he's sending a message. He throws something small and white into the water. Something in the water grabs it and vanishes. Jace has 3 blades laid out. They're not named yet. Jace names one Abrarial, and it becomes a seraph knife and changes color. We must respect the lore. He offers it to Luke, but Luke declines because he has a Kindle dagger ready. Luke still isn't back in Shadowhunter culture. He's still not fully using the tools again. Jace names the remaining 2, gives them angel names, and Clary asks if they would ever name a blade Raziel. Luke says no, that's never been done. Clary gets a text. The Inquisitor gave Valentine until sunset to decide if he wants the mortal instruments or Jace. The Inquisitor and Maris have been fighting for hours, so they haven't noticed that Jace is gone. This also means that the silver-haired woman stopped Malik from telling anybody that they had left. Jace asks Luke if the Inquisitor's son died, if that's why she's the way that she is, and Luke asks Jace how he figured it out. What do you mean how he figured it out? That was so obvious. Luke explains that Stephen, the son, Stephen Herondale, for those keeping score at home, was the golden boy. Good at everything. Everyone liked him. He went to school with Luke and the whole group. Luke says the Herondales were in charge of the London Institute. Do not get me started. When I saw Herondale and London Institute in the same sentence, I started crying again. The Herondales weren't happy about Stephen leaving London to attend the academy in Idris. After Stephen graduated, he stayed in Idris, got married, and joined the Circle. We figure out here that Stephen and Luke were around each other a lot, but we're not exactly told in what capacity. We know they were both in the Circle together, but we're not sure what else is going on. Stephen rose in the ranks of the Circle after Luke was turned to a werewolf and left. Valentine wanted Stephen for his second in command. The Inquisitor, she would have still just been Imogen at the time, begged Stephen not to, but he cut her off to follow Valentine. He cut off his whole family. Valentine didn't think that Stephen's wife was good enough to be the wife of the second in command of the Circle because she had undesirable family connections. We will pick this back up later. Stephen was married to Amatis, but Valentine forced him to divorce her and marry an 18-year-old girl named Celine, who was also under Valentine's influence and did anything Valentine asks, and it specifies no matter how bizarre. How bizarre was that? Because in cult terms, bizarre could mean very bad things. Timeline check. Do you love these? The circle formed when they were all 16, 17. 1991 was the uprising. Luke and Jocelyn would have been 21, depending on if it was past February 2nd for Jocelyn's birthday. Luke's birthday is January 3rd. He would have been 21 at the uprising. So if we're piecing this together, Luke and Jocelyn were 21 at the uprising. All of what's happening with Stephen right now was before the uprising and after Luke had left. So he would have been 20 or 21 when he married Celine. I wanted to point that out because when it said that Valentine forced him to divorce his wife and marry an 18-year-old, I had to figure out if it was a spooky age gap or not. I don't think it's that spooky. If she was 18, he would have been 20 or 21. Clary can tell that Luke is in pain discussing this. Stephen was killed in a circle raid on a vampire nest. Celine, as an alive person, said, I want to not be an alive person anymore, and she did that. She was 8 months pregnant when she did this. Stephen's father died because of heartbreak. Padme did it first. Imogen's whole family is dead now. They weren't even allowed to bury Celine and the grandchild's ashes in the Bone City because of the nature in which Celine died. It's like a sin. She wasn't allowed to be buried with the other shadow hunters. She was buried at a crossroads outside Alicante. Imogen's whole family was wiped out just super quickly when all of this happened. When the last Inquisitor was killed in the uprising, Imogen became the Inquisitor and turned to ice. The Inquisitor blames Valentine for the loss of her son. Jay says that it was Valentine's fault. Luke says that Valentine gave Stephen a choice. Valentine is a monster, but he never blackmailed or threatened anyone into joining the circle. He only wanted willing followers. Stephen had free will. He made his choice. I think Luke's right. Jace says that that's not free will. But Luke asks Jace if Valentine gave Jace a choice to join him when Jace went to see him and assumes that Jace said no. Everyone's like, we know you didn't say yes. And Jace is like, why? Jace confirms this. He said, yes, he asked. I said no. Magnus shows up. He is noticeably less sparkly this time, looks professional, says this is going to take some serious magic. He's ready to work. They head to the truck, but Jace pulls Clary back to talk to her. Clary's zoned out, and Jace says that she disappears into her head so completely sometimes, and he just wishes that he could follow her. And she thinks, she doesn't say this, that he does, that he's in her head all the time. He asks Clary to put the Fearless rune on him before Luke can see because he knows that Luke wouldn't approve of it. But Jace says that Luke hasn't dealt with Agramon. He doesn't know what he's like, and he tells Clary that you see what you fear most in the world. Clary says that she doesn't know what that would be for her. She also is not given the information that Jace's biggest fear was Clary's death. She draws the Fearless rune on him. Jace then puts runes on Clary for battle. She still has her dream rune working for her. Magnus quotes a Bible verse here about Cain and the mark of Cain. The verse is, and the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. You are not ready for where that goes. Jace is surprised that Magnus can quote the Bible because he's a downworlder, but Magnus says he's been around a while. He was born in a deeply religious century, so he figured it out. Magnus says that he thought that Cain's mark might have been the first recorded mark in history. Shadowhunters were created 1,000 years ago. Clary, Jace, Magnus, Luke. Are we tracking? They get in the truck that Magnus has used magic on, so the truck drives on top of the water. The ship is on the East River. Luke says that Clary and Magnus are to stay in the truck. Luke and Jace are going to go on the ship. Luke would have preferred Jace not going, but I think he gets that they don't have a choice at this point. The goal is to save Simon and Maya. If you can take out Valentine, if you can take out any of the demons, great. The main goal right now is we need to save Simon and Maya. So they're just hoping to get in and out with Simon and Maya. I think they're anticipating that things are going to go south, which is why Alec and Izzy are back at the Institute trying to work on reinforcements. Even in that situation, we are led to believe that even if everybody shows up to fight, they would never be able to win. Valentine has too many demons. I think everybody understands that this is the only play. This is the only thing we can do at this point, and it's worth it. We go back to the Institute now. Alec and Izzy are eavesdropping on the library where Mavis and the Inquisitor are inside. It's sunset now. They're all waiting for Valentine's response, and Izzy goes in with Alec. Mavis and the Inquisitor are pissed at each other. They're staring each other down. They're mad that the kids are there, but then Valentine's hologram shows up. The book notes that Valentine looks nothing like Jace. Taking whatever crumbs I can get at this point. Valentine greets Imogen and calls Maris my Maris, and she says, I'm not your Maris anymore. Valentine says Izzy and Alec look just like her. Maris tells Valentine to leave her kids alone. Valentine says why should he when they didn't leave his kid alone. He confirms out loud in front of everyone that the terms of the trade were that Valentine trade Jace for the mortal instruments, or else the Inquisitor is going to kill Jace. We did not know about that part of the deal. Obviously very bad. This didn't help my attitude towards the Clave. Everybody's outraged by this. Izzy and Alec are upset. The Inquisitor says, yep, those are the terms. Valentine says, cool, now that I understand and I've outed you in front of everyone, the answer is no. He won't trade Jace for the instruments. The Inquisitor looks shook and says that she's not bluffing. She will kill Jace. Valentine says, oh, Yeah, cool. Valentine tells the Inquisitor that they're similar because they're both ruthless. He points out that she doesn't have a moral high ground here. I agree, she does not. She's planning on killing a teenage boy just to punish his father. Valentine knows that she's doing it because of Stephen, but it doesn't matter. He won't give up the mortal instruments, not even for Jonathan. Jace. The Inquisitor cannot wrap her mind around this, and Valentine says that children make their own choices. It's what he understands that the Inquisitor doesn't. She blamed Valentine and not Stephen for Stephen's choices, and is doing all of this to avenge Stephen, and would have done anything, probably shady shit, to get Stephen back. Valentine won't. It's almost like Valentine respects free will and the Inquisitor doesn't. I'm agreeing with Valentine on an ethical dilemma over the Clave. That's how fucked up the Clave has gotten. Valentine says he gave Jonathan a choice to join him. Jace said no. Jace chose the Clave, and Valentine told Jace that the Clave would turn on him, and that's exactly what happened. Valentine pointing out that Jace was actually on the Clave's side and that the Clave didn't trust him and that they screwed that up too. This confirms Jace's story that he had been trying to tell the Inquisitor the entire time. We're led to believe that she finally believes Jace now. And also Mayrus, who had her doubts, everyone knows that Jace wasn't actually working with Valentine. The Inquisitor looks messed up and says that she won't be able to stop the Clave from killing Jace if Valentine doesn't give her the mortal instruments. The plan was already set in motion. She won't be able to take it back now. Valentine says, say less. Yeah, I got it. But he gave Jace a choice. Jace made his choice. Izzy runs at Valentine and calls him a bastard. That's an excellent Izzy moment. She goes to call Valentine a dickhead and Alex stops her. The Inquisitor is shell-shocked. She's having a hard time computing that Valentine offered Jace a choice and he said no. She said that she thought Jace was his spy and his weapon, and Valentine seems surprised that she thought that. He says he doesn't care about the Clave's secrets. He's not trying to spy on the Clave. He wants to destroy it. He doesn't care what the T is, and he has far more powerful weapons than a boy. Valentine tells the Inquisitor that she is nothing. He gives her a look of disgust before he disappears. The exact line is, "You are nothing, Imogen Herondale, the figurehead of a regime whose power is soon to be shattered. Its rule ended. There's nothing you have to offer me that I could possibly want." In my notes, it says Valentine gunning for MVP. I would never give him MVP, but, well, ooh, if we're talking about an objective basis, who's accomplishing what they're supposed to be accomplishing to the highest level, who's doing the most and doing it well, I guess he is in contention. We are back on the Aqua truck. This is Luke's truck that is currently on the East River going to Valentine's ship. Jace gives Clary his jacket. They're in the bed of the truck. Jace asks Clary if she's going to stay in the truck, and she asks if she has a choice, and he says no. She holds his hand and says that she knows that he'll find Simon for her. Jace is trying to tell her that it may be too late for Simon, but she says that Simon has to be all right. Jace says that he has to ask her something. He was afraid before, but now he's not afraid of anything. He has the rune on. He moves in. It says that his mouth touches her mouth, but it's lightly. It's a shadow of a kiss. Then he pulls back and there are demons coming. So now we can forget that that happened. I don't support this. Side note that we haven't discussed. Come sidebar real quick. Luke seems suspiciously chill with the Jace-Clary relationship. Typically, I'm throwing every dad award I can throw at him. I guess as far as he knows, they met, started something up, found out that they could potentially be related, allegedly, and then stopped, but they just almost kissed in the back of his truck. So I don't know. Maybe that's something to look at. The demons are coming from Valentine's ship out to the truck. Jace and Clary take out some demons. Luke's truck gets smashed up. It says they're ugly flying things like pterodactyls. They take out all the demons that were there. The coast is clear. They're still on the truck going out to the ship. The demons had come out to them. Clary checks on Magnus. He's slumped in his seat, drained. It's very difficult to keep the protection spells off of the ship, but if he stops, anyone who sets foot on the ship other than Valentine will die. Magnus is doing so much here that it's making me rethink the MVP award that I gave. Magnus can't work on the wards if he's on the ship itself. He has to do it from here. And then a demon grabs Clary with its claws and just carries her off into the night. The demon's not going to kill her. It's just retrieving her for Valentine. Jace jumps out of the truck and starts swimming to the ship. Luke checks in with Magnus, who is hanging in there, and then Luke dives in after Jace. Back at the Institute, I know we're jumping around. I'm doing my best. Alex holding Izzy back. She's just vibrating with anger. The Inquisitor is in shock. What have I done mode? Mayrus has Izzy grab Robert. Where has Robert been? Mayrus tells the Inquisitor that she has handed victory over to Valentine. That's what she's done. Mayrus lays her out here, and I'm going to read it. You knew exactly what Valentine was planning when you locked Jace up. You refused to allow the Clave to become involved because it would have interfered with your plan. You wanted to make Valentine suffer as he had made you suffer. Show him you had the power to kill his son the way he killed yours. You wanted to humble him. Valentine will not be humbled. I could have told you that. You never had a hold over him. He only pretended to consider your offer to make absolute certain that we would have no time to call for reinforcements from Idris, and now it's too late. Read her to filth. Mayrus. The Inquisitor keeping the Clave out of it is what lost them the ability to fight. Basically, she fucked it. They don't have days or even hours to get Shadowhunters here from Idris. They're going to have to fight Valentine. They have no choice. And Robert shows up to say, we gotta leave now. And I put in my notes, sir, where have you been? You don't even go here. Robert is in hunting gear. There's some lines about Alex seeing how big and strong his dad is, that he's scared of his dad, I think in a way that he wants his approval. Alec hasn't seen Robert since he almost came out as dating Magnus. Robert says that the Conclave stands ready. Conclave would be the Shadowhunters in New York. And the boats are waiting to the dock to get to Valentine's ship. The Inquisitor says there's no time. Robert tells Mayrus that they're going. There's a note that he speaks respectfully to Mayrus, but they are over the Inquisitor now. They're giving her zero respect. Mayrus tells the Inquisitor to call the Clave and tell them what happened because it's her fault. Izzy is dressed and ready, tells Alec to go get ready, and Robert offers Alec one of his weapons, one that Robert typically uses, and he looks at Alec with pride, so there's like a family moment here. I think the gist is that Robert and Mayrus are seeing how strong their kids actually are and are proud of them for being on the right side of this. Izzy hands Mayrus her weapon, and she holds it to the Inquisitor's heart. Mayrus does. It says that the Inquisitor just seems broken. She asks Mayrus if Mayrus is going to kill her. Mayrus says no, because we need everyone we can get. Get your ass up. We're going to war. Mayrus says, I'm giving the orders now, and her first one is for the Inquisitor to go free Jace from the Malachi configuration, and then Alec lets them know that Jace is already gone. Valentine's ship, Jace and Luke are on the deck of the ship. Jace has the Fearless rune on, so he's not afraid of anything. Luke is trying to protect Jace as they move through. Luke asks if Jace thinks that Valentine would hurt Clary to get back at him. Jace says that he doesn't think Valentine would hurt Clary, and that he took her to use her like a bargaining chip is all. They run into a hole in the deck where there are tons of demons coming through. There's so many of them. It's all of the ones that have been mentioned before. Jace's Fearless rune starts burning. It's being used. How many can he kill before it burns away? I don't know if we've talked about that before. The runes can get used up. Luke says they have to go back to the ladder as this is certain death, but then they look up and they've been cut off from both sides. Luke tells Jace to jump off the boat, and Luke will hold them off, but Jace says, you jump, I'll hold them off. Luke goes to yell at Jace, but then they have to start fighting these demons. Luke has pieced together that Jace is using the Fearless rune, and he is not in support, but what can you do? Back to Clary, the demon drops Clary off in a storage space with Maya. She's banged up from being dropped down. Clary asks Maya where Simon is, and Maya tells her that Simon is dead. I'm making an executive decision to not put the bar up until we see a body, because there have been so many fake outs. Clary tells Maya that Simon's not dead because she would know. She would feel it. Maya says, I've been there before, but you don't know. Maya tells Clary what happened, that Valentine incapacitated her with the silver powder, and then he drained all of Simon's blood. Oh, you know what? I had said I should wait. This seems bad. He drained the blood from Simon's wrist. He put it all in bowls. The demons helped, and then Valentine left Simon lying there. Again, I get that this seems bad, but he's a vampire now. I don't know how it works. I have to see a body. All Valentine needs now is Maya's blood. The demon then took Maya to this new place where Clary got dropped off. Clary uses a rune that ends up burning through the steel door. Like it's acid. It makes a hole. Maya gets through, and then Clary goes, but Valentine stops Clary. So Clary does not make it through. And then Valentine says that Clary is her mother's daughter. Clary spits blood on Valentine's shoes. Atta girl. He instinctively grabs his blade like he's going to kill her, but then he stops himself. Her stele, her mom's stele, is on the ground, and Valentine kicks it through the hole, presumably lost. Valentine says that the demons will find Maya. There's nowhere anyone can flee to, and then Valentine calls a demon to come carry him and Clary. He holds on to Clary as this demon carries them both off. Luke and Jace on the deck of the ship. There's a line that Jace doesn't know how they're not dead yet. There are demons everywhere. They're both injured. They've been fighting this limitless force of demons. Jace doesn't feel fear, just anger at Valentine and disgust for the demons. He knows that not feeling the fear isn't a good thing, and he can't tell how much blood he's losing in his arm. So fear is healthy to a certain extent, right? It lets you know what your boundaries are. It lets you know when you're in trouble. Jace isn't afraid of anything, and he starts thinking that might not be a great thing right now. You have zero self-preservation skills if you're not afraid of anything. Luke says that they should try to jump off the boat now. Jace thinks they're doing okay. Lack of fear, not helping him. Just then a demon attacks them, breaks Luke's leg. Jace kills it. Remember that werewolves heal fast. The demons have started dropping down on them from a higher level of the ship, so now they're being attacked from all sides. They're down to one weapon each. Basically, they're done. It says here that Jace doesn't feel fear, but he does feel sorrow. He thinks of Alec, Izzy, and Clary, and then the demons all swarm them. This is the all hope is lost moment in this book, and then wouldn't you know it, all of the Shadowhunters show up here. This is the swelling music. Everyone rushes to save them. The New York Shadowhunters have shown up. Malik is there. He quickly apologizes for today for trying to stop Jace from leaving, says he was just following orders. Malik saved Jace's life when he showed up, so he's good. Apology accepted. Jace goes to get Luke, I think just to help him, but the Inquisitor grabs him and tells him to come with her. We know now that she's not going to be up to anything bad, but Jace doesn't know that. He's sassy, which is fair based on their history, but the Inquisitor says that she needs to talk to him. Jace is looking out at everyone else fighting, and you can tell that he's itching to be out there and to be trying to help save everyone. It's blood and hell everywhere. There aren't enough Shadowhunters to fight all the demons. He says that he can't leave in the middle of the battle. She forces him away and then throws the blades down to make the walls come up again. Her and Jace are now in this like walled off area. For a second, Jace is about to lose his shit that he's being locked up again, but she explains that it's not a Malachi configuration. He can get out if he wants to. It just sort of dulls everything around them so that they can have a conversation. He can hear the battle, but he can't see it. He sees the Trimarans on the East River. Note that the Trimarans, those are the Shadowhunter boats that they use. The Inquisitor tells Jace that he was right. Valentine didn't make the trade. She called the Clave and brought them here, and that she owes Jace and his family an apology. Jace still has a reaction upon hearing the news that Valentine officially said no to make the trade. He knew it would happen. It's still really hard to hear. Jace asks about Alec and Izzy Izzy and asks if they are on the ship. Are they going to be punished? She says, yes, they're on the ship. No, they won't be punished. You guys are all good to go. She says that she can't understand that Valentine would throw away his son's life. Jace hates this conversation. The Inquisitor says that it doesn't make sense that Valentine would kill his own son unless, and then she stops talking, unless what? Unless he's not Valentine's son? This is me speaking now. The book doesn't clarify that. She asks about a scar on Jace's shoulder. Jace said that it was from when he was really young, so he's not sure. His father said he had an accident. The Inquisitor says it can't be. You can't be. Jace is trying to figure out what she's saying. She asks if Jace truly thought that he was Michael Whalen's son growing up. I'm clutching the book, getting so excited, praying that this is all a dream and that we can have it confirmed that Jace is not Valentine's son. Jace, on the other hand, when she asks him if he actually thought that he was Michael Whalen's son, he says, we just got past this. He's been fighting the Valentine spy allegations all book. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He says he still doesn't trust her and that he needs to go fight. He thinks that she's only keeping him there walled off so that if anybody survives, she can tell the Clave that he didn't fight against Valentine. He's so paranoid now, and for good reason. Jace breaks out of their little safe cocoon and goes to fight again. The Inquisitor tries to give him a weapon. She's trying to help him, and a demon comes straight for Jace. It's going to sting him with scorpion poison. The Inquisitor throws herself in front of Jace, takes the sting for him, and saves his life. So she gets stung. She kills the demon, but then she falls down. She whispers something, but Jace can't tell what it was, and she dies. Bye-bye now. When I tell you I was so frustrated with where the conversation was going, and then her dying, oh my God. Jace saw that she had saved his life, feels like she's dead because of him. He could have stayed where they were, but he broke out of it to go back to the fight. Alex shows up, he grabs Jace, and he just says, you're live. Sweet. He's fighting with Robert's weapon. Alex sees that the Inquisitor is dead, and he says, good riddance. Izzy shows up. She gets hit with poison from a spider, kills a demon, but she goes down. The poison got her throat. It says that the skin is sizzling where it hit her. That's disgusting. Alec goes to her, tells Jace to hold off the demons while he heals her, upset that Izzy was injured. Jace says that they have to get off the boat, and Alex says, what? Or she'll die? We're all gonna die. Pointing out again that they all believe that they're gonna lose their lives here. This is what shadow hunting is. This is their purpose. This is their life. They're here to die. If that's what it takes, they're all gonna lay down their lives. Jace still tells Alec to get Izzy out of there, but then he has to deal with the newest demon threat. It's ginormous. It says that it's 5 times the size of any other demon on the ship. It's an armored body. This is the boss level. My video was running out of battery. I just had to put in the portable charger. Jace is telling Alec and Izzy to leave. He looks at them. He thinks that this is gonna be the last time that he ever sees them, but he doesn't say I love you or anything. Just tells him to get Izzy to the ladder. I'm gonna read this part. Jace turned and looked at Alec and then at Isabel. Something inside him told him that this might very well be the last time he ever saw them, and yet he still wasn't afraid. Not for himself. He wanted to say something to them, maybe that he loved them, that either one of them was worth more to him than 1,000 mortal instruments and the power they could bring, but the words wouldn't come. Alec, he heard himself say, get Isabel to the ladder now or we'll all die. You know that's gonna get to me. Alec gets Izzy to the railing of the ship, then comes back and goes to stand by Jace with his weapon. Izzy is on the ladder now, but she's trying to stay on the ship. She doesn't actually want to leave to save herself. Alec and Jace are fighting the demon. They both get roughed up here. Alec gets thrown off of the ship into the water, and Jace falls through the deck where the demon blood and the poison had rotted through the metal. Again, disgusting. He falls down. Valentine and Clary drop down into this room. Remember that a demon had carried them off. There are 4 basins in it. One looks like it had blood in it recently. 2 are brown, so I guess this is old blood, and then 1 is empty. I guess that's for Maya. Clary asks Valentine how he could kill Simon, an ordinary human. You know he's a vampire. You're not even getting this right. She's just trying to keep Valentine talking. She's trying to get within distance of the sword so that she can grab it. Valentine says that he was a monster. Clary just couldn't see it because the monster wore her friend's face. Valentine says that he's sympathetic towards Clary's situation because he had the same struggle when Luke was bitten. Clary reminds Valentine that he gave Luke a dagger and told Luke to kill himself, and Valentine says that that was a mistake. Clary says, oh, cool, you get it. And Valentine says, no, I shouldn't have asked Luke to do it. I should have done it myself. He says that if he had done it himself, he would have showed Luke that he cared. Clary says that Valentine doesn't care about anyone. He didn't care about Jocelyn or Jace. They were just things that belonged to Valentine. And he says, but isn't that what love is, Clarissa? Ownership? I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine, as the Song of Song goes. Clary disagrees with this perspective. Clary says, another quote, it's not just that someone belongs to you, it's that you give yourself to them. I just thought both of those are really good lines. Valentine asks if this is like how she gave herself to Jonathan, Jace, which also, oof, I don't want to have this conversation. Clary is speechless at this. Valentine says that he's seen the way that they look at each other, the way that Jace says her name. He says that Clary thinks that Valentine can't feel, but he can see others' feelings. He says it's his and Jocelyn's fault for Clary and Jace's feelings. They were kept apart and they don't see each other as siblings now. Clary denies all of this. Valentine knows that Jace saw Clary when he saw the fear demon. Valentine figured out that Jace's biggest fear is the love he feels for his own sister. I actually think that his biggest fear is losing Clary. His biggest fear was her death, but it makes sense that Valentine wouldn't understand that. I really want to skip past a lot of her fighting incest allegations. We have to go through some of it. This is going to get a little bit gross again. Okay, this is disgusting. Valentine is saying something and he says, well, as your father, and then he goes to say something. And Clary says that Luke is her father, not Valentine. Valentine says that Clary only views Luke as a father because of his relationship with Jocelyn, implying that Luke and Jocelyn are together. And Clary says Luke and Jocelyn are friends. That's all. Okay. Valentine seems surprised by this. I think he assumed that Luke and Jocelyn have been living together as a couple this entire time. He's clearly jealous. Valentine asks Clary if she really believes that Luke would have done all of this, including giving up his life to protect Jocelyn and Clary. Would Luke commit to a life of hiding and running for a friendship? I mean, how good is that sloppy top? That's not making it. I'm cutting that out. Clary says that Valentine assumes everyone has ugly motives just because Valentine only has ugly motives. I'm not going to go through everything on this, but we do need to talk about Valentine's perspective. She calls him a bigot for his views on downworlders. He says he's not. He says that mundanes create stupid distinctions between race, religion, all of these things because they have these dormant memories that let them know that there is something other also in the world. So then they just allocate it to these other things, but that Valentine isn't like that. The way he phrased this was really convincing. Clary had been inching towards the sword as he's talking. It's behind her now. It's blocked from his view and she was going to grab it, but then Valentine's speech starts working on her a little bit as he's talking, and I don't blame her for that. In her POV, there's a line that says it almost made sense what he said. She's trying to remember the things that they vehemently do disagree on. She says Luke's not a demon. Valentine says that Clary has so little experience in what a demon is and isn't. He says that just because she met downworlders that were nice to her, she thinks that downworlders are friends. Demons are the real enemy, but he's seen demons who walk among humans undetected that are vile and evil, talking about downworlders. Noting this because I don't know if it's a reference or if it's going to be important later, he talks about a powerful finance man in London who was a demon. He would eat animals and young kids, torturing them by keeping them alive so that he could eat them slowly over several days. He gives really gruesome details and Clary tells him to stop. This seemed like something that had higher meaning somewhere, so I'm including it. I'm not actually sure if we're supposed to know who that person is. The point is that Valentine is continuing to convince Clary that what he's doing is right and just, and they're sort of going back and forth on the discrepancies where they disagree. Valentine is trying to say that all downworlders are evil, whether they can help it or not, because they have this demon part of them, and he's using an example of a downworlder that was doing really horrible things, and that was a real monster. Valentine says that he had wanted to kill him. I think he tried to, but he could never get close. Valentine says that demons feed on death and pain, that he kills because he must. He's trying to save Shadowhunters. He's not evil. It says that Clary wants to argue here all of these things that she knows. You kidnapped my mother. Look at everything that you did to Luke. But it says that she's seeing now what Luke and Jace have said, where when Valentine's involved, you can't argue with him. If she argues with him, then it seems like she's defending a demon who eats children. She notes the overwhelming and demanding nature of Valentine's personality and has a newfound understanding of Jace's arrogance and his carefully controlled emotions. Valentine and her continue chatting. She's trying to get to the sword. Valentine is waiting for the Shadowhunters to find her because he wants to trade Maya for Clary. Remember that Maya got away. He's looking for her. He still needs her for the ritual. That's his plan. He separated her from Simon so that he could do whatever he needed to with Simon's blood. I'm not sure why he didn't just take both of their blood at the same time. Maybe he was trying to make sure that he got Simon's blood to a safe place first. It seemed convenient for the plot that he left Maya behind and she's still fine, but whatever. The plan is to trade Clary for Maya. Clary says that they wouldn't trade Maya for her and she wouldn't want them to. But Valentine says that they know the value of a downworlder compared to a Shadowhunter child. The Clave would require them to make the trade. This is so bad. Clary's horrified and asks if that's part of the law, and Valentine says it is very much part of the law. You have to save a Shadowhunter over a downworlder. He asks if she sees now that they're not that different, the Clave and Valentine. Jace and Valentine, Clary and Valentine, none of them are that different. They just disagree on execution. I think between Valentine and the Clave, Valentine is worse in murders and aggressiveness and violence and immediate threat, but I would say from a moral standpoint, he and the Clave would both be bad. So yeah, I think he and the Clave aren't actually that different at the end of the day. I do think that Jason, Clary, and all of our main group would be very different from these people. We have to jump around just a little bit. We got to check in on Alec. Alec wakes up on the truck with Magnus in the river. Magnus had pulled him out. Remember that he had gone overboard during the last demon attack. Magnus tells Alec that Izzy is fine. He saw her make it to a boat, but Alec might have a concussion. Alec asks if Magnus can fix his concussion and magically get him back on the boat, and then he apologizes for sounding ungrateful and pushy. Thank you for apologizing. This is good what he says next. Alec says that he knows Magnus doesn't have to help them. He's done a lot of favors, and Magnus asks Alec if Alec knows why Magnus is always helping them. Alec struggles being emotionally vulnerable here and tells Magnus that he needs to get back to the ship. Magnus says that he's so drained right now, he spelled the truck so that it will stay above water and get Alec back to land. He wanted to make sure Alec was okay, but he's gonna pass out now. Alec realizes how drained Magnus is and sort of realizes that when they use Magnus to cash in on stuff, it's not monopoly money. It is still labor. It's very real work that Magnus is putting in. So Alec didn't realize how drained Magnus was, but he does now. He gives Alec his hands and tells Magnus to take his strength, to take his power, whatever he can to keep himself going. Because we know that all magic pulls from something. It's been pulling from Magnus's life force. So Alec tells him to use his life force now and take his energy. Alec says that he has to fight. It's in in his blood, it's in his bones. But he realizes now that Magnus is fighting too. He knows that Magnus is just as much a part of the fight as the shadow hunters are on the boat. He's heard of warlocks taking strength from others before, and he tells Magnus to take it. He says it's yours. They are sweet. Checking in on Jace now. Jace had fallen through the deck of the ship. He lands on a lower level of the ship, and he finds Clary's stele. The steles all have an aura, and he recognizes it as hers. When he was walking around and it says that he saw a stele on the ground, I was like, don't let that be Clary's stele. That's so easy, but whatever. Jace is walking around looking for Clary. Remember that the goal right now is just try to make it out with your life. It's probably not going to happen, so just save as many people as you can. You're looking for Simon and Maya. He wants to go check on Clary. He sees Valentine. We know that Valentine is with Clary, so we know that this is Agramon. Fake Valentine implies that he's hurt Clary. Jace is freaking out at this. Fake Valentine tells Jace that everyone is going to die. He can call 1,000 demons for every one shadow hunter. Valentine tells Jace that it's his fault the Inquisitor died. They came to the ship thinking that they were rescuing Jace and that they wouldn't have come for the Downworlders. He's blaming Jace for the fact that everyone is on the ship. I wrote, this is wrong. They didn't even know Jace was there when they started gearing up. They were going to stop Valentine from summoning demons before the ritual was complete, and then Clary and Luke were going to save Simon and Maya. It says that Jace had almost forgotten about Simon and Maya and asks about them, and I wrote no blame here. Clary forgets about Simon every other page in this series. Valentine says that Simon and Maya are dead and asks how many more have to die before Jace sees the truth. Jace says that Valentine might be right about demons, killing them all, and about the clave, that the clave is not good, but that Valentine's way is not the way. Valentine says that he made Jace to be a copy of him, his arrogance and courage and the quality that makes others give their lives for him. Jace's shoulder starts burning. This is from where the Fearless rune is. It's burning away because it's being so fully used, and this is when Jace realizes that this is Agramon. Fake Valentine, Agramon, is just taunting Jace, saying that Jace wants people to give their lives, that he likes knowing people would die for them. Jace is arguing this. He breaks off a piece of metal strut and stabs it into Fake Valentine's chest while saying, I am nothing like you. Bye-bye now. Belated bye-bye now. I decided that for the greater demons who play a bigger role, that I would do the white bars for them, even though they just go back to their own dimension. They're not actually dead, which is why I didn't put one on Abaddon from the last book. But the way that this one went, it seemed like it would be something that you would classify as they're dead, they're done, they're gone. So I put the white bar up for Agramon, and then I put the white one up for Abaddon, which was the greater demon that they fought in the last book, for continuity. For those keeping track, his first fear was losing Clary. His second fear was that he was like Valentine, that he is at his root evil, and that he would destroy the people that he loves. Jace follows a trail of blood to a room. He sees a body. It's Simon. Jace is horrified for Clary. He's really upset. I'm waiting for confirmation. We get the context that Jace is remembering the ways that Valentine had taught him to kill a vampire. With a stake, you can cut their heads off and burn them. The sun will burn them to ashes, or you can drain their blood. That feels like confirmation. Jace closes Simon's eyes, goes to cover up the scars, throat, the wrists, so that if Clary finds him, she won't have to see how bad it is. But then Simon moves. He doesn't even know how close he came to that white bar. Jace gets nauseous because if Simon is still alive, then he is in a world of pain. I wrote, he has such empathy. Why am I like this? Jace says that there must be enough blood in Simon, just enough that he's not fully drained of blood. He's already undead because he's a vampire, but this would be dead as in doesn't exist anymore. So he has enough blood in him that he's not fully drained of blood, but there's not enough in him to actually power life. And there's not enough blood in him to help him heal. He can't regenerate it. Jace is looking at him, realizing that Simon is probably in hell right now. Then Jace gets an idea. Jace opens his wrist up. I'm so tired of these workarounds. I'm trying not to say something where they're going to kick me off forever. And lets the blood drop into Simon's mouth. He's giving Simon his blood so that Simon can drink the blood. And if he gives Simon just enough, then Simon's body should be able to heal itself and regenerate the rest of the blood. He puts his wrist in Simon's mouth. He's trying to get Simon to drink it. It takes a second, but Simon feeds on him. He is alive. So Simon is feeding on Jace. Jace pulls back, but Simon is up now. He knocks Jace over and bites Jace's neck, feeding on him. He goes to town drinking Jace's blood. Jace starts feeling the high that people get when vampires feed on them, and it says that it feels nice. It's a drowsy sense of peace, but then he feels his heart getting slower. Darkness creeps in. He realizes that he's about to die, and then Simon stops. Simon's wounds are gone. He's lucid now. Simon says that he could have killed Jace. He feels awful. Also, he just came back from the brink of death. He's disoriented. Jace sees Simon getting some color back in his face, the veins coming alive again, and Jace knows that his blood now runs in Simon's veins. Remember that there was this whole headline about what blood runs in Jace's veins? Well, his blood is now in Simon's veins. Jace draws a healing rune on himself. Simon apologizes, and Jace tells Simon not to apologize, but to get moving. Valentine is Clary, and they gotta go. We're going back to Clary and Valentine now. Clary had grabbed the sword. Remember, she was sort of sneaking up to it. She does get a hand on the sword, but then a blast of cold hits her from the sword in her hand. Her fingers and her arm go numb, and the sword slips out of her grasp. The sword burned her. Valentine says that he wouldn't let her near a weapon that she would actually be able to use. This is infantilizing, condescending, and it was a great line. Remember that Jace was able to hold it when Valentine forced it on him for him to see the demons? Maybe it's just because Jace has more Shadowhunter practice. Valentine holds the sword to her neck. It pricks her neck. It's burning cold. Valentine asks Clary if Jocelyn ever talked about him. This is giving lonely boy vibes. And asks if Jocelyn ever told Clary that she was different and special. Clary says that Jocelyn told her father was dead, and no, she never said anything about the shadow world. Valentine says that when Jocelyn was leaving him, Jocelyn had told Valentine that he had turned their first child into a monster. She left before he could do the same thing to Clary, but Valentine says that Jocelyn was too late because he did experiment on her. Clary wasn't born yet, but Valentine clearly did something to her by way of experimentation because she can create runes. Clary circles back to Jocelyn telling Valentine that he had turned her child into a monster, and Clary says that Jocelyn wouldn't have called Jace a monster because Jace isn't a monster and neither is Clary. And Valentine says, I wasn't talking about, and then he gets cut off. Were you not talking about Jace? When talking about the first Morgenstern? Is Jace not the first Morgenstern? This is edging. When this is finally figured out, you are not ready for the emotional response that I'm going to have. Jace and Simon come in now to where Valentine is with Clary. Clary is over the moon that Simon is not dead. She's crying. The knife is basically turning her blood to ice. It's freezing her from her throat. Valentine is still holding it up to her. Valentine turns to face Simon and Jace. When he moves, Clary sort of falls down to her hands and knees. She has the beginning of frostbite on her extremities. That is gnarly. Valentine asks Jace what he did. He says there's no way Simon could have regenerated with how little blood he had left. Simon makes quips about this, and Clary notes that he doesn't sound like a kid yelling at an adult, but that he's deserving of being an equal adversary to Valentine. I don't know if I would go that far, but he does always do pretty well in these situations, and he has matured a lot. Jace tells Valentine that he let Simon drink his blood to save him. Valentine is pissed off that Jace let a vampire drink his blood, not just because Simon was a downworlder, but because of whatever is in Jace's veins. Valentine tells Jace that he has no idea what he's done. Clary tells Jace that Valentine didn't get Maya's blood and that the sword hasn't been turned yet. Valentine flicks the sword in her direction and a wave knocks her over. She gets wrecked. Simon goes to run to her, but Valentine swings the sword back over in his direction and a wall of fire rises up. This sword can just do everything, apparently. He's blocked Clary off from everyone else with this wall of fire. Simon got knocked over from the wall of fire and Clary is just trying to stay conscious. Valentine tells Jace that if he kills the Revenant, Simon, Jace can undo what he's done. He tells Jace to kill him. Jace says no and then tells Valentine that he saw Agramon and Agramon had Valentine's face. Valentine is shocked again that Jace saw Agramon and is still here to tell the tale. This is bigger than the other times because the first time in the Silent City, Valentine stopped Agramon, right? Valentine came up. I'm sure he didn't let Agramon finish him off. Second time Jace ran into him was on the ship when he saw Clary, and Valentine stopped Agramon as well. This was the first time that Jace went up against Agramon and didn't have any help. Of course, he did have the Fearless Rune though. But Valentine doesn't know that, and Valentine doesn't know how Jace is there. Jace tells Valentine that he killed Agramon. Valentine says that Jace killed the Demon of Fear, but he won't kill a single vampire, not even at Valentine's order. Jace says his name is Simon, talking about the vampire. He loves names. Valentine asks if Jace changed his mind about joining Valentine. There's a moment where the book is trying to make us believe that maybe Jace is turning. This is tomfoolery. The whole thing is a distraction for Jace to throw Clary her stele, and then Valentine laughs because he's not threatened by Clary having a stele. Oh, you should be. Clary grabs the stele. She's still about to pass out and hears her mother's voice loud and clear saying, take the stele, use it, you know what to do. Clary is drawing on the metal wall. It says the world falls away as she does, as it always does when she draws. She thinks of the inner strength that she had and the strength and the power that she put into the rune to open Jace's cell door, and thinks that that isn't even 100th of the strength that she's using now on this. She's trying to make another rune that means open on the wall to give them all a way out. Valentine is there with the sword. They need to make it out of there. She's separated by a wall of fire. Valentine is going to kill Simon if Jace doesn't do it. It says that she puts all of her anger, all of her love, all of her hope in them surviving and is thinking open. She finishes, nothing happens. They're all staring. Valentine is looking at what she drew on the wall. It says that he has a look of triumph and horror, despair and delight. Whatever he's seeing, he now knows that her powers are off the charts. Valentine says that what she drew says Mene, Mene, Tekel Parson. Clary says no. It says open. He says no. It's Mene, Mene, Tekel Parson. This is Daniel 5:25. This is a scripture from the Bible. And I know that we all know this. I know that we all went to church 3 times a week for 20 years of our life. I know that we all had to do sword drills to find the Bible verse fast. I know that we all went to Bible summer camp. I know that we all know this. Just a refresher. Mene, Mene, Tekel Parson is from Daniel 5:25. It was an inscription written on the wall by a bloodless
hand. It's where the phrase with the writing on the wall comes from, written on the wall of the Babylonian palace. The paraphrase translation basically means God has numbered your kingdom, and the full quote is God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. It actually means, again, I know we all know this, but numbered, weighed, divided. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought them to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Paris, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Listen, I grew up in organized religion. I am no longer in organized religion. That should explain a lot of my personality to you. Just know that all of the Bible references in this series, I did love them so much because they were so familiar to me. It's important to me to note that I am not advocating organized religion to anybody. Everybody has the right to do whatever they want to do. Okay. The wall warps and shutters. It's solid steel. And every nail, every screw, every rivet, yes, I had to Google what rivet meant, that held together the ship starts tearing free and coming out. So the whole ship is breaking apart. She was trying to do a rune for open, and she did, because it's going to open everything. Clary tries to run to Jason Simon, but she falls because there's water coming in all around them. And then the water coming through the hold sucks her out of there. Clary's getting absolutely pounded by this water. She can't fight her way out, and she needs air so bad that she ends up opening her mouth and letting water in. This is called voluntary apnea, and I know a lot about it from Teen Wolf. There's a Dylan O'Brien scene where he describes drowning, and there's this whole thing about voluntary apnea. It's an excellent scene, and Dylan O'Brien deserves everything in this world. So Clary almost drowns. She hears sweet singing, and then she gets pulled out by someone with long hair. She thinks it's her mom, but just hold on to that for now. Clary wakes up on the truck. Everyone's covered in ashes. Truck of ashes. So Clary wakes up, sees Luke and Simon, doesn't see Jace, and starts freaking out, but then he kneels down next to her and apologizes. He says that he should have been there when she woke up, but then his voice cracks. What happened is they pulled her onto the truck, and Jace thought that she was dead. It's so emotional. Clary's still sort of coming to all the way, and Jace draws a healing rune on her. Jace tells her that Valentine's ship burned down to the waterline. There is nothing left. There's smoke and ash everywhere. They tell her that Izzy and Alec made it to the Shadowhunter boats. They're fine. Magnus isn't there. He's tending to some of the more badly injured Shadowhunters. Luke says that Izzy and Robert were injured. Robert is going to need time to heal. He got it bad, but they're going to be okay. Malik, the Inquisitor, and a lot of other Shadowhunters are dead. Bye-bye now. Luke says it was a hard battle. It did not go well for the Shadowhunters. Didn't look like it did. He says that Valentine is gone. So is the sword. The Conclave, the Shadowhunter community in New York, is basically destroyed. Clary apologizes and says that it's her fault for destroying the ship. Jace tells her that Valentine was going to kill everyone on the ship, and that what she did actually ended up stopping it from being a complete massacre. They lost a lot of people from the demon attack, and Clary thinks that they also lost a lot of people because of the ship exploding. I'll get into this in a second. I don't think that she actually killed anybody, but basically he says everyone was going to die. All of us were. The people that are alive now only got out because of you. Luke tells her that she had torn the ship to shreds. Every bolt, everything holding it together snapped apart. The whole thing went to pieces. The oil tanks came apart too. Clary caused an oil crisis. That's not cool. Luke says they barely had time to jump into the water before it started burning, the oil, and that no one's ever seen anything like it. Clary asks if she hurt anyone. Jay said that the demons drowned, so she did kill the demons. I don't know what her kill count is going to be at now, but that's pretty good between the two of them. Jay said that no Shadowhunters were hurt because they were rescued, that Nixies pulled them out of the water. Nixies are water fairies. This is what I was saying earlier. Clary actually didn't kill anyone. She only killed demons. Convenient. Clary remembered hearing the singing when she thought that she was going to die, and she realizes that it wasn't her mom, it was the water fairies. Jay said that the Seelie Queen came through. She had promised to help where she could as long as Jace asked Valentine the question of what blood runs in his veins, and she did. She sent the water fairies, and that's the only way that all of these Shadowhunters were able to survive. Clary doesn't know how the Seelie Queen knew. This was the message that Jace had put in the water when they were at the shore still before they got on the truck to go to the boat. He was asking the Queen for help, but I also feel like the Queen should have known anyway, because the whole point of the Downworld Gossip Network is that the Downworlders know everything. Maybe it's because it wasn't a ton of Downworlders there. It was Maya and Simon and Luke and Magnus, but not with their packs, and then it was just a demon massacre. It seems like Downworlders are supposed to know everything though. Luke says it's time to get going. Everybody has injuries. Luke drives them back to shore now. The truck is still driving on top of the water. All of the Shadowhunter boats, the Trimarans, are rolling out of there too. Everyone's going home. Clary asks what will happen to the Lightwoods. This whole thing was a catastrophe. It was a massive mistake by the Clave. It was a massive loss to the Shadowhunters that they can't do again. Jay says that he doesn't know what the Clave will do, but that they'll be very interested in Clary now. We find out that when the ship came apart, Jace had tossed Simon onto a piece of metal floating in the water. Clary thanks Jace for saving Simon. Clary asks if Valentine could have drowned. Simon says to never believe the bad guy is dead unless you see a body. This is correct. Jace says that his guess is that Valentine is not dead, otherwise they would have found the mortal instruments somewhere, I guess in the water or somewhere in the wreckage. Clary asks if the Clave can go on without the sword and the cup. She's not sure if it means something more to them. Jace says that the Clave will always go on. The sun's coming up now as they're on this truck on the East River going back to shore. Picturesque, except for the fact that Simon can't be in the sunlight because he's a vampire. The sun will burn him to death. Jace goes to tell Luke to floor it, but they won't be able to beat the sunrise to shore. They can't cover him with clothes. It needs to be actual walls or some sort of structure. Simon calls Clary over to him. He just wants to talk to her before he dies. The amount of dying breaths with Clary. She still gets on top of him. She's still trying to cover his body with her own, even though it won't do anything. They're just on the truck waiting for him to burst into dust. Simon knows that he's going to die. Clary says, I'm not going to let you die, but he's accepted his fate and just holds her. Simon's dying confession number 3 in this book is he tells Clary that he loves her, that he's never loved anyone else but her. And then the light touches them. Simon's eyes turn gold, like molten liquid is coming out of them. Clary goes into a fit, but then Jace tells her that it's okay and to look. And she looks, and Simon is sitting there in open sunlight, totally fine, totally unmarked. Simon's okay, he's alive. Why? Think about it. Think about it. Wrapping everything up now, these are the final moments of the book. Jace is in his room at the Institute. He's packing all of his things. He's taking things from his life in the Manor House too. He's not going to leave any part of him behind in this place. He's packing up all of his stuff to leave the Institute still. But it also seems like he's accepting his past on like a subconscious level. He has the Morgenstern ring from Valentine. He wears it on a chain as a necklace. It doesn't feel right to wear it anymore, but it's still a part of him. I think this is healthy. Mayrus sees him packing. He tells her that he's moving out. They haven't made up since the beginning. Mayrus tells him not to leave. He says that he doesn't belong here. He says he's going to go to Luke's for a while and then maybe go to Idris. She says that he belongs with his family at the Institute with the Lightwoods. Jace reminds her that she threw him out, that he's not trying to be harsh. He says he's sorry for everything that's happened, but if they don't want him here, then he doesn't want to be here. He says he doesn't want to be in the way, especially with Robert being injured now. Mayrus says that he wouldn't be in the way and that Robert wants to see him. I don't think they've talked this entire book. Mayrus asks what about Alec, Izzy, and Max, that they need him, telling him that they all want him here. Mayrus says that she gets it if Jace hates her, but everything she did, treating him that way, throwing him out, was to protect him, and also because she was kind of afraid of him. This doesn't really help him in terms of not wanting to move out. Mayrus says she was worried that Jace would break her heart like Valentine, that Valentine was the first thing Mayrus loved outside of her own blood. Whatever. She gives a good speech here. She loves him like her child. She says you never love anything like you love your children, and also nothing can make you angrier. And Jace said that he picked up on the angry part for sure. She says that she doesn't expect Jace to forgive her, but she asks him to stay for Izzy, Alec, and Max. She starts saying the lyrics of a song that she used to sing to Alec and Izzy. This is the one that he asked about at the beginning when they were afraid of the dark. Note here that Jace does see her as a mother. She says that Jace had been wrong. He asked in the beginning why you never sang that song to me. She had sang it to him. He just never heard her. I guess trauma. I guess he was zoned out, but she was in the room singing him the song the whole time. This is so adorable. She gets him quick with this. He unzips his bag just like that. I like that this was a conversation between adults. It was treated more like they were equals. So the Lightwoods are all on the same page now. Everything is good there. Jace is going to stay. The only issue with them right now is that Robert is very injured. He's going to need time to heal. Clary shows up at Simon's house. We meet Simon's mother for the first time, who is psyched to see her. Simon's mother is Elaine Lewis. Here she is. I would say character intro is oblivious mother, just because she doesn't know anything that's going on. Nice, mundane. She loves Simon. Whatever. We found out that it's been about a week since the ship battle. Clary had to recover after the battle on the ship. She was drained from the rune and still had to heal the rest of her. Her and Simon are in the backyard now. He's soaking up the sun. He is still fully a vampire, but he can be in the sun. He's not having to hide from his family anymore during the day, so that one really just worked itself out. His mom thinks that he just had a bug. That's what he told her, but that he's fine now. Simon calls Clary baby when he sees her, and she immediately says no, absolutely not. It's good-natured. And then it says that she walks over to him and kisses him on the mouth, and that they're touching each other. I had to pause here. I thought they agreed that they weren't together. She starts this romantic thing up with Simon. She has to kiss Jace for the Seelie cord. Jace proposes a relationship and she says no because it's disgusting. Not, no, I have a boyfriend. No thought for Simon in that. Then Simon finally concedes and says, you're too into Jace. I'm not going to chase after you anymore. And she says, okay, you're right. I thought that would count as a breakup at the very least. And then Jace and Clary have a pseudo kiss on the truck right before the big war on the ship. I think the point is that they knew that things were rough between them, but they were like, this is what we do now. So whatever. I guess they are still together. Clary asks him how he's doing. Are there any other changes? He says he's still a vampire. He still drinks blood. He still doesn't have a heartbeat. Raphael has no idea why Simon can go in the sun, and Raphael is pissed about it. He's got to be jealous of Simon, that Simon can walk around in the daylight, but also it's scary because they don't know what it is. It's not normal. Clary's looking at Simon, realizing that he'll be 16 forever, even when she's 50 or 60. The Bella Edward dilemma. Simon tells Clary in a loving way, kindly, that he doesn't think they should see each other anymore. Yes, yes. Her first thought, again, is, you don't want us to be friends anymore? Pointing that out because he says we shouldn't see each other anymore. And if you were boyfriend, girlfriend, your first thought would be he's talking about dating.
I don't even know if this counts as them dating. I think they like sloppily kissed a couple times. Ew. My notes say even she does not view them as a boyfriend-girlfriend, so stop with the open mouth kissing. Unless that's how you groove with your friends, which is totally fine, but I don't think Clary does, so stop it. Clary's freaking out here, thinking that Simon is saying, I can't see you as a person anymore. She asks if it's because she got him turned into a vampire, and she says that she can keep him away from all of the Shadowhunter stuff. He says he still wants to be friends. They're always going to be friends, but he means that they shouldn't be girlfriend-boyfriend. They're laying there holding hands, still being sweet with each other. She says that she thought that he wanted this, because I thought you wanted to be boyfriend-girlfriend. Simon says that he does love her, but there's actually a different reason that he wants to break up. And Clary's first thought is she asks if it's because of Maya. This is dumb. I had a conversation with Jace about whether or not we were going to get together that you did not come up once in, but you better not be having feelings for that nice girl with big boobs or I'll freak out. Simon says he does like Maya, but not in that way, but he's realized being around Maya what it's like to be around someone who actually likes him. Maya likes him and treats him that way, and he can tell that Clary doesn't. Clary says that Simon doesn't love Maya, but he says that maybe he could one day, and she says, well, maybe I could love you one day. This is just horrible. All of this is bad. None of this is how you should treat people. None of this is how emotions work. They're 16. I'm going to let it go. Simon says if Clary ever does wake up one day and love him, to let him know. But until then, they should just be friends. Clary says that she can't lose Simon. Simon says that she'll never lose him and he's not leaving her, but he'd rather have their friendship, which is real and true and important, than have a relationship that's fake and not real. He wants to be with the real Clary. Clary says that she doesn't know who that is. I believe her. That sounded really harsh. She's trying to figure out who she is, and there's so much going on. There's no way she would know who she is right now. But Simon says that he does. He knows the real Clary. So they go back to being friends, and order is restored in the world. I already gave my thoughts about how on the whole, I'm glad that they did go for it and try it so we can get it out of the way, and having Simon be the one to end it not once, but twice. If you count the first one, this was another great scene for Simon. On the whole, good for everyone. Luke is waiting outside Simon's house to pick Clary up. He's got a new truck. Clary tells him not to ask about her and Simon, so he knows that it's complicated, potentially over. They're driving over the bridge, over the river, and Clary thinks of paintings and her mom, and how Clary had asked Jocelyn why Jocelyn had never drawn Clary, and Jocelyn had said that to draw something is to try to capture it forever. And I quote, if you really love something, you never try to keep it the way it is forever. You have to let it be free to change. Clary asks Luke here about what Valentine had said. She says that Valentine had said that Luke was in love with Jocelyn. She's trying to tread carefully here, but she says, you were a dad to me. We lived on your farm in the summers. You guys never dated anybody else. Luke says that he is in love with Jocelyn, but Jocelyn doesn't know it. Clary is supportive, even though in her head it says that it grosses her out to think about them dating, which that's relatable. Luke never told Jocelyn. He says that it just never seemed like the right time. We knew. He realized that he loved her when he was 16. They had all just met Valentine, and he knew that he couldn't compete with Valentine, and he was glad at the time that if he couldn't be with Jocelyn, that she would be with someone who truly deserved her. Then they ran away from Idris. She was pregnant with Clary, and he offered to marry her and take care of her. He said that he would raise the baby as his own. Jocelyn thought that he was just being nice and protective, and that it was too much to ask of him. She didn't want to take advantage of him either. Then she left Luke in Paris, and he couldn't be without her. He had dreams that she was out there somewhere needing him, and that she was so excited to see him when he showed up in New York, but that he also reminded her of the world that she had tried to flee. He says that she agreed to let him stay only if he gave up all of his ties to the shadow world. The werewolf pack, Idris, Clave, all of it. The woman drives a hard bargain. He was going to live with them, with Jocelyn and Clary, but his werewolf transitions would be too noticeable. Clary says he gave up his whole life to be with her. He says that he would have done more, but Jocelyn wanted to leave the shadow world behind, and Luke is still a downworlder. He can't get rid of that. Luke was against Magnus's spell to alter Clary's memories, but he went along with it because he wanted to stay with Jocelyn, and she didn't want this life for Clary, and he couldn't confess his love and ask Jocelyn to marry her because he's always going to be a werewolf. He can't change that. So asking Jocelyn to marry him would be asking her to keep a foot in the shadow world still, and he knew that he couldn't do that. He says that he knew Jocelyn never would have let Luke raise Clary and be a family if they were going to have to lie about who Luke was the whole time. So he had to stay on the fringes. He said that it was his call. He never told her how he felt so that he would never be asking her to choose between protecting Clary. It's really incredible. Luke is convinced that Jocelyn knows how he feels. He says, how would she not put that together? And on one hand, he's right. My bitch is a genius. On the other hand, these Fairchild Frey women, they don't seem to put the pieces together on that stuff. Luke thinks that Jocelyn knew how he felt and that she didn't feel the same way. That's why it's never been brought up. I don't think this is true. I think she put her life on hold for Clary and that she loves him very much. Luke says it's all right. He accepted it. Clary points out that he still never actually told her that he loved her. She thinks that Luke's wrong about how Jocelyn feels. Luke tries to shut down the conversation. Clary tells Luke that she had asked Jocelyn why she didn't date, and Jocelyn had said it was because she had already given someone her heart. Clary thought at the time that this was her dad, but now she thinks it's Luke. Luke does seem hyped by this, but he's trying to protect himself and says that she probably meant Valentine. Clary disagrees and asks if Luke hates it, never having said how he feels. One last quote. Yes, I hated it, Luke said. At the time, I thought what I had with you and your mother was better than nothing. But if you can't tell the truth to the people you care about the most, eventually you stop being able to tell the truth to yourself. End quote. Daddy Luke with the quotes. I thought this was beautiful, but then Clary says, take me to the Institute. There's something I have to do. And I got real nervous. I'm concerned she's going to go tell someone that she loves them. That would make it really hard for me to do my job. Clary races to find Jace at the Institute. She finds him in the elevator. Says that Jace has a haircut from Maris. He's looking fresh as hell. Clary tells Jace that she needs to talk to him. He says that he's on his way to Talkies, so can they talk there? She notes that he looks like a painting of an angel. They're walking. They're making small talk until they get there. Clary asks him about Alec, Izzy, and Max. She feels bad because she knows that they must be struggling if a lot of their Shadowhunter friends are dead. And Jace says that it's different for Shadowhunters because they expect death. He brushes her hair out of her face. They sit in a booth at Talkies. Kaylee is there. She is referred to as an ex-girlfriend of Jace's. That's why that red string is up. Clary is staring at him, and it says that she's finally allowing herself to look at him, just fully take him in. Jace asks why Clary is staring at him and if something is wrong. We do know that she loves to stare. She probably missed staring in this book. There's been no sign of Valentine. Jace thinks that he's hiding away somewhere until he can finish the ritual for the sword, and they both know that a war is probably still coming. Clary says she's been wanting to talk to Jace for a few days, and he says that she could have fooled him. He called Clary several times, but Luke would answer and say that she was sick, and he thought that she was avoiding him again because she's been avoiding him the entire book, but this time she actually was too sick. She was recovering. She tells him that, and she says that she's been thinking about him all the time. He holds her hand and says he's been thinking about her too. It's going to be okay. She says that she was really sick and she almost died on the ship, and he says that every time she almost dies, he almost dies himself. She finally goes to confess that she loves him, but then he says, let me go first. I don't like that trope. He apologizes for pushing about their relationship. He says that he just wanted her and he didn't care what anybody said, including Clary. He kept pushing and he apologizes. She starts to tell him that he didn't do anything wrong. Jay says that he has to say this now or that he won't say it, cuts her off again. And he says, this is the very last quote, okay? I thought I'd lost my family, and I don't mean Valentine. I mean the Lightwoods. I thought they'd finished with me. I thought there was nothing left in my world but you. I was crazy with loss and I took it out on you, and I'm sorry. You were right. Clary says, no, follow that instinct. Sorry, this is bad, I know. Clary says no, that she was cruel to him. He says no, you were right, and that it's not just them that they have to consider. They have family and loved ones, and if they let themselves feel this way about each other, every second that we do this, we're one step closer, okay? It would be selfish, and it would mean being like Valentine. He says that he'll just be her brother from now on. I can't keep doing this. He looks at her like he thinks that this is going to make her happy and what she wants, but this is devastating because they do care about each other so much. She's been icing him out for so long, and I think she's so desperate for him and for that connection. And again, all of the near death and all of it, and she's finally willing to admit this, and then he plays the sibling card. I don't want to talk about this. So she covers it up and she says, yes, that's what I wanted too. She leaves Talkies. She sobs on the subway, a true rite of passage, just sobbing uncontrollably all the way to the hospital to meet up with Luke. She's still processing everything in her head. She's walking up the stairs, and there's a woman there that's glamored. Clary can tell that the other people can't see her. She's standing there in a cloak, sick. Clary walks up and just says, hey, if you're here for me, what's up? I can't deal with this right now. I love this. I love it every time we see her be comfortable and confident like this. This is the silver-haired woman who helped them escape, that's sort of just been on the peripheral, staring at Clary a lot. This is Madeline Belfleur, and no, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She says that she knew Clary's mother, that they were friends in Idris. Madeline says that she knows what's wrong with Jocelyn. She's never going to get better in the hospital, and that what happened, Jocelyn did to herself. Jocelyn used a spell on herself before Valentine got to her so that he couldn't get any information out of her. It was always the plan, and it was a secret that she told only to Madeline. She also told Madeline how the spell could be reversed. Madeline says that she can show Clary how to wake her mother up. This was such a good ending. This was such a good ending. To touch on the MVP status of Jocelyn from the last book, that's one of the reasons. I said we haven't even got to everything that she did. One of the things was her knocking herself out cold so that she couldn't be used by Valentine or really threatened. They still ended up doing all of these things to save her, which she wouldn't have wanted them doing. But she knew that Valentine wasn't going to kill her until he could actually talk to her. So that was her trying to take herself out of the equation. It's just so smart. It was so well done. That is the end of book 2. We're going to get final thoughts for the awards now. We're going to start with most improved.
This one may seem like it was out of nowhere, but if we think about it objectively, Most Improved is someone who, where they are at the end of it, is a much better place than where they are when they started. I would say that this person, at the end of book 1, I'm thinking side character, I'm thinking I don't care much, and bad guy. At the end of this book, I'm rooting for him and Jace to be best friends, and I believe that he has major value that he can contribute, and I believe that he's a good guy. It changed everything. You can disagree with me. It's Raphael. I have to do this on a technical basis. I thought he was a bad guy in the first book because of the vampire lair. He saved Simon's life. He has taken Simon under his wing. He's working directly with Maris at the Institute and with Luke in terms of these downworlder leaders having relationships. He's working directly with these higher ups. He helped Jace break out when Jace wanted to go see Valentine. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing ultimately, but he supplied him with a demon cycle. I believe that he is on side now. I believe that they have a common enemy that is Valentine, and they can all work together. And it seems like he has a lot of value to add here. It's Raphael. MVP. I'm not gonna lie, as I started going through this, I wrote all of my notes down and I had an answer for MVP and Most Improved, obviously before I went to start filming. As I was filming this and talking about it, I started questioning if the MVP should have been Magnus. It's not going to be because of how much he did. And he does do so much. But on an objective level, there was one person who without that, everyone would have been dead. I can't help the fact that Magnus played a bigger role on screen. This person, what they did, everyone would have died without them. And no, it's not because she made my ship kiss. Cecilia Queen. Again, fight me on this all that you want. If she hadn't sent the water fairies to get all of them out of the water, it doesn't matter how much help Magnus would have given them. It doesn't matter how Magnus healed everybody along the way. It doesn't matter how good Valentine was at being a villain. He was another contender as I was going through this. They still all would have died. She's the reason they're all still here, which means that she has to be MVP. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I did love her character. Forget about the Sealy Court curse kiss. I'm not talking about that. Just her as a character, be so serious right now. Amazing. Iconic. We're at the end here. I'm going to keep this short. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching this. If you come back for the third video, I can tell you, with no spoilers, that we have clarification finally on whether or not Jace is Valentine's son. We will know for sure. If you have stuck with me this long, you're going to want to be here for that. I said this last time, but City of Ashes, there's a lot to get done. There's so much exposition. I'm going to put a lot of charts in so that I can try to fit everything in and make it make sense. City of Glass, the third book, the next one, is the book that I've been the most excited about to do this series. That's the one that I'm most looking forward to. I'm so excited to do that one. So I hope that you come back for that one. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for having fun with me. Take care of yourselves. I will see you soon.